First, he did 30 squats. Then Minche told our boy to hold on for 20 more minutes. If he couldn't survive her on top for that short period, he'd never have a decent performance. If you fail, I would trade places. But she's talking with him about performance and fights, bro, because he has to get ready for an upcoming life-changing throw hand spectacle that's coming up. She promised to train him, but he has to do everything that she says, doesn't matter if we want it or not. But who is she to be able to be helping him, though? See, this nerdy dude is the ultimate sucker of the time. A weak, short, pathetic boy who suffers from that classic school bullying. At least he has insanely good grades. He dreams about breaking the faces of the delinquents at school. Because see this, the dude scratched his balls and touched his head while talking to him? That's apocalyptic levels of disrespect. Every day he goes home thinking about how pathetic he was. But on that day when he got home, his mom told him that a friend of hers had sent her daughter to live with them. The girl was going to a school close to their home, and since they had an empty room, she would take it. Minche was chill for about 5 seconds. But after his mom had taken 10 steps away, she dropped the nice act, pulled out her cancer-inducing apparatus, began shortening her life, and got close to my bro to say that she was sure he was a loser. Poor girl had no idea that she would need him much more than she thinks. From the first moment, she was already causing problems. Bro had to cook for them, and she came out of the shower with zero care, kicking and stepping on him with 5 cute toes. Dude is getting a bunch of paid stuff for free. But when they were eating, mom revealed that our walking embarrassment was actually one of the top scorers at school. That made Minche interested, and she told him she wanted to talk about something. Later outside, she admitted that school grades weren't her biggest strength and asked if he could teach her. But my bro ain't no beta, so he just said no way and walked out. Minche started screaming about how she could help him with girls when suddenly some thugs surrounded her asking for her number and some company. She just replied, "I don't do animal care, pig." Our bro knew those guys wouldn't let that slide, so he instantly went to call the police. But suddenly he heard a loud thud. Minche had kneed one dude in the jaw, and in 2 seconds the night was perfect. Everyone was sleeping on the ground. Bro couldn't understand how that happened, but Minche explained that she was actually an MMA prodigy. That's how she got into his school. He was confused. Normally only guys tend to be that good at fighting. Where exactly did she come from? But she just walked away. He followed her, and they went to sleep. Still, he couldn't stop thinking about her movements. The next morning, Kim's mom heads out and tells him to give one sandwich to Lee and eat the other himself. Like always, he's nervous about going to her room, but this time he has to. He reaches her door and knocks, but for a few seconds there's no answer. Just as he's about to leave, Lee tells him to come in. Sure, he heard right this time. The protagonist enters. He immediately gets flustered when he sees her in a short dress. He thinks she's not wearing anything underneath, but Lee tells him she still has shorts on. Kim quickly apologizes and says his mom sent him with a sandwich. Lee tells him to leave it on the table, then heads into the bathroom. As MC is about to go, he notices Lee has been studying from elementary school books. He opens a book and realizes Lee is studying how to spell simple fruit names. A moment later, Lee comes out of the bathroom, catches Kim touching her books, and snaps at him to get out. On his way out, he asks if she's changed her mind about his deal. He adds that those elementary books won't teach her anything. That only makes Lee madder. She hurls a book at him, and this time he leaves. Later that night, the protagonist's mom calls and says she went out, so he needs to bring Lee the sweet potatoes she left on the table. This time, MC agrees without complaining, but when he heads over, he spots Lee by the stairs. She accuses him of lurking around, and he quickly says his mom told him to bring her sweet potatoes. Lee tells him to wait. She wants to talk. Then she admits 3 academies turned her down after the placement tests. She did so badly that all 3 rejected her. Kim now understands she really is at an elementary level, and remembers warning her that her study method wouldn't get her anywhere. So Lee finally accepts his offer. She'll teach him to fight and he'll help her study. Then their first tutoring session begins. The protagonist starts with simple English words and names for basic things. Out of all of them, the only word Lee knows is cigarettes. That's when Kim realizes she knows almost no basic English, so he moves on to teaching her the 26 English letters. When study time ends, fight training begins. Lee tells MC the first step is figuring out what kind of person he's fighting before he throws a punch. He had no idea that mattered, so he's left confused. The two head to school, and Lee climbs up with the protagonist's help to peek over a wall and get a read on Joe Sangbom. Soon, Sangbom comes out with his friends and lights a cigarette. Meanwhile, Kim struggles to keep holding Lee up because she's too heavy for him. Then Lee learns Sangbom has a fight set for after school in a parking lot. She decides they should go watch and study how he fights. MC finally gives out, dropping Lee from his shoulders, and she smacks him in anger. Later, Kim asks why they need to watch Sangbom fight at all. Lee explains that it's the best way to learn his style. At the parking lot, a girl recognizes Lee as the new student. She also knows Lee used to be a bully at her old school and offers her a cigarette. Lee turns it down, saying she already smoked before coming. Behind her, he stands there looking suspicious with his hoodie pulled low over his face. He knows it'll be bad if anyone sees him there. Guys like him aren't supposed to hang around fight spots. Meanwhile, Sangbom faces a boy who's furious because Sangbom broke his friend's finger. Sangbom acts like that's a stupid reason to challenge him. The boy just asks for an apology. Instead, Sangbom grabs and squeezes his eyeball to show who's in control. Then he starts brutally beating him down. The others only watch, and some of the girls even seem into it. Lee studies every move carefully. By then, the other boy is completely wrecked and begs Sangbom to stop. But Sangbom still isn't finished. He smashes the guy's finger with a fire extinguisher, just like he did to the friends. That night, Kim sits there with his head down. He thinks there's no way he can ever beat Sangbom. Tired of his whining, Lee tells him to stop and says she can get him ready to fight Sangbom in 1 month. Of course, the protagonist's confidence is so low that he can't believe her. So Lee tells him to trust her. She asks if he wants to keep going or quit, and Kim starts thinking hard. He knows beating Sangbom alone is almost impossible, but he also knows he can't stay a victim forever, so he agrees. 1 month later, midterms begin. MC meets Lee and admits he's scared of running into Sangbom, but she tells him to leave it to her. Right before the test starts, Lee folds up a piece of paper and tosses it onto Sangbom's desk. At first he thinks she's helping him cheat, but when he opens it, he sees that Kim is challenging him to a fight. The teacher warns everyone not to cheat, and starts the exam. As Sangbom reads the note, he gets furious that someone he used to bully is daring to stand up to him. Then the story jumps back a month. Lee has him carrying her up the stairs. Completely drained, the protagonist asks how any of this is supposed to help him fight Sangbom. Lee gets annoyed and tells him to stop asking questions and just do what she says. She spots a good place and tells Kim to take her there. Once they arrive, he's so tired he drops to all fours. Then Lee admits she only used him as a chair because he forgot her slippers downstairs and didn't bring them up. MC gets really mad, but he can't do much about it. He points out that her butt is twitching, and Lee jumps off his back at once, calling him a creep and blaming him again for something he didn't mean. Soon after, they go to a nearby restaurant where Lee tells him to eat as much as he wants. Easy for her to say when she isn't the one paying. She tells him to gain 10 kilos so he'll have enough power to overpower Sangbom. Kim has no idea how he could do that so fast, and Lee gives the obvious answer: eat a lot. After lunch, the protagonist is carrying Lee again. This time he asks if she'll finally start teaching him real fighting moves, hoping she won't keep using him as a chair forever. Lee says they'll start once her delivery gets there. On the way home, she spots it and tells MC to carry it to the roof and change clothes, because real training is about to begin. Once they're on the roof, Lee opens the package and shows him what's inside. It's training gear. She says she got an old friend to help her get all of it, and that friend is the same busty girl Kim liked. He instantly starts drifting into weird thoughts about her. He quickly snaps out of it, knowing this isn't the time, but Lee notices anyway, and calls him out for thinking dirty. Then Lee says they'll start with the basics and teaches the protagonist the 1-2 punch. First the left hand shoots out, then the other hand follows right after. Next comes the low kick to throw the opponent off balance, and Lee demonstrates it before telling Kim to drill all 3 moves non-stop. She says these are the basic moves and probably the best ones for him to use. Lee tells MC to practice them for at least 2 weeks until they become natural. From that day on, he starts training the 3 moves seriously. But at first he's too slow, so Lee shows him how to speed them up. She even gives him dumbbells and tells him to do it faster. Day after day, Kim keeps training. Morning or night, he doesn't stop, and Lee watches closely to fix his form and posture. As time passes, she's impressed by how much he's improved and even admits he's getting better. Then she straps pads to her hands and says it's time to work on kicks. Just like that, 2 brutal weeks fly by. The protagonist finally gets the right form on the 1-2 punch and the low kick, and Lee is glad her effort wasn't wasted, even though she definitely thought about quitting at one point. Now that the attack moves are done, Lee moves on to teaching MC how to tackle. But the idiot thinks she means a football tackle. Lee explains that a tackle means taking his opponent down to gain control, and since Kim is still a beginner, striking alone won't be enough. Him or he'll just get crushed. That's why Lee says tackling could be his best weapon and tells him to try taking her down. The protagonist still doesn't get it, so Lee keeps it simple and tells him to just rush in and tackle her. Right away, MC figures that if he shoves with all his strength, he should be able to knock Lee over. But when he actually tries, all that confidence disappears. Lee doesn't move at all. She just looks at him, confused by whatever that was. Then she drives her knee right into his face. That, she tells him, is exactly what happens when he tackles like that. Next, Lee decides to show him the right way by tackling him herself. She reminds Kim that Jo Sangbom is bigger and stronger, so a normal tackle would get him flattened. That's why she's teaching him a special one that might give him a real shot against Sangbom. The next 2 weeks are the hardest training he has ever done. He even has to hold planks with Lee on top of him. He runs stairs while carrying Lee. He does squats with her weight on him too. He keeps drilling punches and kicks with Lee. Then she adds more techniques to the mix. To finish it off, he even has to spar with her. During those sparring sessions, Kim keeps improving. Every round, his moves look sharper. Even Lee notices how much better he's getting. At the same time, the protagonist also tutors Lee, just like they agreed. Before they know it, a month has passed, and they're back at school. Lee asks if he's ready. Kim says yes, but he's sweating like crazy. His voice shakes as he asks what Lee wrote on that paper to make Sangbom so angry. Lee ignores the question and tells him to stay out of it. This isn't the time to worry about that. What matters now is winning. If MC can do that, maybe the bullying finally ends. With that thought, he heads towards Sangbom. Sangbom is waiting in the middle of the crowd, smoking and ready to crush him. Lee tells him to go win, and he steps forward looking determined. But whether that courage helps him or ruins him, no one knows yet. Then we jump to the night before the fight. Lee sits there smoking a cigarette. With Kim beside her, she asks if he's nervous, and even offers him one. He quickly says no. Lee calls him out for being scared before the fight, but the protagonist says that's normal. He's never done this before. This is the first real fight of his life. Seeing how tense he is, Lee tells him to stand up and take off his shirt. MC immediately starts asking why. Lee cuts him off and tells him to do what she says without arguing. So Kim takes his shirt off. At first he looks pretty lean, but then Lee tells him to flex his abs. When he does, his abs actually show. All that training clearly wasn't for nothing. Lee asks if he still thinks she wasted a whole month training him. His body already looks like someone who can fight. She tells him to stop thinking he has no chance, because that mindset is exactly how he loses. What he needs is confidence. That's the key. Kim then asks how long she plans to keep calling him a loser, since it really gets to him. Lee is stunned. He reacts to that after a few days, but not to being bullied his whole life. Still, she makes him a deal. If he wins tomorrow, she'll stop calling him a loser. He agrees. Then Lee hands him her lighter. She tells him to keep it during the fight. It'll make his punch stronger. Kim takes it and promises to give it back after he wins. Lee snaps back that he should buy her a new one, because she doesn't want anything touched by a loser. The protagonist asks where she even got the lighter, and that only annoys her more. She tells him he asks way too many questions, and acts like she has to explain everything. Back at school, everything is ready for MC's first fight. He grips Lee's lighter tight, shaking all over. Kim can't understand how bullies walk into fights with so much confidence, but then he remembers Lee warning him not to scare himself before it even starts. Trusting her words helps him gather a little courage. He also realizes that no matter what happens, life goes on. Win or lose, he'll still be the same loser afterward. Slowly, he steps into the fighting ring. Sangbom walks up to meet him. Sangbom asks if stress finally made him lose his mind. Kim says no, which surprises him, and he demands to know where this sudden courage came from. Even though the protagonist is shaking like crazy, he holds his ground. Around them, the crowd gets their cameras ready to film his humiliation. Sangbom flicks away his cigarette and says he's been waiting for this. The crowd starts cheering for him, and some even gush over how hot he is. They're all waiting to watch him destroy MC. So Sangbom turns to him, ready to put on a show. He asks how many hits the protagonist wants to take. That brings back Lee's warning. Momentum is everything in a fight, and once it's gone, you're done. Even now, the protagonist is trembling. Still, he forces himself to look brave and throws the question back, asking Sangbom how many times he wants to be hit. The taunt works. It gets under Sangbom's skin, but not in the way MC hoped. He takes his stance and prepares to strike first. But when he throws his opening punch, his reach comes up short. Sangbom swings at the same time, and his fist lands clean on the protagonist's face. From there, Sangbom takes over completely, punching his face, kicking his stomach, and beating him down until Kim is covered in blood. The crowd groans at another one-sided fight. They've already counted MC out, but Lee stays calm and confident. As the beating continues, he completely loses hope. He starts apologizing to Sangbom and begs him to stop. He knows he can't do anything. He's too scared to even fight back, much less win. Sangbom pauses for a second, making Kim think he might actually feel sorry for him, but then he kicks him in the stomach again, driving him into a corner with nowhere to go. Sangbom may have forgotten that cornering someone can be dangerous, but the protagonist isn't some fierce beast. He can barely stay on his feet. Then MC remembers Lee's training. She had told him that mental strength is one of the biggest parts of any fight. Once your mind breaks, the fight is basically over. And that's exactly what's happening to Kim. Back in training, he admitted his mental game was weak. Lee told him he had to find a way not to break, or he'd get beaten senseless. But she also gave him a backup plan for when he got trapped. Grab onto the other guy. Normally, the next step would be a takedown, but the protagonist doesn't have that kind of power, so Lee teaches him something else. She grabs onto Kim and bites his ear. Then she tells him to do the same in a real fight. The pain will throw his opponent off. After that, she tells him to shift to the side and use the move they practice the most, the 1-2 punch. Back in the present, MC decides to trust her lesson. He follows Lee's plan exactly. This time it works. He lands a punch on Sangbom and actually hurts him. Even the crowd loses it when they see a loser like the protagonist actually hits Sangbom. Lee smirks, seeing her training finally pay off. At the same time, Kim screams at Sangbom that this fight is only starting. Then he lands the 1-2 clean, and even makes Sangbom bleed. Sangbom snaps. He can't believe a loser like MC actually hit him. He though starts wondering if he was only supposed to pretend to punch him. Then he remembers what Lee told him next. After the 1-2, Lee says Sangbom will be open for a tackle. Since Kim is still new, simple punches won't be enough for him. She reminds him Sangbom is bigger and stronger, so he needs tackles to make up for that gap. But a normal tackle won't bring Sangbom down, so Lee teaches him a special one instead. A groin tackle. She drives her shoulder into the protagonist's groin and slams him to the floor, leaving his whole body in pain. Lee explains that the real damage comes from the fall, which makes the opponent hurt all over. She adds that she used this move a lot against heavyweights in sparring. Kim says it's a dirty move and breaks the rules. Lee calls him an idiot and says rules shouldn't matter right now. His goal is to beat Sangbom and make him pay. This isn't a martial arts tournament, so he doesn't need to fight fair. She even points out that in Kudo, groin attacks are allowed when there's a weight difference. MC finally agrees, and Lee tells him he won't be the dirty one anyway. In her eyes, Sangbom is the one who fights dirty by bullying weaker kids like him. Back in the present, Sangbom is too focused on his bleeding nose. Kim notices the opening right away. Seeing his chance, he follows Lee's plan and goes for the groin tackle. It works. The protagonist manages to bring Sangbom down, but as Sangbom falls, his head smacks into the wall. The crowd instantly worries he might have cracked his skull. Sangbom looks up with blurry vision, too dizzy to see straight. MC takes full advantage, jumps on him, and starts hammering him. He's letting out every bit of built-up anger on Sangbum. Punch after punch, Kim blames him for years of bullying and ruining his school life. He gives in completely to his emotions, and that new burst of strength comes with a cost. Lee quickly sees the problem. The protagonist is too emotional, and the fight still isn't over. Just like she'd expect, it backfires. Sangbum kicks MC off him, then he comes at Kim and grabs him by the neck. He mocks him, saying he really did learn martial arts to stand up to his bully. But Sangbum says he picked up a few tricks too, then locks the protagonist in a guillotine choke. It's a brutal hold that can put someone out in 7 seconds. Sangbum warns MC he'll make him suffer for this and use him as an example. MC can only think that all his training is ending like this. Humiliated at the very end, 3 seconds are already gone, and with only 4 left he has to escape somehow. Then he remembers the lighter still in his hand. He burns Sangbum's arm with it, and the plan works. Sangbum instantly lets go of the choke. Kim likes how things are going, but he knows it's not over. To win, he still has to knock Sangbum out. He remembers Lee telling him a low kick can break an opponent's balance, so he snaps one into Sangbum and throws him off. That gives the protagonist the perfect chance to finish it. He also recalls Lee saying the chin is the spot to aim for if he wants a knockout. No matter how big or strong someone is, she says, a clean punch to the chin can drop them if it's done right. Kim follows that advice and nails it perfectly. The whole crowd is stunned. MC stays frozen in the same stance he punched from, barely able to process what just happened. He actually beat the bully Joe Sangbum. Everyone around him is shocked that he, the loser, really won. Lee watches with a small smile and whispers that the protagonist earned this win. Still, she always believed it would happen. After all, she trained him herself. Then Lee quietly starts walking away while the crowd is still in disbelief. Kim suddenly remembers her warning to run before the other bullies rush him, so he listens again and bolts out of there. One bully asks if they should chase MC, but another tells him not to, and says to wake Sangbum first. Meanwhile, MC runs home, thrilled by his win. He's over the moon. News that Kim beat Youngmin High School's strongest guy, Sangbum, spreads through the whole school fast. He starts thinking his bullying days are over, but he's way too hopeful. He has no idea this is only the start, and he hasn't thought about what comes with becoming famous overnight. Then the story shifts to a strong boy hearing that Joe Sangbum lost a fight to a loser named the protagonist. He figures if he beats MC, that means he basically beats Sangbum too. This is Hong Dae-bong, a 17-year-old from Busan, who weighs a huge 110 kilograms. Poor, he has no clue that another monster from Youngmin High is about to come after him. After that, Joe Sangbum takes a few days off and comes back 3 days later. The students think he's embarrassed, especially with how down he looks. He won't even look at Lee when he enters the classroom. Lee had expected him to come back looking for revenge right away. Instead, he sits down quietly, without talking to anyone. A foot taps Kim from behind, and he turns to see Lee. She tosses him a piece of paper and tells him to buy her some bread. Kim refuses, saying he's not her errand boy and she can't boss him around. But one look from Lee is enough. When she asks again, he gets up and leaves the room. On the way, the protagonist tells himself Lee deserves at least this much for helping him beat Sangbum. Then a thought hits him. He's still following someone's orders, but he quickly flips that idea around and decides this is his choice, so it's freedom. As he walks, a guy recognizes him as the one who beat Sangbum. A little farther on, someone else recognizes him too. Then even a group of girls notices him and starts taking pictures. All this attention makes Kim nervous. Now the whole school knows him, and people act like they're already close to him. He even passes Daebong in the hallway. Daebong tells him that win came easy. Soon the whole corridor knows MC as the guy who beat Sangbum, and Kim can't tell if this fame is good or dangerous. He heads to the cafeteria for Lee's bread, and after he comes out, his head starts spinning. Then a group of boys surrounds him. They introduce themselves as outsiders from other classes, in other words, losers like him. Their leader says he heard the protagonist was a loser who still managed to beat Sangbum, and that news made them proud. He says no loser in Youngmin High has ever stood up to the bullies before, so MC is the first. Then 2 older-looking guys walk straight into the middle of the group and tell them to move. The outsider's leader leans closer to Kim and tells him what he overheard in the bathroom. In a flashback, the outsider leader says he overheard Daebong in the bathroom. Daebong was telling his friends he'd go after him, the guy who beat Sangbum, to show the whole school he's still the one in control. After that warning, the outsider leader tells the protagonist to be careful and heads off. Kim is left standing there shaken. Now he knows he's in real trouble. Later, Lee is calmly eating dinner while sitting on MC's back as he does planks. He's clearly annoyed. Lee brushes it off, acting like she's only helping with his workout. Then he tells her a bully is planning to come after him. Lee barely reacts. That bothers Kim. She's supposed to be teaching him, but Lee says this was bound to happen. Once you beat one of the toughest guys in school, others will come test you. She adds that if he can't handle that, he should quit and go back to being bullied. The protagonist hates hearing it, but he knows she's right. Then Lee says she's leaving since exams are over, so there's no lesson today. Kim reminds her of their deal and says the study session is still on, which makes Lee glare at him. That night, they start studying, and MC asks to see Lee's exam scores. She tries not to show him, but he insists he needs to know how she did so he can help her. That's when the protagonist finds out Lee got her worst scores ever, even after copying his answers. When he points out how badly she failed, Lee blames him. She says getting her better grades is his job, just like she kept her side of the deal by helping him beat Sangbum. Kim admits she helped him, but says he can't magically make her pass if she won't try. Lee takes that the wrong way and snaps, asking if he's saying she doesn't study at all. MC says if passing means losing sleep, then she has to do that too. Lee immediately shoots back, asking if he wants her dead. Right then, his mom opens the door with sliced apples for them. Lee instantly jumps up and changes her whole attitude, sweetly saying the protagonist's mom didn't need to cut the apples herself. The protagonist can't believe how angelic Lee acts around his mom when she treats him like the exact opposite. MC's mom leaves after telling him to focus on studying. Once she's gone, he turns to Lee and asks if she even knows how to peel an apple. Lee simply says no. Then they get back to studying, and the night keeps going. It quickly becomes clear the protagonist has a huge job ahead of him if he wants to raise Lee's grades, because she struggles with even basic stuff and blames him every time she gets something wrong. By midnight, Kim calls the session over. Then Lee tells him to come with her for a minute. The two head back to the same alley as before. From the stairs, MC asks why she always drags him along when she goes there to smoke. Lee says she spotted a cop there last time, so now she brings him to keep watch. Kim then reminds her about their deal, not calling him a loser if he won the fight with Sang Bum. Lee flat out refuses to say anything like that. Still, after the protagonist keeps pushing, she finally agrees to call him by his real name. Then she congratulates him while getting his name wrong and calling him Jae Young instead of Jae Hyuk. MC gets annoyed that she still doesn't know his name. Lee of course responds by telling him to just change it. As usual, she acts like none of it is her fault, and they end the night irritated with each other. The next day, Kim walks into class thinking about how to help Lee improve her grades. Then he notices Daebong sitting in his seat and walks up to him, telling him to move. Daebong stands up and looms over him, making the size gap impossible to ignore. He taps the protagonist's head, mocks how awful he looks, and asks if beating the protagonist would count as beating Sang Bum too. MC has no clue what Daebong is talking about until Daebong finally makes it clear he wants a fight. He says there's no reason for them to fight, but Daebong answers with a hard punch straight to his face. He says reasons can be made up anytime, calls the protagonist trash, slaps him around, then lifts him and slams him onto the floor. MC realizes he has no idea how to deal with someone built like Daebong. Daebong repeats that beating Kim means beating Sang Bum. Satisfied, he says easy wins are fun and walks away smiling. He stays on the floor wondering if that was the end of it, and even feels relieved at the thought. Lee sees everything and says nothing. But by the next day, it's obvious Daebong was just getting started. Now he's strutting through the hall, telling people to move while carrying Kim upside down by the neck. Daebong has decided the protagonist is his lackey for the day, and the whole school watches as he is paraded around like a joke. Everyone recognizes him as the guy who beat Sang Bum, and now they're watching him get humiliated. At this school, if you look strong, someone stronger will always come for you. Then Daebong pulls out a spider and says he caught it because it looked at him funny in the restroom. He shoves it toward MC's mouth and orders him to eat it. The MC panics and admits he's terrified of spiders, but Daebong just slaps him for resisting. After that, Daebong makes sure he understands exactly who he is. He boasts that he runs Busan, tells Kim to obey, and punches him again. Then he has one of his guys force the protagonist's mouth open and drops the spider inside, making the protagonist swallow it. While the bullies laugh, MC is crushed. No matter what he does to escape being bullied, it keeps happening. He even fought Sang Bum to get free of it, and now another bully is tormenting him, mocking him as Spider-Man after forcing him to swallow a real spider. In tears and completely broken, Kim asks Daebong why he's doing this. Daebong says it's simple, because it's fun. He also says he wants to keep Sang Bum in check, and messing with him is the best way to do that. On top of that, Daebong says the protagonist's reactions are funny, so he plans to keep bullying him until everyone gets the message. He tells MC that losers are meant to be treated like this, and says he should just accept it as his fate. Then Daebong orders him to come to his class the next day and keeps serving him before leaving with his crew. He is left there thinking about all the work he did to rise above his bullies, only to end up right back where he started. The bully changed, but nothing else did. That night, the protagonist tells Lee it's time to study, but he can barely focus after everything Daebong put him through. Lee tells him to wait because she's busy chatting with a friend. Kim starts wondering if this is just how his life will always be. He's sure there's no way he can do anything against someone as huge as Daebong. MC could face Sang Bum because Sang Bum wasn't that big, but Daebong is on another level, so he asks Lee if it's true he can't beat that pig. Lee immediately agrees. Someone his size shouldn't be able to beat someone built like Daebong, but she says he still can win. That instantly grabs Kim's attention, and he asks Lee how he can actually beat Daebong. Lee says this isn't something just anybody can do. To make it work, they'll need some gear, so she calls the same friend she was texting earlier. The moment the protagonist hears it's Lee's friend, his mind starts drifting again, especially since he knows she's into guys like him. But he quickly snaps out of it. This is no time for that. Her friend is named Sarah. When she answers, Lee asks if she can talk and finds out she's at a bar. Sarah is out drinking with a bunch of cute guys, and Lee says she wishes she were there too. Kim, meanwhile, can only think that Lee is supposed to be studying. Then they get to the point. Sarah asks why Lee called, and Lee says she needs more stuff for that loser MC. Lee adds that she'll text the list later. Then she suddenly hands him the phone so he can talk to Sarah, even though he's way too shy for this. Still, he forces himself to take the phone. Sarah tells him she hears about him from Lee all the time. She even sums him up as glasses, a nerdy face, and total loser vibes. That only makes Kim freeze up more. Then the protagonist hears Sarah say she's about to throw up, and one of her friends rushes to help. He hangs up right away. When Lee asks what they talked about, MC just says, "Not much." Later, the package Sarah sent finally arrives. The box is huge, and he has no clue what's inside. Lee tells him to open it. Once he does, he just stares, wondering if this is really supposed to help him beat Daebong. 3 weeks later, Kim stands in front of Daebong, ready to fight. Daebong puts a cigarette in his mouth. He mocks the protagonist for acting brave and asks if he's gone crazy. Then he notices what the protagonist brought and can't believe the protagonist thinks that will win. Inside that package was a giant pair of gloves. Now MC faces Daebong in the middle of a crowd wearing them. Everyone thinks it's a joke. To them, he looks stupid bringing gloves against someone as huge as Daebong. Daebong laughs too and asks if Kim thinks this is some kind of comedy show. The protagonist remembers Lee saying these gloves are his only shot at beating Daebong. Holding on to that, he gets ready. Back when the package arrived, Lee told him those gloves would be the key to this fight. MC had doubts right away. The gloves were so huge they almost looked as big as he was, but Lee insisted they were perfect for countering Daebong. He just worried everyone would laugh at him even more. Lee didn't care. She told him to stop arguing and trust her. And in the end, he brought the gloves. Training started soon after. Lee picked up a baseball bat and told Kim to block it with the gloves. The protagonist goes pale. He can't believe she's serious. But Lee shuts him down and reminds him to stop talking back. She tells him Daebong is huge, so his punches will hit hard. MC has to train for that kind of power. Before anything else, Lee says he needs to learn how to take a hit like that without losing his stance. So Kim accepts it, braces himself, and training begins. Lee swings first, and he gets launched backward. He can't hold his ground at all. That earns him a scolding. Lee says he didn't even try to stay planted when the bat hit. Annoyed, she says he'll now go through brutal leg training until he can stand firm against the bat. From then on, the protagonist had to duck walk to school. People thought he looked insane, but he kept doing it. In class, and even while eating, he had to sit like he was on an invisible chair. At the cafeteria, the pose starts killing him. He complains, but Lee tells him to keep going and warns him not to talk to her at school because it annoys her. The training was so extreme he even had to use the toilet in that same invisible chair position. Later, Kim had to hold another painful pose while Lee sat on him and smoked. Then she teasingly asks if he likes feeling her butt on him. MC says his legs are about to snap. A moment later, he collapses again. After 2 weeks of brutal training, Lee tests him one more time. She swings the bat, and this time he doesn't budge. He takes the hit cleanly on those giant gloves. Lee strikes again, and he blocks that one too. Now she knows he's finally learned. Then Lee reveals the big payoff. If he can do this, he has a 90% chance of beating Daebong on his own. Back in the present, Daebong stares at Kim in his ridiculous oversized gloves. He threatens to put the protagonist back in his place, then throws the first punch. MC actually blocks it, but the impact lets him feel just how strong Daebong really is. At first, he thinks the punch feels about as strong as Lee's bat swing. Then he realizes Daebong hits even harder than that. The crowd still laughs at the gloves, but now they're also impressed. Kim can stop Daebong's punches. Daebong catches on and starts throwing punch after punch to see how long the protagonist can keep blocking. As he gets fired up, he keeps trash-talking him too. MC keeps defending, thinking this is going exactly how he wanted. He wants Daebong to get excited and burn energy. In a flashback, Lee tells him she used to spar at a gym with big guys built like Daebong. She noticed they all had one weakness. They got tired fast. The protagonist is shocked when he hears that. Lee says he only has to survive for 30 seconds. After that, Daebong will slow down from burning through his energy. In the present, Kim keeps blocking without fighting back. Daebong has no clue what MC is doing. He mocks him, saying this dumb plan won't save him. But Lee had already told him that once those 30 seconds pass, the bully will be worn out. Then he has to rush in and smash him with a headbutt. And that's exactly what he does. The plan works. Daebong slows down just enough for the protagonist to take advantage. MC charges straight in and drives a headbutt right into Daebong's chin, landing a clean hit on someone way bigger than him. The blow snaps Daebong's head back and sends spit flying from his mouth. Kim watches with cold eyes as Daebong starts to fall. Lee had warned him before that a hit to the jaw can knock anyone out no matter how strong they are, so all he needed was one shot to the chin. Daebong's eyes roll back, but instead of falling away from him, he drops forward and crushes the protagonist under his weight. The whole crowd realizes Kim just got badly hurt. With Daebong on top of him, he can barely breathe. A moment later, Daebong starts to wake up, confused and trying to figure out what happened. But one thought comes back fast. He still wants to teach MC a lesson and put him in his place. Earlier, Lee had warned him that if he messed up the headbutt plan and failed to win there, he was finished. Flat on the ground, the protagonist remembers Lee's warning and starts to cry. Now all he can do is wait for Daebong to crush him. The crowd loves it. They think it's hilarious that a giant like Daebong landed on skinny MC. Lee, though, is worried about how MC can possibly get out. Daebong tells Kim he's finished and says the best thing he can do now is take the beating without fighting back. He is frustrated. That headbutt was supposed to end it, but it failed, and now he has no clue what to do next. The crowd agrees, the protagonist looks totally done, and they think all that's left is for him to get beaten up. Then someone pushes through the crowd, telling people to move aside. People tell him it's too packed and say he'll have to watch from the back. One student wonders who he is. The guy forcing his way through turns out to be a sophomore. He and his friend were bored, so they came to watch this ridiculous mismatch. The sophomore introduces himself as Han Philip, 18 years old. Another sophomore, Jong Daniel, also 18, asks Philip if he really enjoys fights like this. The students start wondering why there's a foreigner at Youngman High. Philip and Daniel finally reach the front and find the fight already underway, with Daebong pinning Kim down. Philip says they should have come sooner. Nearby, Lee notices the two speaking English and wonders who they are. Philip gets excited when Daebong decides to get even more serious. Daebong starts dropping punches on MC, warning him he's about to get beaten to death. MC tries to block but stuck under him. He can't defend well. That leaves Kim with almost no way to fight back. Daebong keeps pounding on him without stopping. Even Philip starts to think it's too much and wonders if they should step in before he gets killed. Lee is worried too and wonders if this is really how the protagonist's fight ends. She starts cheering for him, telling MC to keep going, even if she messes up his full name again. Still, he finally has someone rooting for him. The problem is, Daebong keeps hammering him while he can't do much at all. A flashback shows the protagonist watching a fight where one boxer pins the other and keeps punching from the top. That makes Kim wonder what he'd do in the same spot, so he quickly asks Lee if there's any counter for it. Lee instantly says escape is basically impossible. Daebong is over 100 kilos, and if someone that heavy gets on top of a weak kid like MC, he's trapped. She tells him that if Daebong ever gets on top, he can kiss his hopes goodbye. He asks if there's really no other way and brings up jiu-jitsu. Hearing that, Lee admits there is a method, though she's not sure he can pull it off on Daebong. Kim begs her to teach him anyway and even offers to help her study. Lee warns him it'll take a lot of practice, then lies down on a mat and tells him to get on top. The protagonist's mind starts going in a weird direction, but Lee quickly shuts that down and reminds him this is jiu-jitsu training. So MC climbs on top of Lee, and just as she starts explaining, the story cuts back to the present, where Daebong is still beating him down and says he'll keep going until he blacks out. He says this is what the protagonist gets for refusing to be his lackey. Then Daebong growls that this is survival of the fittest, and losers like MC were never meant to belong. That word destiny brings back Kim's old bullying memories. He remembers Daebong forcing him to swallow a spider, and saying that being treated like trash was his destiny. The protagonist rejects that. He refuses to believe losers are born doomed. Back in the lesson, Lee explains that to escape from under someone sitting on him, Kim has to plant one leg and bridge up with his shoulders. That lifts a knee and throws the other person off balance. Then he can slide his hips into the open space and get out. MC gets fired up hearing that. Back in the fight, he uses that exact move, slips out from under Daebong, jumps up, and lands a left to Daebong's chin. The crowd goes wild seeing him finally connect with those huge gloves. Philip is seriously impressed by that move. Lee stands nearby, watching closely to see if the protagonist follows what she taught him. One guy in the crowd is shocked that Kim can do more than just block with those giant gloves. He can actually hit back too. But now he's wondering if getting punched by those gloves even hurts. As MC waits for his next opening, he remembers Lee saying he can only win with a headbutt. Those huge gloves won't take Daebong down. So her advice was simple, keep fighting until he gets the chance. He throws a left jab, then follows with the right. He keeps jabbing until Daebong starts bleeding. Then Kim backs up, charges in again, and wildly swings both arms like he's throwing a double jab at once. The crowd bursts out laughing, sure that awkward attack won't hurt Daebong at all. But right before the protagonist can land it, everything flips. Daebong yanks the huge gloves off MC's arms and puts them on himself. Just moments ago, he had all the momentum and looked ready to beat another feared bully. Now that confidence is gone and Kim is scared for his life. Even Lee has no idea how he survives this. Daebong proudly says he'll be the one using the gloves now. The protagonist instantly realizes how bad this is. Daebong gets ready to punch. As it comes, MC wonders if he can block with his hands, but he has no chance of stopping a hit that strong, especially with those massive gloves involved. Daebong slams him with one punch and sends him flying. Someone in the crowd laughs at the idea that Kim thought he could block that. When the protagonist crashes down, a girl quickly shuts her legs thinking he's staring up her skirt, but that's not what's happening. MC gets up and apologizes to her. Right next to him, Lee thinks that was unbelievably stupid. Even so, he isn't done. He starts walking toward Daebong again without fear, like he's made up his mind. Daniel says the protagonist actually looks better without the gloves, and Philip laughs at that before asking if Daniel has even been watching. From Philip's point of view, Kim doesn't look better at all. He's barely hanging on. Hearing them talk, Lee gets annoyed because they haven't stopped yapping since they showed up. As Daebong wears the gloves, he's amazed by them and can't believe MC carried that weight for so long. He says the gloves suit him way better, then tells him to hurry up because he's itching to hit someone. The protagonist walks toward him slowly, knowing the only way out is straight through. The fight isn't over, and he tells himself he can still win without the gloves. Daebong called it survival of the fittest, and MC takes that as his chance to show how badly he wants to crush his bullies. He's clearly outmatched, and now only his bare hands can save him. Kim throws a few shadow punches and realizes he's much faster without the gloves. Seeing this, Lee wonders if he finally gets what she told him. Those giant gloves weigh 5 kilos each, 10 kilos total. That's why his hands were so slow. For comparison, the dumbbells the protagonist trained with before only weighed 2 kilos. So this whole time MC was basically fighting with 10 extra kilos on him. If he could do that well under that kind of weight, he should be way better now. Now Lee is ready to see Kim's real fight with Daebong. Suddenly, he notices Daebong throwing another crushing punch at his head. He knows he can't block it, so his only choice is to dodge somehow. Right before it lands, the protagonist ducks under it with ease. The punch feels surprisingly slow to him. He takes advantage of that and fires back with a quick 1-2. It works. Daebong starts bleeding from the combo. Philip gets excited when he sees Kim has gotten faster. Still, even with that smart move, the hits don't really hurt Daebong. Daebong throws another punch, but MC slips past that one too. This time he lands a double hook cleanly, but it still does no real damage. Daebong barely reacts. To him, the protagonist's punches are like mosquito bites. Even Philip admits Kim may be faster now, but his attacks still aren't doing much. Daniel says the real problem is the weight difference. He explains that if MC wants to beat Daebong, he has to find a way around that gap. It turns out he and Lee already talked about this. Earlier, Lee asked what he'd do if the gloves became useless. She told him he might have to fight barehanded, and warned that Daebong's body is covered in fat. If the protagonist starts punching him normally, it'll just feel soft and useless. The fat will block most of the damage. So once the gloves stop helping, Kim has to fight smarter. Lee tells him to target places on Daebong with little or no fat. The spot she means is his knee. Back in the present, Daebong attacks again, but MC dodges and slams a low kick into his knee with a nasty crack. That sound alone makes it clear Kim is finally doing real damage. Philip quickly realizes he is targeting Daebong's joints now. Once Daebong notices the protagonist has added kicks, he gets even angrier and starts throwing punches wildly. He's trying to land anything now, more mad than smart. MC dodges the first swing easily. Then he notices Daebong is getting more tired with every attack and his punches keep slowing down. At this pace, he feels like he can avoid anything Daebong throws. So he uses that opening to wear him down more, landing a double jab and another kick to the knee. Daebong keeps doing the same thing. Wild, random punches. Kim avoids them all and keeps fighting smart. Thanks to Lee, the protagonist understands he can't beat Daebong with size or strength. So he sticks to the plan, dodging every punch and kicking Daebong's knees again and again. After a while, Daebong's left knee is badly bruised. Someone in the crowd wonders if Daebong's knee has popped out yet. Daebong, now exhausted, has no idea how to stop MC. He's tried everything, but MC keeps getting back up and fighting even better. He's burned so much energy that now he can barely move toward him. On top of that, he's limping from all the kicks. At first, Daebong saw the protagonist as just another loser. Now he's getting a taste of his own medicine. Then MC remembers Lee saying Daebong would flinch even from a fake kick. After taking so many shots to the knees, he's become scared of them. Lee had already turned that into a plan to weaken him even more. She told him to feint low, then hit a thinner spot, his solar plexus. In the present, Kim follows that advice and drives a punch straight into Daebong's solar plexus with perfect aim. The hit echoes through the area, and Daebong lets out a painful scream. The damage is so bad that he doubles over trying to bear it. The protagonist immediately comes up with the next step, the jaw, the spot that can knock someone out if hit right. He remembers how Lee once dropped the fat guy with a strike to the chin, and decides to use that same idea here. Without wasting time, Kim rushes in and drives a knee into Daebong's chin. The blow is brutal and knocks Daebong out cold. Lee was right. A perfect hit to the chin can end it instantly. As Daebong drops face first, MC can only wonder if he really won. It feels so unreal, like a loser somehow getting a perfect score. The crowd starts asking the same thing, and one student blurts out that he really knocked Daebong out. The others are impressed by how far the protagonist has come, but Lee isn't. As far as she's concerned, he almost lost again. And she's right. Just like before, Kim was on the verge of losing until the very end. In her eyes, he still has a long way to go. Meanwhile, Philip laughs at the sight of MC winning. To him, it's absurd that a skinny loser beats someone built like a bulldozer. He pats Daniel on the back and asks if he thought it was funny too, adding that skipping class was worth it for a fight this entertaining. Daniel doesn't answer. He starts walking off and calls Philip too carefree. When Philip asks where he's going, Daniel says he's heading to the meeting. Even after the fight, things stay chaotic. A student named Kwak Hansel calls Daebong pathetic and says Kim only won by luck. He meanwhile remembers the one thing he should do after a fight, run. So he does, knowing the other bullies will jump him if he stays. Nearby, the loser group watches from behind a wall and celebrates the protagonist's win. They're clearly cheering for him every time he faces a bully. They even call him the Knight of the Loser Kingdom and say watching him fight feels like an anime, until one of them tells the others to shut up before the bullies hear. Elsewhere, a freshman girl from Yangmin High watches in shock that a bullied kid just beat a bully one-on-one. Meanwhile, a bunch of students are gathered in the gym storage room, smoking and messing around. One asks if another sold his stuff yet, but hears he backed off because the cops have been too active lately. Nearby, someone offers whiskey, and the other guy accepts right away. This group is actually Yangmin High's bully union, Invincible. After that, they start wondering where their president is since he still hasn't shown up. Then the door suddenly opens. Someone walks in and reveals himself. It's Philip, and he's the president of the union. The second in command is Daniel. Philip says he got delayed on the way because he stopped to watch something fun. The fight between Kim and Daebong. One bully says he heard a freshman was getting famous for fighting. He means Daebong, but Philip cuts in and says Daebong got wrecked. Then we learn Philip went there to scout someone for their union. One of the guys asks who actually won the match. Philip says the winner was this funny-looking kid, but he still can't tell how strong MC really is. The bully suggests they should try recruiting new members for the union. Philip stops him and says not yet. For now, they should just watch Kim and see if he grows into someone worth bringing in. A few days later, he is tutoring Lee while she works through problems. The protagonist looks uneasy. He calls out to Lee and says he needs her advice about something. She asks what it is, and says it's been 3 days since the fight with Daebong. Someone filmed it and posted it online. Since then, everybody knows who he is, and that he's been standing up to bullies. It's not just Youngmin's students either. Even people from outside the school are showing up just to see him. On top of that, he gets bumped into non-stop, and people keep challenging him even though he wants no part of it. Kim wants all of it to end. He doesn't care about the attention from winning a few fights, so he asks Lee how to get out of this mess. Lee tells him this was bound to happen. If he wants people to take him seriously, he has to get stronger, because right now, she says, he still looks like a loser. Then she tells him to accept the next fight he gets if he wants to improve. The protagonist realizes there's no easy way out anymore. The very next day, Kwak Hansel walks up and introduces himself. That night, a Mercedes speeds down the road, and Kwak Hansel is the one driving. His friend sitting beside him asks where he got the car. Hansel says he snuck it out of the garage while his dad was asleep, then mocks him for having no clue what his own kid is doing. His friend is shocked Hansel's dad owns a Benz, but Hansel says it's stupid. His father is broke and still wasting money on the payments. When his friend asks more about his dad, Hansel shuts him down and tells him to mind his business. Then Hansel tells him to hold on tight because he's about to floor it. He slams the pedal and the car shoots forward. His friend says Hansel's gotten way better at driving. Hansel agrees and brags that he hit 200 kilometers per hour that day. This guy is a friend from middle school, not high school. He asks how Youngmin is going, since Hansel was the only one from Gumbuyang Middle to end up there. Even he knows Youngmin is brutal, full of seniors no one can beat, so he wonders if Hansel is getting treated like a loser. Hansel quickly reminds him that he was the number 2 bully at Gumbuyang Middle. His friend fires back that Hansel only had status because he always stayed next to the real number 1, Taisik. He also points out that Hansel never actually fought back then. Hansel says there was never any reason to fight for those idiots at his middle school. He tells his friend to stop saying he only used Taisik. To Hansel, connections can take you places you couldn't reach alone. Hansel goes on, saying a predator can spot another predator, and all he has to do at Youngmin is prove he's one too. His friend asks how he's planning to do that. Hansel says he just needs to find a herbivore. His friend is confused and asks if this is a zoo. Hansel calls him an idiot and says he means a loser. Not just any loser, but the right one. Someone useful, someone who can raise his name and spread his fame. In other words, a perfect target. Hansel talks about a loser like he's picking a meal. His friend laughs and asks how he's supposed to pull that off when he's never fought. Hansel snaps back that he at least trained in boxing. When asked how long, Hansel says 6 months. His friend just laughs again, then asks if Youngmin has a loser like that. With a nasty grin, Hansel says yes, there is. He brings up the well-known Jo Sang-bong and skinny Hong Bei-bong from Busan, both of whom were somehow beaten by a loser. After that, the loser's value shot up. To Hansel, that's the perfect target. Back in the present, Hansel spots Kim in the hallway. He stops him, introduces himself, and says he's from class 6. Hansel asks if MC knows him. MC doesn't, but Hansel acts like that's fine. Then he says he doesn't really have friends and asks if he wants to be one. He agrees right away. Still, Kim looks confused. He can't figure out why someone would suddenly come up and offer friendship. Then the protagonist remembers him. Hansel was the one who shoulder-checked him when he was heading to buy bread for Lee. He also recalls Hansel saying his win was just luck, so MC can't understand this sudden change. Hansel keeps talking and almost calls him a loser, but catches himself and says he was really impressed by MC's fight. He has no clue what he means, so Hansel reminds him about the match with Daebong. Hansel says he loves movies, and watching the protagonist beat that pig Daebong felt like seeing one in real life. The protagonist tries to speak, but Hansel keeps piling on the praise, calling him seriously cool. MC freezes and asks if Hansel really just called him cool. Hansel repeats it and flatters him even more. Right away, Kim thinks about how the only person who ever called him cool before was his mom. So hearing it from someone else really hits him. Hansel says it again, then asks his name like he doesn't know it. He introduces himself. Hansel keeps up the act, saying the protagonist even has a manly name. Then he holds out his hand and offers to be friends. Hansel shakes it without thinking, and that starts their so-called friendship. Just hearing the word makes him light up, and he even starts believing Hansel is kind. Hansel heads off, telling Kim to tell him more about his fights next time they meet. After leaving, Hansel starts laughing to himself. He fell for all that flattery completely, and Hansel realizes just how naive he is. Just by pretending to care, Hansel has the protagonist right where he wants him. Now he plans to reel him in slowly, then strike when the time is right. Later that night, MC is tutoring Lee again. He writes a formula on the board and tells her to master it if she wants to move past elementary level work. Lee quickly starts solving the problems while Kim sits there smiling. He's thinking back to Hansel calling him cool and asking to be friends. He had always felt like he didn't really understand friendship, but that didn't mean he should avoid it. That's why he accepted Hansel's offer. Then while Lee is working, he suddenly asks what being friends actually means. Lee gets annoyed and tells him not to interrupt her while she's solving problems. Kim apologizes and goes quiet, but not for long because he realizes he's never seen Lee hanging around friends at school. Lee says she doesn't care about making friends here. She came to Seoul alone to study and get into university. Friends aren't part of that goal. Besides, she already has plenty back in her hometown and doesn't need more. That reminds Lee that one of those friends was supposed to come over today. The protagonist instantly panics. It gets worse when Lee says she already got permission from the protagonist's mom for her friend Sarah to stay the night. Kim is still freaking out when the doorbell rings. That only makes him more nervous, and Lee tells him to get the door since it's probably Sarah. MC opens it and freezes. Lee's very busty, or rather very kind-hearted. Friend Sarah is standing there. He just stares with his mouth open, shocked that Sarah, Lee's friend, has really arrived. They greet each other, and Sarah is glad to finally meet Kim after hearing so much about what a loser he is. One look is enough for Sarah to see why Lee talks about him so much. She taps his head, walks inside, and calls him a loser to his face. He is instantly annoyed. It's their first meeting, and that's her opening line. Her voice is so loud it makes his ears hurt too. Then Lee calls out from behind, "Happy Sarah is finally here." Sarah yells back, calls Lee stir-fry, and pulls her into a hug. When they separate, Sarah stares at Lee's chest and asks if her breasts got bigger. She even asks if Lee has a boyfriend now. Lee has no idea what that has to do with anything. Sarah claims girls' breasts grow when they're in love, but Lee says that's nonsense. Behind them, the protagonist can only stand there in shock. He looks ready to cover his ears at any second. Then Lee suggests ordering boneless chicken feet, and Sarah lights up the second she hears there's food. Kim can't believe Sarah has been here less than half a minute, and the house is already a mess. Once they settle down, Lee points at MC and introduces him as the loser she always talks about. Sarah says she already took care of that. Then Lee tells Sarah that he loves girls with huge breasts and always blushes when the topic comes up. He knows she's making it up, but his face turns red anyway. Sarah sees the perfect chance to mess with him and offers to squeeze him. Kim panics the moment Sarah spreads her arms. Just minutes after meeting her, he already wants to stay far away. His reaction makes Sarah crack up. She points out how red he got, then says he was never getting near her breasts anyway. Still, she says she'll give him a hug. A second later, Sarah rushes him, slams him down, and locks him in a triangle choke with a grin. She's clearly having fun. The protagonist definitely isn't. He's desperately trying to escape. Sarah asks if he can break out. Shaking, MC admits he hasn't learned a counter for that move yet. That's when he remembers. Sarah does martial arts too. Soon he can barely breathe, and even when he says so, she keeps playing around. Before long, Kim blacks out. Later, Lee wakes him by nudging him with her foot while he lies on the floor. As soon as he comes to, he asks why he's on the ground. Lee simply tells him he passed out. Then she tells him to order boneless chicken feet with his card. The protagonist refuses right away, but Lee promises she'll pay him back when she gets her allowance. Later, the food arrives, and the three eat together. While they're eating, MC asks when his mom is coming back. Lee tells him she went to a 2-night, 3-day workshop. She even said Lee and Sarah should have fun with Kim. Too bad for him. That's not how things are going. As they eat, Sarah says something's missing. Then she pulls out alcohol and says it goes perfectly with boneless chicken feet. Lee thinks drinking at their age is reckless. But sadly, there's nothing he can do, and the girls start drinking. They keep going. After a while, both of them pass out. Kim tries to wake them so they can sleep on the bed, but they're completely out. He tells Lee to get up and go to bed. Instead, Lee tells the protagonist to carry her there himself. MC doesn't argue and does what she says. He carefully lifts Lee and lays her on the bed. Then, out of nowhere, drunk Sarah jumps onto Kim from behind. They both crash onto the bed next to Lee, and now he is trapped. Lee is sleeping deeply in front of him, and Sarah is fast asleep behind him. They're pressed so close that Kim can't even move his hands. Forget getting out, he can barely breathe. So he calms himself and decides to wait until one of them shifts. But his luck gets even worse when both girls throw their legs over him. The next morning, the protagonist is still half asleep when Lee wakes up and demands to know why he's in bed with them. Sarah immediately calls him a pervert and says he should have just asked if he wanted to sleep with them. This time, MC defends himself and says she was the one who trapped him there. A little later, the three eat ramen for breakfast, and Sarah says it tastes great. Then she remembers he has been training too and asks him to do a friendly spar. Kim thinks that sounds good. Besides Lee, he hasn't really sparred with anyone else, so he might learn something new. He agrees. Before long, the spar starts. The protagonist gets into position, but Sarah leaves herself open. He's confused why she isn't guarding at all. Then Sarah puts on a cute, innocent face and asks if he's really going to hit her. Kim loses focus for a second, and Sarah nails him in the face. She tells him to stay sharp, this is still a spar. Laughing, Sarah tells MC to keep his guard up at all times. Still on the floor, he thinks it's unfair. She distracted him with something totally unrelated. Sarah doesn't care during a spar, losing focus is his fault. Even Lee gets annoyed and says he should take it seriously. The protagonist thinks Sarah is the one fooling around, but she cuts that off and tells him to come at her. This time, Sarah holds her arms out in front of her, a real defensive stance. Kim charges in anyway and throws a jab, but she blocks it easily. MC tries again, and once more Sarah stops the jab with that extended arm. He can't believe she's shutting him down so easily. Sarah laughs and calls him slow. He also notices that every time she blocks, she steps back too, leaving him too far away to follow up. So Kim decides to use a 1-2. He'll throw the jab even if she blocks it, because the real attack is the straight punch behind it. but he spends too long thinking through the plan, and that hesitation costs him. Before he can act, Sarah lands a straight punch to his face and knocks him out cold. Then she starts nudging him with her foot and even sticks her toes into his nose. The moment Kim wakes up, he jerks back, horrified, and jumps to his feet, asking what she's doing. Lee is laughing so hard she can barely stand, and Sarah can't stop laughing either. After dropping the protagonist with one punch, MC calls Sarah crazy and asks why she put her feet in his nose. Sarah says it was his reward for acting like her feet might smell bad. MC says he almost threw up. Sarah teases him for getting knocked out by one punch and asks for another round. He immediately raises his guard again. Now he's trying to figure out what went wrong and why he can't land a clean hit on her. Lee calls out and asks if he still hasn't noticed Sarah's stance. Kim looks again and sees Sarah's right hand forward while her left foot stays back. Lee explains that fighters usually keep their dominant side in the rear, which means Sarah is left-handed. Lee also reminds the protagonist that Sarah keeps controlling the distance. Lee explains that against another right-handed fighter, the lead feet line up opposite ways, so both boxers can step in easier, and the punching range feels shorter. But against a left-hander, both lead feet point the same way. That makes it harder to step inside, so the distance feels longer. Then Lee tells Kim he needs to fight for the lead foot position if he wants to close that gap. MC still looks lost, so Lee puts it simply. Left-handed fighters use that extra space to control right-handers. That's why Sarah's lead hand kept shutting him down while she moved back and made him feel farther away. So the protagonist got annoyed, rushed in, and got tagged first. Lee adds that left-handers are also famous for countering. They often wait for one clean opening and try to end things with a big shot. She also says sparring with Sarah will help Kim a lot, since left-handers are rare. MC gets that right away. He's only trained with Lee, who fights right-handed, so this feels much trickier. The spar starts again. He blocks Sarah's punch, but her strong hand still lands, and he blurts out why she hit him so suddenly. But that's a dumb question. In a spar, of course, punches come out of nowhere. Sarah tells him to do better next time. The protagonist quietly hopes there won't be a next time. The next day, Hansel spots the protagonist in the hall and throws a basketball at him from behind. MC turns around and Hansel quickly apologizes. He claims he thought he was another kid from his class. Recognizing Hansel, the protagonist just smiles and says it's fine. Hansel thinks MC is way too easy to fool, but he keeps pretending to be friendly. Then he offers him a candy bar, saying he still feels bad. Kim hesitates, but Hansel talks him into taking it. Next, Hansel asks if he likes PC games, and invites him to a PC cafe after school, saying he'll pay. Then they split up. As Hansel walks off, he notices 3 bullies talking nearby. He heads over, wanting to keep up his fake image. Once he reaches them, Hansel introduces himself and says he's from the class next door. Then he asks if they're done eating because he's got something good for them to smoke. The 3 agree right away and follow him toward the recycling area. Walking behind them, Hansel smirks, proud of how smoothly he worked them. One of the bullies asks if he knows the guy who beat up Daebong. Hansel realizes they mean Kim, so he asks if they're interested in the protagonist, and they fire back asking if he knows him. Keeping the act going, Hansel says they're not really friends, and MC is more like his errand boy. He adds that he felt sorry for him, so he even taught him how to fight. But now that Kim's gotten a little attention, Hansel says he started acting full of himself, so he's going to put him back in his place. Hansel repeats that the protagonist isn't really his friend, just his errand boy. He says he only helped the protagonist because he felt bad for him, but according to Hansel, MC got cocky after getting a little popular, so now he plans to humble him. Later, the bell rings and lunchtime starts. Hansel sits with the 3 bullies, and one quietly asks another if he hooked up with his girl. The bully says yes. Then they notice him eating alone. One of them asks Hansel if he is really his errand boy, since people now know him as a good fighter. Hansel doesn't like being doubted, so to prove it, he tells them to watch and walks straight over to the protagonist. Hansel flips MC's whole lunch tray onto him, then instantly acts like it was another accident, and once again, MC forgives him right away. He says mistakes happen, and Hansel even offers to wash his clothes while apologizing. To push the act further, Hansel says he'll also treat him to a PC cafe trip. The 3 bullies watch in shock, amazed he could dump a whole tray on Kim like that. When Hansel returns, he asks if they saw how the protagonist couldn't even say anything after getting humiliated. Around them, other students start wondering if MC somehow spilled his own food. Lee sees all of this and still doesn't step in. Later, Kim is down to his undershirt trying to clean himself up after the basketball hit, and the food mess ruined his clothes. He remembers how Hansel acted nice and praised him earlier, so he lets it slide, thinking friends can make mistakes. After a while, they head to the PC cafe. Hansel tells the protagonist to sit down and says he'll cover the seat fee. MC says he can pay for himself, but Hansel insists, again blaming his earlier mistake. Then he says he's going to the bathroom and tells MC to start first. Once Hansel leaves, he gets excited. He thinks he's about to game with a new friend. Then Lee and Sarah suddenly show up. They're just as surprised to see the protagonist there, and by chance they all ended up at the same PC cafe. MC remembers Lee texted him to delay their study session, and now he gets why. He's a little annoyed that Lee ditched studying to come here, though it also gave him the chance to come too. With only a few seats left, Lee takes the spot at the end of the row. Kim asks Sarah if her break still isn't over, and she says she extended it by calling her homeroom teacher. That shocks him. He didn't know you could just do that. Sarah adds that she's staying with a friend. Their talk gets cut off when Lee tells the protagonist to act like they don't know each other because lots of students from Yongmin High are there. She clearly doesn't want to be linked to him. MC thinks she's taking it too far. He remembers she still calls him a loser when she should have dropped that a long time ago. Soon Hansel returns and notices he still hasn't logged in. They start playing with Hansel telling Kim where to go and what to do, but they lose the first match. Hansel gets mad fast and blames the protagonist for not pulling his weight. He doesn't stop there. He slams the table hard enough to make a scene. MC thinks the loss is his fault and apologizes, but Hansel keeps raging. Then another customer tells him to keep it down. Hansel mutters to him that the guy should stay home if he wants silence, but he says they should just calm down and not bother anyone. As Hansel turns back, he notices Lee and Sarah nearby. At first glance, he thinks both girls are really hot. He says the short-haired one, Lee, is his type. He's so worked up by her looks that he says his blood is boiling. Kim doesn't know what to do. If this gets worse, he may have to step in and expose that he knows Lee. But if he stays quiet, she'll never know how disgusting Hansel is being. Meanwhile, Hansel keeps staring at Lee and even grabs his crotch like a total creep. A moment later, Lee gets up and heads for the bathroom. Seeing that, Hansel decides this is his chance to peek under her skirt. He quickly pulls out his phone and opens the camera, positioning it so it'll catch a shot when Lee walks past. But right before he can take the picture, Kim grabs his hand. Hansel is stunned, wondering what the protagonist is doing. The protagonist glares at him, squeezes his arm tighter, and warns him not to do it. Hansel asks if he knows that girl, and MC answers in a cold voice. She's his friend. Angry now, he tightens his grip on Hansel's arm and tells him to stop. Hansel stares at him and asks what his problem is. Does he know that girl? Kim answers that Lee is his friend. Then the protagonist squeezes even harder, warning Hansel to quit it or he'll call the police. Hansel smacks MC's hand away and pulls free. As he leaves, he snaps that the MC is really getting on his nerves and promises they'll deal with this again. He barely had time to recover from his fight with Daebong, and now Hansel is after him too. The next day, Hansel suddenly barges into the cafeteria where he is sitting. He walks straight over and tells the protagonist to go buy him some bread. Two girls came with him just to watch MC get embarrassed. Confused, MC asks what Hansel is talking about. He can't figure out why Hansel is suddenly ordering him to buy bread. One girl asks Hansel if he's lost it since he was supposed to buy the bread himself. The other asks what his deal is, but Hansel shuts them both down and says he just wants the bread. Then he turns back to him and brings up the sweet and sour candies from before, saying payback goes both ways. Really, Hansel just wants to push Kim around. The protagonist remembers what Hansel said about Lee at the PC cafe. Still angry over that, he refuses to do it. He tells Hansel he's not his errand boy. That catches Hansel off guard. Even the girls start mocking him, saying he's all talk if MC can reject him like that. Hansel instantly loses his temper. He kicks Kim hard in the chest, knocking him off the chair. Then he crouches down and tells him to just do him this one favor, acting like that's what friends do, when really, he's just trying to prove he's in control. The noise draws Lee's attention. She notices the crowd, then spots him on the floor after Hansel's kick. Hansel keeps talking, saying he's only asking because he's busy. Kim says nothing. He just glares at him with his jaw clenched. Hansel waits for an answer, but when the protagonist still stays silent, he takes it as disrespect. He asks if the protagonist is deaf, and even insults the way he was raised. The protagonist gets even angrier, but he still doesn't hit back. Then Hansel pulls out his slapper and smacks MC with it. He warns him to listen next time, because this is the last time he's going easy on him. Hansel even tells him to ask the students from Gummyang Middle what kind of person he is. He goes on bragging that he's gotten soft lately, and if this were the old him, the protagonist would already be dead. After hyping himself up forever, Hansel ends up impressed by his own trash talk. Then he tells Kim to come at him if he's got a problem, and openly challenges him to fight, acting tough for picking on someone way smaller. MC starts shaking after hearing the challenge. His mind flashes back to the PC cafe, to the gross things Hansel said about Lee. Hansel had talked like Lee would obviously say yes if he asked her out. Back in the present, Kim steps closer, grits his teeth, and accepts the fight. Even Hansel is shocked by how firm he sounds. Later, the three bullies from before ask Hansel if he's really fighting, and whether he's sure he'll win. Hansel laughs and says it won't even be close, he's going to destroy him. The others get excited hearing that, but deep down, Hansel isn't that sure. The protagonist's fearless answer caught him completely off guard, and now he's wondering if the protagonist really means it. Even so, Hansel decides he has to beat MC no matter what and put him back in his place. When one of the bullies asks what he'll use in the fight, Hansel says he's been training in boxing for 6 months, and that's what he'll bring against him. Still, he keeps thinking about the protagonist's eyes earlier. He didn't like that look at all, and he starts wondering if the protagonist has some kind of plan or backup. Hansel tells himself Kim only won his last 2 fights by luck, but he's still scared of losing to someone he looks down on. If that happened, it'd be humiliating. A while later, Hansel heads to the lockers and gets into MC's somehow. Inside, he finds his shoes and stuffs broken glass into them. In his mind, this isn't cowardly, it's smart. Later, the protagonist is at his locker when Lee comes over and asks if he's really fighting Hansel that day. The protagonist says yes. Lee tells him he's rushing into this without getting ready, and asks if he's sure he wants to go through with it. MC reminds her that she was the one who told him not to run the next time someone challenged him. Still, Lee says it's strange for him to hate Hansel this much. He says he can't explain why, and instead of pressing him, Lee lets it drop. She asks if their study session should move to tomorrow because of the fight, but the protagonist says they'll stick to the plan. Annoyed, Lee tells him to rest, yet the protagonist says there's no need. That makes Lee call him cruel. MC shoots back that she's cruel too. Then he puts on his shoes and tells her to get ready for a long English lesson that night. The second he slips them on, he cries out in pain. Lee quickly asks if he's hurt. His sock is already soaked with blood. Right then, Hansel rushes in from behind and kicks the protagonist hard, sending him flying back. Fueled by anger, Hansel says he's pissed off and wants to start the fight right now, then keeps kicking while MC is still down. The blows make it hard for MC to stand, and Hansel gets mad, demanding to know why he's lying there when they're supposed to fight. But he knows this wasn't the plan. Their fight was supposed to happen 30 minutes later. Hansel goes for another kick, but the protagonist suddenly gets up. The kick lands badly, and Hansel ends up hurting his own foot. He still acts tough and says he'll keep hitting the protagonist if he won't stand, but the pain gives him away and he grabs his foot. Kim uses the moment to back up and raise his guard. He also sees Hansel's foot is badly hurt. He can't even put weight on it. Then Hansel notices MC's foot too and realizes his setup worked. He actually enjoys seeing the MC hurt, and even wishes he'd ruined both feet. On top of that, he starts mocking him for it. He jokes that he must have hurt it playing soccer, and says he'd better take care of himself before a fight, if he wants any chance to win. Since this is man-to-man, Hansel says there are no excuses. Nearby, a couple of students wonder if a fight just broke out. Lee grits her teeth, trying to figure out why Hansel showed up out of nowhere. She notices the protagonist can barely stand on that injured foot, and once the pieces come together, she starts suspecting Hansel caused it. Lee knows fighting while hurt is dangerous, and she thinks MC should call it off and do it another time. Kim, though, is already trying to figure out how to deal with his injured foot. Hansel sees that and knows he is in bad shape, so he wastes no time and starts using his boxing, firing off jabs in a 1-2 combination. The protagonist tries to hit back, but Hansel slips the punch easily and makes fun of how slow he is. The crowd points out how fast Hansel is and that he clearly knows boxing. Lee doesn't think this is just about speed or boxing skill. To her, Kim is losing because the sole of his left foot is sliced open and bleeding. Since he's right-handed, he needs that foot to put power into his punches. But the injury makes his shots slow and weak, and without solid support on that front foot, he can't move right, dodge well, or punch properly. That's why Lee thinks MC has no real chance here and should just accept the loss. Hansel keeps boxing, hammering him with jabs and hooks that do serious damage. After that combo, Hansel boasts that he can really fight. The three bullies eat it up, calling him cool and laughing it off. At the same time, Philip walks by. He stops when he notices a fight. Then he realizes the one fighting is Kim, the first year everyone calls the popular loser. Meanwhile, Lee wonders what the protagonist can even do now. Hansel is clearly too much for him, and with that injured foot, MC feels almost helpless. For a second, he thinks about giving up, then remembers Hansel insulting Lee, and that kills the idea right away. Still, the beating continues, and Hansel drives a straight punch into his solar plexus. The hit lands hard, and Hansel makes it clear he's talking about himself. He says Jo Sangbum and Daebong were nothing compared to him. Then Hansel hits the protagonist again and knocks him out. Even that isn't enough. He grabs the protagonist by the hair, drags him along and tells him to open his eyes. While dragging him, Hansel says it's time for round 2. He smacks MC and tells him to wake up again. He barely opens his eyes and wonders if there's any way to win. As his mind clears, the first person he looks at is Sarah. He wonders why she still hasn't left for the gaming session with Lee. Then a thought suddenly clicks. Kim remembers Sarah's stance, right arm out front, left foot set back. That stance was hard for him to deal with before, so he copies it now and switches to southpaw against Hansel. Philip notices the change and looks impressed, though he wonders if the protagonist did it because of his foot. Daniel adds that switching stances mid-fight is not easy. He compares it to a right-handed person trying to use chopsticks with the left hand. Fighting offhand is tough, but MC clearly has a reason for changing. Kim moves his injured foot to the back and stays on his toes. Even with the cut sole, that position is easier to handle. He also remembers Sarah saying left-handed fighters often look to finish things with one clean hit. Hansel asks why he changed stances, then decides he doesn't care. All that matters is the protagonist still wants to fight, so Hansel gets ready to beat him even harder. At the same time, MC remembers Sarah telling him to train his left hand too, even though he's naturally right-handed. She warned that one day he might need to switch stances if a leg got hurt, and that wasn't something he could learn in a couple tries. He had to train like crazy and got beaten up by Sarah plenty of times while learning. After that, they sparred over and over. Now Kim knows what to do. Back in the fight, he starts reaching for Hansel's lead hand with his right arm, and Hansel gets confused by it. Earlier, Sarah had told him that grabbing at an opponent's hand would annoy them, but the real opening comes once they lose their cool. That's exactly what happens. Hansel says grabbing one hand is pointless because his other hand is free, then throws a punch, but the protagonist fires back even faster. With a left-handed counter, MC lands a brutal shot on Hansel. Sarah had taught him to answer that kind of reaction with a quicker punch, and that's what he does. A sharp straight left that connects cleanly with Hansel. After the fight, Sarah says she's heading out and that hanging out with Lee and him was fun. She also praises him, clearly noticing he used the same tricks she taught him. The protagonist gives her all the credit for teaching him so well. Lee then brings up the thing Sarah promised to do if MC won and asks when she plans to do it. Sarah admits she did say that, while he is left totally confused about what they mean. Then the story cuts back to the fight, where the protagonist lands another punch, this time with his right hand. Lee is watching when Sarah suddenly speaks up beside her, saying Kim's left hand looks really good. Startled, Lee asks why she's there, and Sarah reminds her they were supposed to go to the PC cafe. But Sarah got pulled in by the fight, and she's impressed by how much MC improved after only a week of left-hand practice. Lee quickly points out that Sarah trained him insanely hard and now it's paying off. Then Sarah cheers him on and says she'll give him a chance if he wins. But the protagonist is too busy fighting Hansel to hear any of that. Meanwhile, Hansel can't believe the protagonist's sudden burst of energy and briefly feels like he might be in trouble. He quickly backs away to make space, knowing Kim can't chase well with that injured foot. Even after getting out of range, Hansel knows his image is already taking a hit. If not for his pride, he could have finished this earlier. But now MC has tagged him more than once, and there's no undoing that. So the only thing left is to beat him badly enough to save some face. Desperate, Hansel looks around for something to use. Then he spots a bicycle. He grabs it and slams it into the protagonist. Everyone is shocked that Hansel would go that far just to win. Kim tries to block the bike, but he's too worn down to stop it. Hansel says street fights have no rules, showing he'll do anything to win. The blow is so hard it even bends one of the tires. Right after that, he rushes in with another flurry of punches, using his boxing to press the advantage. Even so, MC keeps staring him down while blocking every shot. Then we get a flashback where Sarah explains the weakness of left-handed fighters. She says they struggle most when trapped against a wall, because they need room to move back and punch. Getting pinned leaves them open to non-stop hits. Kim asks if there's any way out of that situation, and Sarah says there is. Since that style depends on counters, she explains the only answer there is to counter at the right time. First, he has to keep his guard up and block until the opening comes. She also tells him to fake being hurt so the other guy gets excited, throws bigger punches, and leaves wider gaps. Back in the present, the protagonist does exactly that, and pretends he's breaking down. Hansel falls for it and starts swinging bigger, leaving more space between attacks. Kim follows Sarah's lesson to the end. He plants his back foot on the wall, pushes off it, spots an opening, and fires a brutal straight counter. The punch smashes into Hansel's face and drops him to the ground. Sarah had also told MC that if the counter still didn't finish the job, he needed to get on top and start pounding his opponent. Back in the fight, he uses that same plan perfectly. He ends up on top of Hansel and starts pounding him. Hansel can't even figure out how he got on the floor. He barely remembers the protagonist dropping him with that counter. Kim goes wild, yelling at Hansel to answer his question while the punches keep coming. All you hear now is one hard hit after another, landing on Hansel's face. MC is fully committed now. He's furious over what Hansel said about Lee. As the beating goes on, Hansel glances at the three bullies through blurry eyes and begs them to help him. But one of them shuts him down, saying he's not Hansel's servant and this is a one-on-one fight. At that point, Hansel knows it's over. He realizes he lost, and Kim keeps hammering him with punch after punch. With no other move left, Hansel takes the coward's route. He starts apologizing and begs him to stop hitting him. But while he says all that, Hansel secretly grabs a sharp shard and tries to stab the protagonist with it. The protagonist notices the trick just in time. Before the attack can land, MC catches his arm. Fed up with Hansel's dirty moves, he unloads even harder punches, each one nastier than the last. Kim tells Hansel he'll never forgive what he did. Then he keeps punching, until Hansel finally blacks out. Once his anger cools a little, he gets off of Hansel. It's clear Hansel wet himself during the beating, while blood runs down the protagonist's fists. After MC finally stands over the unconscious Hansel, the whole crowd is left speechless. Blood still drips from Kim's fist, and Philip enjoys the sight, thinking he might actually be pretty interesting. Later that day, Sarah says she's heading out. Before leaving, she lightly taps the protagonist on the chest and tells him he fought well. She can tell he used a lot of what she taught him, and she's impressed with how well he pulled it off. MC gives her all the credit instead, saying her training is what got him the win. Then Lee brings up that thing Sarah promised to do if Kim won, and asks when she plans to do it. Sarah admits she did say something like that, while he just stands there confused about what they mean. The three go quiet for a second, and then Sarah decides to give the protagonist another chance. Right after she says that, her bus pulls up behind her. Seeing it, she quickly hops on and tells them to take care. MC excitedly says goodbye to Sarah, and the bus soon leaves. Noticing how happy he looks, Lee teases him a little. Kim quickly says he was not thinking anything weird about Sarah. Meanwhile, Lee tells Sarah she had a lot of fun with her and asks her to come back again sometime. At the same time, he thinks about how Sarah's training helped him beat that crazy bully Hansel. He knows he never would have won without her, because anger alone only gets you so far. With that in mind, the protagonist says goodbye to Lee's kind-hearted friend. Sarah sends them off with a flying kiss, and then Lee and MC get on a bus to head home. They sit close to each other when Lee breaks the silence and asks why he got so worked up during the fight. Kim stutters, asking if she really means him, because he can't admit it was because of her. Lee repeats that he really lost control against Hansel. She's talking about the moment he snapped and started beating Hansel without holding back, staying on top of him while blood dripped from his fists. It shocked Lee, since she had never seen the protagonist act like that before. Avoiding her eyes, MC says he got angry because Hansel messed with his friend, but Lee points out that MC doesn't really have any friends. In a shaky voice, Kim says he does, or at least there's someone he wants to be friends with. He's too shy to just ask Lee directly, and he already thinks he knows the answer. Lee stays confused but tells him not to get that worked up again or he might go too far. He agrees, but deep down he feels no one could blame him after what Hansel said about Lee, his maybe friend. The story then cuts to the bullies from earlier talking trash about Hansel, calling him all show. One laughs about how Hansel wet himself from fear. Another says he should just quit school after getting humiliated that badly. A little later, a guy rushes up to them in a hurry and greets them, catching the three off guard. One of the bullies asks who he is. The guy answers so quietly that they can't hear a word, only making things more awkward. This turns out to be Daeon from Class 1-8. One bully asks what he said, and another tells him to speak louder because his voice is way too soft. Daeon walks up to one of them and asks if he's the first-year number 1. This time they hear him, and the guy proudly says yes, bragging that he ruled middle schools before coming to Youngmin High. Then he asks why Daeon wants to know, even joking that maybe he wants to replace Hansel as their errand boy. Another bully says Daeon's lucky, since that spot is open now. Daeon ignores that and says he wants to become the first-year number 1. Then he asks who he has to beat. The real number 1 starts laughing that some nobody wants his spot. He steps forward and says Daeon has to beat him first. Daeon agrees right away, then the bell rings. Smirking, the current number 1 starts to leave and tells Daeon to come back later. But as he walks off, Daeon says he'll take that as a win if the guy keeps leaving. That makes him stop and ask Daeon to say it again. Daeon calmly explains that walking away now means he wants to avoid the fight, so he'll count that as a loss. That comment sets him off and he swings at Daeon. Daeon slips past the punch with ease and fires back with one of his own. It lands clean and he doesn't stop there. He follows with a kick straight into the guy's ribs. That kick breaks his and drops the number 1 to the ground. Seeing that, another bully charges in, but Daeon knocks him out with a single punch to the face too. The last bully somehow still thinks he has a chance after seeing all that. It goes exactly how you'd expect. Daeon takes him down in just a few moves. In only a few seconds, Daeon beats 3 big guys by himself, even though he doesn't look that strong. After that, Daeon heads straight to the gym storage room to meet Invincible. The door creaks open as Daeon steps inside. He stops in the middle of the room and everyone stares, wondering who this new guy is. One asks who he is, and another demands to know why he came in without knocking. Philip is there too. He asks if Daeon is a first year and tells him this isn't a place just anyone can enter. Daeon walks up to Philip, bows and says he wants to join Invincible. Then he asks to be accepted. Philip smiles and says they don't just let anyone in. He also points out that Daeon doesn't even look like much of a fighter. To prove himself, Daeon says he just became first-year number 1 by beating the old one. Philip doesn't buy it and asks what nobody he beat to start calling himself number 1. Philip adds that he won't recognize Daeon until he defeats someone Philip approves of. Daeon asks what he needs to do. Philip pulls out his phone, shows him a picture of Kim, and tells him to beat him in a fight. If he wins, Philip will recognize him as the real first-year number 1. Daeon agrees without much thought. Meanwhile, the protagonist is at a snack bar, looking around. He thinks about how it's been a few days since he beat Hansel. People still whisper when they see him, but almost nobody tries to fight him anymore. That makes MC wonder if peaceful days have finally come. But for someone like him, peace at Youngmin High still feels hard to believe. Kim is at the snack bar for one reason. Lee told him to buy bread for her again. Then the loser group walks up to him. Their leader says they've already introduced themselves once, but he goes over it again anyway, saying they're the outcasts from other classes. That's when the protagonist finally remembers them. The leader tells MC they've been rooting for him from the sidelines. They always watch his fights and cheer him on, even when it looks like he's about to lose. He also admits they record his big moments and post them online. To them, a skinny loser standing up to bullies is seriously cool, and they think more people should see it. Kim then realizes these are the guys who uploaded his fight with Daebong, the same post that brought students from other schools to see him. The leader calls the protagonist the hope of their group and says it's awesome watching a loser fight back. The protagonist starts to feel like all eyes are on him. They really do admire him, and for someone who's been a loser his whole life, hearing that kind of support feels amazing. Then the leader says they came for snacks and invites MC to join them in their clubroom since it's empty right now. The words clubroom catch MC off guard, so the leader explains they're all in the same club, the Anime Appreciation Club. Now Kim gets why he keeps talking about anime. As the talk wraps up, he agrees to eat with them. The leader gets excited and says the others will be happy to meet him too. The protagonist soon learns the whole group are his fans, and he can barely process it. Having fans is something he never thought would happen. A little later, they head to the clubroom. As the leader opens the door, he checks if anyone's inside and sees just one person. It's Daesum busy texting on her phone. The second she notices the boys and MC, she turns red and quickly covers her face, clearly freaking out. The others are confused, and the leader asks why she suddenly got so startled. He jokes that she must have been reading a dirty webtoon again, but Daesum quickly shuts that down. Kim quietly tells the leader she probably got surprised because he isn't part of their group. Instead, the leader says Daesum is a fan too. She also thinks it's cool when a loser beats up a bully. The second he realizes he has a female fan, his brain basically stops working. Daesum jumps up, excited to greet him, but rushes too fast and trips, dropping to her knees. The fall hurts badly. Even so, she still tries to greet Kim. Pulling herself together, she tells him she's happy to meet him. One of the members notices her slippers don't match and asks about it. Daesum says she accidentally wore one of her dad's and he calls her clumsy. The protagonist introduces himself and says it's nice to meet her. Dasam replies that she already knows who he is. Blushing hard, she says she's watched every one of his fights. The leader steps in and says Dasam is a huge fan, maybe even crushing on MC. MC is stunned, while Dasam quickly says she's just a fan. Then she lightly punches the leader and tells him to stop joking around in front of a guest. Another member brings up that Dasam's ex-boyfriend was a loser too. She tells him to quit it, but he reminds her he was close with her ex and heard all about their relationship. The leader teases, asking if he has a chance with Dasam since she likes losers. She instantly says that'll happen over her dead body. Watching them joke and tease each other, he realizes they must all be really close. By the end of it, they invite Kim to eat with them while watching an anime episode. The leader asks Dasam if they should keep watching the same anime from earlier, and she agrees. Meanwhile, Lee is still waiting for the protagonist to come back with her bread, getting annoyed at how slow he is. While they watch, the leader assumes MC must be really into anime. He says he barely watches any. The leader says he looks like the type who would, and the group starts trying to pull him deeper into anime. One member asks if Kim wants to know what happens next, and that sparks an argument. One side says spoilers ruin the fun. The other says a show can still be enjoyable even if you know what's coming. The protagonist is amazed they can argue this seriously over anime. Then they ask what kind of anime girl he likes. He says he's never really thought about it, so they switch and ask his type in real life. The moment Dasam hears that, her face turns red. She starts blushing before MC even answers. Then he says he wants a girl who'd still accept him even knowing he's a loser. Since Dasam feels that describes her, she starts spiraling at the thought she might actually have a chance. Saying the room feels hot, she starts to unbutton her shirt, then freezes when she remembers she's not wearing anything underneath her uniform. When they ask what's wrong, Dasam admits she forgot to wear something under it. After the episode ends, the group heads outside with him. One member says it's refreshing to finally meet his hero, but he is annoyed and asks them to stop calling him that. At that moment, Daeon happens to pass by the club room. Then he spots the protagonist at last. He walks right over and asks if MC is the first-year number one, but MC can't make out what he's saying because he speaks so quietly. So Daeon leans in closer and challenges Kim to a fight. With yet another challenger showing up, he realizes peaceful days still aren't happening, even after beating 3 bullies. He tells Daeon he doesn't want to fight, but Daeon keeps pushing. One of the group members steps in and tells Daeon to back off, since the protagonist already said no. That only makes Daeon mad, and he brutally beats the guy who tried to help. After that, Daeon challenges MC again. A moment later, Dasam comes out after hearing the commotion. She tells Daeon to knock off the act. When Kim hears her call him by name, he gets confused and wonders if she knows him. Dasam steps out and tells Daeon to stop it, and the whole hallway goes quiet. Now he is even more confused, because Daeon and Dasam clearly know each other. With her voice shaking, Dasam again begs Daeon to stop this. Hearing that, Daeon looks just as shocked as Kim. The protagonist stares with his mouth open, wondering if they really know each other. Seeing Daeon actually stop when Dasam speaks leaves him stunned. Then Daeon leans back toward MC and challenges him again, which only confuses MC more. The boy Daeon just beat realizes he's hopeless and asks if he's still going around bullying people. Daeon pulls back his fist and swings at the injured boy, telling him to stay out of it. Before the punch lands, Dasam cuts in again and yells at Dupicon to stop. This time she screams at the top of her lungs, fed up with how awful he's being, and runs toward him to protect the boy on the floor. But her bad luck strikes again. Right as she gets there, her knee hits the boy's back and she falls right on top of him by accident. Kim takes one look and knows that probably hurt even more than the beating. The boy looks worse off than he did a second ago. Dasam hurts her elbow too. After getting off Gwangtae, she quickly asks if he's okay, but he's already out cold. Panicking, she tells Gwangtae to wake up and starts shaking him so hard that the leader tells her she's going to break his bones at this rate. Strangely, Dupicante even looks a little worried about Gwangtae. Still, that's as far as it goes. He mutters something to his group, then walks off. The second he leaves, Gwangtae tells Dasam to quit shaking him because he's awake. Kim just stands there confused that Dupicon is really leaving. He's also trying to figure out who Dupicon is and how he knows Dasam. In the middle of all that, he remembers he was supposed to buy bread for Lee, so he rushes to the cafeteria. Later on the rooftop, the protagonist tells Lee everything that happened near the club room. She barely cares about his problems and makes that clear right away. Then Lee warns him not to keep her waiting again. Kim quickly apologizes for being stupid. While they talk, Lee eats her bread while sitting on MC like he's a chair. Before long, the weight starts getting to him. To him, this feels even worse than when Sangbom used to bully him. He's hit his limit. And then it happens. He collapses and Lee drops on top of him too. She instantly calls him a pervert. Sure, he did it on purpose to touch her. No matter what the protagonist does, he gets blamed. After that, MC thinks about everything that's happened since school started. Ever since Lee taught him how to fight, he's gone up against Sangbom, Daebong, and Hansol, and somehow beat all 3. After beating Hansol, Kim thought people would stop picking fights with him. What he didn't get was that winning would bring more trouble. That's exactly what's happening now. Instead of backing off, more and more people challenge him every day and he has no way to stop it. He can ignore them or fight back. Those are basically his only choices. Later, one bully even challenges him just to protect his unbeaten record. So Kim isn't just getting flooded with fights. People still see him as some weak loser, even after he beat 3 guys way bigger than him. He can't understand why they're all so set on taking him down, so he runs off and says he doesn't want to fight. But running doesn't really solve anything when he has to see the same people again the next day. Back home, the protagonist wonders if everyone still messes with him because he's weak, or because beating Hansel didn't impress anyone. Lee tells him to stop thinking so much, he just needs to get stronger. She knows MC can't avoid these fights forever, so the only answer is to make him strong enough to win them. Kim sees her point and agrees, so Lee decides today's lesson is how to power up the move he learned before. It combines a front kick with a side kick. Lee tells him to strike from the middle angle and use the base of the foot, not the top. That's why it's called the instep kick. She also tells him to aim for a weak spot, the liver, if he's kicking with his left foot. So the move is called the liver instep kick. Lee throws a shadow kick to show him. Her foot stops right in front of Kim's face, and he notices it doesn't smell bad at all. In fact, there's barely any smell. Lee asks why he suddenly went quiet. Then she realizes he is actually sniffing her foot. That gets him hit with the liver instep kick for real, and the protagonist drops to the ground. Lee glares at him and asks if he has some kind of foot fetish. Kim lies there in pain, unable to move, but at least now he knows exactly how much the liver instep kick hurts. Lee even says this one move can end a fight in a single hit if it lands right. Then she tells him to get up because training isn't over. But MC looks completely done. The next morning, he sneaks into class, clearly trying not to draw attention from any bullies. He heads to his desk when someone pokes him from behind. The protagonist turns and sees Devos. She says she needs to talk to him and gets straight to it. MC instantly starts panicking, wondering what she wants to say. Then his mind starts racing. She came to class early just to find him, and she says there's something important to tell him. On top of that, she looks nervous. Kim becomes totally convinced she's about to confess. But then Devos shocks him. She wants him to fight Seo Do-hyun for her. The request leaves him frozen. Once the shock wears off a little, the protagonist asks what she means by wanting him to fight Do-hyun. Daesum says she means exactly that. MC asks if Do-hyun is the guy who showed up outside the club room and beat up Gwang-tae. She confirms it and says she overheard classmates talking about how Do-hyun wants to fight MC. One of them even asked if Do-hyun was going after him because he's gotten famous. Daesum kept listening in on the whole conversation. That's how she found out about a group called Invincible that just started taking new members. Their entry test is simple. Beat the protagonist in a one-on-one fight. The bullies laugh about it because they still think MC is weak. To them, that test sounds easy. So from what Daesum heard, Do-hyun is dead set on beating him so he can get into Invincible. Another guy says he wants to join too, explaining that Invincible is an elite group for gangsters. That's why he's interested. It's tied to real gangs, and after graduation, members get put to work right away. He even says the news once reported that young gangsters made millions fast. Hearing all this leaves Daesum stunned. That's everything she learned from overhearing her classmates. Kim is terrified. He's somehow become the target people have to beat to join a dangerous gang. Then Daesum reveals that Do-hyun is her childhood friend. The wild part is, Do-hyun used to be a good kid. Then he started fighting, and things kept getting worse. Now that he's older, he's mixed up in even shadier stuff. Daesum doesn't believe that's who Do-hyun really is, and she's scared he'll sink even deeper if this keeps going. That's why she came to Kim. She wants him to beat Do-hyun and make him realize this path isn't for him. But the protagonist feels completely trapped. To him, all of this is way too much. The fact that he's become some gang entrance exam target sounds insane. He never wanted any of this, and now he wants no part of it. With a shaky voice, MC admits he's not confident about fighting again. More than that, he doesn't think he can win. Then he says the hard truth. He's just a nobody who's trying his best not to get bullied. Trying not to be rude, he tells Daesum that asking him to beat Do-hyun and change his life is too much, no matter what his past is. The protagonist apologizes and says he can't do what she's asking. Realizing she can't persuade him, Daesum starts to panic. She clearly hoped the protagonist had some way to stop Do-hyun, but that hope falls apart. Then she suddenly starts crying and apologizes for asking him at all. She says sorry again, insisting she didn't mean to cry, then tries to leave. But being her usual clumsy self, Daesum trips and falls again. She scrapes her knees and Kim immediately asks if she's okay. Daesum quickly gets back up, says she's fine, and rushes out of the room. After she leaves, MC starts putting everything together. Now he knows he's the target for Invincible's entrance test. That finally explains why so many people keep challenging him. The problem is he still has no clue what to do. Later that night, Kim tells Lee about it while she scrolls on her phone. Her advice is simple. Go straight to the gang that made him their target. He isn't sure what Lee means by that. Lee tells the protagonist to cut a deal with Invincible and make them stop targeting him. The problem is, MC doesn't know who runs Invincible or where to find them. Once again, Lee ends up saving him. She says she knows some girls she smokes with during breaks, so she'll ask them. Kim points out that Lee claims she didn't have any friends. Lee quickly clears it up. Those girls aren't her friends, they just smoke together. While they talk, one of them texts back and sends a photo of Invincible's leader. The second Lee sees it, she realizes it's Philip. She tells him Philip was there during his fights. Then she shows Kim the photo and says he can usually be found in the gym equipment room. The next morning after school, the protagonist works up the nerve and heads there to talk to Philip. But the moment he steps inside, he freezes. This isn't just one group, it's a whole gang alliance, and MC feels tiny next to them. Some of the guys crowd around him, asking if he even knows where he is. Still, he pushes through, walks up to Philip, and introduces himself. Philip already knows who he is and asks why he came. Even though his voice shakes, Kim gets to the point and asks if Philip made him the target for Invincible's entrance test. Philip says yes, right away. He admits the protagonist's fights entertain him, so he decided to make him the test. Earlier, Philip had announced that anyone who beats MC would earn a spot in Invincible and all the perks that come with it. But there were rules. No jumping Kim, no group attacks, and anyone who wanted in had to challenge him properly. With the gang watching, the first person to beat him in a fair fight would get in. Philip knows that put a huge target on the protagonist's back, but he doesn't care. MC asks what happens if he refuses to fight. Philip says, then it won't stay a fair challenge, it'll become a forced one. He knows this is completely unfair, but he has no power here. Then he remembers Lee's words. If he gets stronger, he can win. That gives him an idea. The protagonist makes a deal with Philip. If he beats one challenger, Invincible has to leave him alone. After a moment, Philip agrees and says he'll back off if Kim wins that fight. MC makes him promise to keep his word. A few weeks later, he stands in the middle of a crowd face to face with Doyeon. This time, he's fighting to win for real. Usually Kim is the one getting talked down to, but now he answers back. He tells Doyeon he's heard he's great at striking, and says he'll beat him at that very thing. A crowd gathers to watch the protagonist and Doyeon fight. MC stares Doyeon down and says he'll beat him using only strikes. Since Doyeon is known for his powerful hits, MC is challenging him in his own specialty. Doyeon looks thrown off, unsure how to react. 4 weeks earlier, in the gym equipment room, he had asked Philip what happens if he wins. Before Philip could answer, he said that if he won, all the guys targeting him had to back off. Laughing, Philip agreed and said he'd stop bothering the protagonist if he could beat one of them. Kim took the word of a major gang leader as good enough and decided to fight Doyeon. Later that day, he stands watch while Lee smokes. MC, worried about her health, asks why she keeps smoking when she knows it's bad for her. Annoyed that he keeps butting in, Lee snaps at him and tells him to stay out of her business. Then she asks if Invincible will really leave him alone if he wins, and he says yes. After finishing her cigarette, Lee says those guys clearly have nothing better to do. For a second, it sounds like she's on Kim's side, but then she ruins it. She says picking on a loser like the protagonist isn't even fun because he's too boring. MC turns to her and asks if she really thinks he can beat Doyeon. He reminds her that he was the one who made the challenge, but now he's not sure if he can survive the fight, let alone win it. Seeing him spiral again, Lee repeats what she told him before. It doesn't matter who the opponent is, he just has to win. She adds that even if he's weak and nobody cares about him, he still has a great teacher, so he shouldn't stress over pointless things. Her words calm him down, and Kim realizes Lee really does help when it counts. Of course, Lee immediately goes back to normal and hands him her bag to carry. He groans and asks when she'll stop making him do that. Lee shuts him down at once, saying she's way above him, so carrying her bag is the least he can do. Mean or not, the protagonist has no choice but to deal with it. Later, he and Lee peek through a window to get a look at Doyeon. At first glance, Lee says Doyeon looks pretty average. His build doesn't seem much higher, and the weight gap isn't big either. Compared to Sangbum and Daebong, he actually looks easier to fight, so Lee thinks Kim might have a shot. Then someone suddenly taps MC from behind. He turns and sees Daebong, asking what they're doing. As soon as MC recognizes her, Lee asks if he knows her. He explains that Daesum is Doyeon's childhood friend and says he was thinking about asking for her help too. Lee agrees, that could help them learn more about Doyeon. Meanwhile, Daesum is so stunned by Lee's looks that she can barely speak. She's so distracted by Lee that she hardly hears the conversation. Lee, confused by how weird Daesum is acting, just stares. Then Doyeon asks Kim what kind of relationship he has with Lee, and whether she's his girlfriend. The second she says that, Lee explodes. She steps in close and warns Doyeon she can beat her up even if they just met. Realizing Lee is dead serious, Doyeon quickly apologizes. The protagonist jumps in and tries to keep things from getting worse. Since Daesum knows Doyeon well, Lee tells her to share everything. Kim suggests they move somewhere private so no one overhears them. A little later, the three head to the club room. There, Daesum asks if MC really plans to fight Doyeon, and MC says yes. She thinks he's doing it to bring Doyeon back to his senses, but Lee has no idea what they're talking about. He clears it up. He's doing this for his own reasons, not for anyone else. Still, since he is going to fight Doyeon, he wants as much information as possible. Daesum thinks for a moment and realizes it's been a long time since she last talked to Doyeon. She says they used to take martial arts classes together, though she doesn't know if he still trains. What she does remember is that Doyeon stuck with it for 3 years, while she quit after only 3 months. The moment they hear he trained for 3 full years, Lee realizes Kim's chances just dropped hard. She asks Daesum if Doyeon ever entered tournaments. Daesum says he did, and he won every single one. That answer says it all. The protagonist quickly points out that he knows martial arts too, but Lee reminds him he's only trained for a few months, while Doyeon trained for years. Then Daesum remembers there are videos of Doyeon's matches on YouTube and pulls them up. She plays his debut fight, where his skill is obvious right away. His dodging, his movement, and his strikes are all sharp. He wins by knockout in just 15 seconds. As the clip ends, Lee grabs her head in shock. She can already tell beating Doyeon won't be easy. Kim tells her not to give up on him. She's his teacher after all. That's when Daesum finds out Lee is a fighter too. She stares in surprise and Lee asks what her problem is. MC pulls Daesum back on track and asks if she knows anything else about Doyeon that could help him win. After thinking for a moment, Daesum brings up one thing about Doyeon, though she isn't sure it counts as a weakness. Once she explains it, Lee is convinced they can use it, and that Kim might actually have a chance. He tells Daesum to stay focused and asks for any weakness Doyeon might have, since they used to spar a lot. After thinking, she says one thing does come to mind, but she's not sure it matters here. Lee says she'll decide that herself and tells Daesum to just say it. After hearing her out, Lee realizes this flaw could work against Doyeon. Later that day, Lee gets the protagonist ready for training. This session is built around one goal, finding a way for him to beat Doyeon. Daesum comes along too. Lee asks why she's here when nobody invited her. Daesum says she's a martial artist too and might be useful. Lee accepts that, but warns her not to get in the way or she's out. Kim gets excited for the session and wonders if Daesum can really help. Lee notices Daesum is wearing too many layers and figures she must be hot. Daesum starts unzipping her outer clothes and takes them off. Underneath, she's already dressed in tight training gear. Lee instantly freaks out and asks what kind of outfit that is. With a cute look, Daesum reminds her they said today would be wrestling practice. We cut back to the day before, when Kim and Lee asked Daesum about Doyeon's weak point. The only thing she could think of was that he focused almost only on striking at the gym and barely practiced grappling, even though that's a huge part of MMA. The second Lee hears that, something clicks in her head. MC asks what that means, and Lee checks again with Daesum to make sure Doyeon really learned striking but ignored grappling. Daesum confirms it right away and adds that Doyeon hates close physical contact, so he never wanted to learn grappling. Lee sees he still doesn't get it, so she breaks it down for him here. Grappling means things like wrestling and jiu-jitsu. Then she explains MMA has two main parts, striking and grappling. Striking covers stuff like boxing, kickboxing, and Muay Thai. Grappling includes moves like throws and chokes. In MMA, you really need both, though some fighters only focus on the side they enjoy more. That also explains why Lee was so hesitant when Kim first asked her to train him. Teaching this kind of fighting meant getting very close, way too close for her comfort. Still, she changed her mind because she really wanted to get into the University of Seoul. The protagonist finally gets it. Doyeon is strong at striking but weak at grappling. Lee says that means they may actually have a shot. No matter how good Doyeon is at striking, it won't save him if he gets caught in a submission. So Lee decides that starting the next day, they're going all in on grappling practice. Back in the present, it's wrestling day, and Lee tells Daesum she doesn't need to dress up this much for MMA. Then she gets the lesson started and says today they'll learn the underhook and armpit digging. Being just as clueless as Kim, Daesum lifts her arm, sticks a hand into her armpit, and asks if that's what armpit digging means. Lee blows up at that and warns her again not to mess around or she'll be kicked out. Then she calls MC over to show the move properly. She slides her arm under his armpit, almost like she's hugging him. From behind, Daesum jokes that armpit digging just means hugging nicely. That sets Lee off all over again, and she snaps at Daesum for butting in. Calming down, Lee continues the lesson and says the move she just showed is called a headlock. Next, she demonstrates how that headlock leads into a two-handed grip. Once the grip is locked in, the fighter has to lift the opponent and throw them across. That technique is called a body lock takedown. Lee tells Kim that after the takedown, he has to finish with a choke. She says they'll drill wrestling non-stop from now on. Her plan is for the protagonist to use everything he's learned, add this takedown, and somehow drag Doyeon to the ground. Once Doyeon is down, MC has to end it with a submission. Lee even picks Daesum to be the practice dummy. She asks Daesum's weight and finds out she's around 50 kilos. Then Lee tells Kim to practice the moves on her. On his first try, he leaves Daesum stuck in a weird position. He's mostly just turning his body during the takedown instead of using his hips the right way. After a long session, Lee notices he is already worn out, so she decides they also need to build his stamina. She starts him off with belly crawls to strengthen his upper body. After that, she has him do pull-ups to work his back. Then comes battle rope training. By the end of the exhausting day, the three sit down to eat dinner, and Kim brings ramen for everyone. While they eat, Lee asks Daesum why she doesn't just talk to Doyeon herself and try to set him straight. Since they were childhood friends, Daesum says they haven't really talked in a long time. They used to be close, but things got awkward and they drifted apart. Back when they trained martial arts together, Daesum started turning into a bully, and that's when Daesum pulled away from him. Lee asks what their relationship was like before that. After a short pause, Daesum says they used to visit each other's homes all the time. In the mornings, Daesum would even come pick her up so they could walk to school together. He also helped her with homework, and if her academy ended late, he waited and walked her home. After hearing all that, Lee says it sounds like Daesum liked her. Daesum completely loses it and can't believe what she just heard. Elsewhere, a bunch of students are hanging out together. While everyone else chats, Daesum sits off by himself, sketching on a sheet of paper, and it turns out he's drawing Daesum. The hangout keeps going, and everyone seems to be having fun, except Daesum. He just keeps drawing Daesum over and over. One guy says he dropped out of school too. When asked why, he says his homeroom teacher kept nagging him for not greeting him properly, so he punched the teacher in the face and quit. The others actually praise him for acting tough, and Daesum is Nufanelation seeking to fatage is his Plasham. And then Yuan is sitting right there with them. One of the guys, Seushu, says men like them have hero's blood and never bow to anyone. Soon we learn all of them dropped out, and Daesum is the only one still attending Youngmin High. One guy says quitting that trash school and making money is way better than going to the University of Seoul. Of course, making money takes skill, or at least some brains, and this group doesn't seem to have much of either. aside from maybe Daesum Eln. Seoshu tells Daesum to just put up with school a little longer, even if it sucks. As long as Daesum stays there, their crew can build ties with the Invincible gang. That also makes it clear why Daesum wants into that gang so badly. Seokju asks if he's gotten in yet, but finds out he still hasn't, and is working on it. Another guy wonders why it's taking so long when the gang lets in anyone who can fight. Since Daesum clearly fits that, they don't get why he's still not in. So they tell him to hurry up and make it happen for the sake of his friends, and say it'll be a huge boost for their business. The important thing is for Daesum to finish the job. Another guy asks Seokjab what kind of business he's talking about. Seokjab tells him to trust him and says he'll buy all of them cars. Then he gives a small hint. It's a coin investment deal. The crew is blown away and starts treating Seokjab like the smart one of the group. He doubles down, saying this business is way better than going to Seoul University. So Seokjab tells Daesum again to hurry up. Invincible runs a lot of businesses, and getting close to them would help their crew a lot. Daesum quietly says he gets it. Then Sekshu pulls out a watch box and gives it to him, saying he got it while closing a deal with someone. One of the others notices the watch looks pricey and asks why he didn't get one too. Sekshu says he already has a watch. It's a Galaxy watch, and it's known for being expensive. Sekshu puts the watch on Daesum's wrist and says there's nothing weird about one friend giving another a watch. Once it's on, Seokju points out that it fits Doyeon perfectly. A girl in the crew, Choi Subin, says she wants to see Doyeon's watch too. Since she's sitting right next to him, she leans in and realizes he looks even better up close. Using the watch as an excuse, she makes her move. She moves in even closer and tries to kiss him. Before she can, Doyeon shoves her away, stands up and heads out. Seokju stops him and asks where he's going. Doyeon says he's going for a walk. He looks clearly annoyed and he doesn't seem interested in messing around with other girls. The only one on his mind is Daesum. After he leaves, Choi, embarrassed by the rejection, asks if Doyeon is a eunuch. Seokju laughs and says that's just how Doyeon is. He jokingly offers himself instead, but Choi shuts him down even harder than Doyeon shut her down. Later that night, Doyeon walks through the city. His head is pounding, and he figures it's from breathing in too much smoke. He's also in a terrible mood. If anyone picks a fight with him now, they'd better hope they make it out okay. Before long, a big guy bumps into Doyeon. He's with a few other tough-looking men. Then he tells Doyeon the least he can do is apologize. Doyeon says nothing. He just turns and glares at the guy. The man notices how young he looks and asks if he's in high school. Then he mocks him for staying quiet. A second later, he starts grilling Doyeon about what school he goes to, naming schools all over Seoul. That's when Doyeon finally answers, but not with words. He spins into a kick and slams it straight into the guy's face, saying he's from Youngman High School. Doyeon wanted a quiet day, but people keep pushing him. Some only learn after getting beaten down, and Doyeon is ready to teach them. Shocked by the sudden kick, the man orders his guys not just to grab Doyeon, but kill him. The men close in and rush him, but Doyeon doesn't even flinch. He's sure he can take all of them without much effort. The first attacker comes in from behind with a punch, but Doyeon dodges it without even looking. Then he drives a knee into the guy's chin. After that, the whole group attacks from every side, and Doyeon beats them down one by one. He slips past their swings so easily, it almost looks like they're moving in slow motion. Then he hits each one in the spots that hurt most, so they won't get back up to fight again. One of them, fed up with the humiliation, snaps that now he's really going to kill Doyeon. Doyeon stays calm. If they want to kill him, they'll have to be faster than him, and they clearly aren't. Before the guy can even grab him, Doyeon throws a punch and knocks him out just like that. In no time, he's taken down the whole group by himself. People nearby start calling the police after seeing the fight, but they're too late. Doyeon has already finished with them. He walks off thinking this wasn't interesting at all. Then the protagonist comes to mind, along with Philip's promise that beating the protagonist would make him number one. Doyeon starts wondering if MC will actually be tough or just another easy win. Meanwhile, he keeps training with Lee. The training is brutal. Lee even steps on his stomach while he does pull-ups, and she teaches him grappling, one of the most important parts of MMA. After all that training, 3 weeks pass. One morning, Kim grabs his school shirt from the closet and starts putting it on. Thanks to Lee, he's gotten more muscular, and the hard training is clearly paying off. While he's pulling on the shirt, Lee shows up at his open door and asks if he's ready for school. The protagonist gets startled since he didn't expect her to walk in while he was still shirtless. MC quickly tells her to knock first, but Lee throws the blame right back, saying he shouldn't have taken so long. Then she asks if today is the day he fights Doyeon. Kim's face hardens as he says yes, it is. Lee asks if he's at least a little confident. That makes him think back on all the training they did, and he realizes he's ready. He trained too hard to back down now, and he tells himself he has to do this no matter what. That afternoon, the whole school gathers around the protagonist and Doyeon. In the crowd, the loser group stands near Lee and Daesung, with Daesung hiding herself so no one notices her. Their leader is thrilled to be this close to Kim for the first time, and can't wait to see what happens. One of them says it feels like watching a martial arts match, and another hopes MC wins. Lee overhears them and tells them to shut up. But the group's leader says the fight hasn't even started, so they can still talk. Lee snaps back that this isn't a game. Meanwhile, Daesung is hoping Doyeon loses. Philip is there too, along with Daniel and their men, to oversee the match. Doyeon's crew also shows up expecting him to beat Kim. They're counting on that win to help them get close to invincible, and use that connection for themselves. At the same time, he and Deutscher stare each other down, both trying to read the other. Lee hopes the protagonist still remembers their plan. The protagonist tells Deutscher he'll beat him at his own game, then motions for him to come. The crowd notices MC is trying to get under Deutscher's skin and finds it funny, though they're even more eager to see what happens next. Deutscher, though, is confused by his sudden confidence and asks where it's coming from. He reminds Kim that he's never lost. In reply, the protagonist says he's never lost either. Now it's a clash between two fighters who both think they're unbeatable. They square up, and Doyen moves first with a straight punch. MC barely leans back in time to avoid it. The attack comes so fast he almost gets caught. Even so, his nose still seems to take some damage. Just like he expected, Doyen is insanely fast, and he knows one clean hit could cause real trouble. Even Philip looks impressed that Kim dodged Doyen's first strike. Doyen doesn't wait long before throwing another jab, and this time he follows it with a right straight. The protagonist somehow avoids that one too. It's obvious he trained hard for this and came ready to dodge Doyen's speed. Meanwhile, Seokju wonders why MC keeps dodging instead of hitting back. To him, the MC looks like a coward. Daniel sees it differently. Dodging is fine, but if he keeps moving backward, he won't get a chance to counter. He can tell the protagonist is trying to keep distance, but if he wants to win, he'll have to move in close and attack. Right then, Doyen throws another punch and the protagonist ducks under it again. The loser group starts yelling for MC to finally hit back and end this fast. Then, right after dodging, MC shocks everyone by slapping Doyen hard across the face. Even Philip is caught off guard by that slap. The loser group erupts too. They're fired up that he finally struck back. Doyen keeps throwing punches, but Kim keeps answering with slaps, and the crowd can't believe that's his weapon of choice. The protagonist tells Doyen he watched all his fight clips on YouTube, and after seeing them, he thinks Doyen isn't that impressive. He even says he can beat Doyen using only his open hands. MC is clearly baiting him, and it works. In a flashback, Lee warns him that Doyen's striking is on another level. If he fights him normally, he'll lose for sure. So they come up with a plan. First, make Doyen mad enough to lose focus. The real move comes after that. Back in the present, Kim notices Doyen's swings getting wider. The taunting is doing its job. Doyen throws another punch and the protagonist slips away again. Then MC lands another slap. That only makes Doyen angrier. Doyen keeps attacking, sure he can still turn this around, but Kim avoids every shot. Philip notices he is very good at backing out of danger. The protagonist keeps slapping Doyen, and the crowd is stunned. Seokju can't understand why Doyen keeps falling for it, and thinks he looks ridiculous, getting smacked around by a loser. Doyen is furious now, and wants this over fast. His anger is taking over, exactly like MC wanted, and he throws another attack. This punch comes with even more power. Doyen thinks he can crush him right here, but he isn't going down that easily. The protagonist realizes Doyen will swing again as soon as he steps in, so he prepares for it. Just like expected, Doyen attacks, but the protagonist slips inside and catches him with an underhook. In an earlier flashback, Lee had told the protagonist their whole plan depended on bluffing. She told him to fake a striking match, then suddenly use the underhook to drag Doyen down. Since Doyen doesn't know ground fighting, Lee believes he won't be ready for it. Kim follows Lee's lesson perfectly. He locks Doyen in the underhook and secures the two-handed grip Lee taught him. Once the hold is tight, MC lifts Doyen and slams him with a suplex. The plan is finally working. Doyen acts exactly how he expected and tries to attack again. That lets Kim slip into the underhook. He locks his hands together just like Lee taught him. Then he drives Doyen down with another suplex, and the strategy keeps paying off. After getting both hands locked in, the protagonist commits and throws Doyen with a suplex. He's dead set on making this work because he has to win no matter what. When Doyen hits the ground, the slam looks nasty. Even Philip can tell that suplex hurt, especially on cement. Kim knows the setup worked. He got Doyen over, now he just needs a submission to force the finish. To win the fight, MC quickly wraps around Doyen's limbs and locks in a choke. It's a triangle choke. Earlier, Lee told him that this jujitsu hold is almost impossible to escape. If he could trap Doyen and make him pass out, the fight would be his. So in the present, Kim is sure he's finally taken control and won. The protagonist fully believes this is over, but fighting Doyen is never that simple. Daniel thinks it's finished too. He closes his book and gets ready to leave, impressed by how much MC prepared. Still, that doesn't mean the match is actually over. He's also surprised he chose to end a school fight with a submission. As Daniel starts to walk off, Philip stops him and admits that escaping a jujitsu hold like this should be nearly impossible. But he says this situation has an exception. Doyen starts fighting against the triangle choke, trying to power his way out. And without anything fancy, he escapes by flipping Kim over. Philip explains that a triangle choke can be broken if the trapped fighter is simply much stronger and more physical than the one applying it. Sometimes raw power is enough, and that's exactly what happened. Doyen broke a hold Lee thought couldn't be escaped. The crowd is stunned, and Lee is too. She can't believe Doyen got out and wonders if he used a bridge. Daisum standing next to her has no idea what that means, and asks if Lee is talking about the one in her hair. Annoyed, Lee grabs Daisum in a headlock and says she could do better than Kim. The loser group rushes in and tells her to let Daisum go. Lee explains that a bridge is a move used to escape from the mount. She says you thrust with your hips, shove the person on top forward, and then slip out. What she can't figure out is how Doyen pulled that off without grappling training. To Lee, that looked like something only a grappler would know, but Daesum repeats what Do-yeon said before. He never took grappling classes. After hearing that, Lee figures he may have done it on pure instinct, because he knew he was in real danger. Do-yeon gets back up and resets his stance, ready to keep going. The protagonist also rises, but he's clearly hurting, especially from the head. At this point, Do-yeon realizes the protagonist came in far more prepared than before. Si, though, is shaken that the move he practiced so long didn't finish the job. He knows he can't beat Do-yeon head-on, and needs another takedown somehow, but he has no clear answer. That's his problem. He sticks too hard to Lee's lessons and struggles to improvise. Still, he decides to go for the ground again since it almost worked. He throws a jab to fake a strike and plans to duck right after and shoot in for a tackle. A second later, he puts that plan into action, but it blows up on him. As the protagonist dips in after the fake jab, something goes wrong. Do-yeon has finally figured him out. He reads the fake and sees the takedown coming. So Do-yeon drives a knee straight into MC's head. The hit sounds brutal, like it could have cracked a skull, but MC somehow stays conscious and can still fight. Seok-ju thinks that's the end for him. Lee is shocked that Do-yeon countered so directly. The protagonist drops, then forces himself back together, showing just how tough he is. MC starts wondering if Do-yeon has seen through all his tackles. Then Do-yeon asks if he's trying to fight with grappling now, and that confirms it. Do-yeon has figured out the plan. Even so, Kim thinks mixed attacks might still get him in. He throws a quick 1-2 and tries to force Do-yeon down once he's close. But that plan fails too, when he gets blasted with another punch under the chin. Do-yeon tells him the problem is simple. To tackle him, the protagonist has to get close, and Do-yeon doesn't believe he can. Confident now, Do-yeon keeps punching and starts piling up damage. It's like he can read everything MC wants to do. That gives him total control of the fight. Kim stops dodging and starts blocking instead, but those blocks still let a lot of damage through, and it's getting harder and harder for him to keep going. Lee can't understand why he has stopped dodging or countering and is just standing there taking hits on his guard. Kim realizes he's drifting from the goal and forces himself to refocus. Since the takedowns aren't working, he decides to try boxing Do-yeon instead. That goes badly too, because the protagonist starts throwing wild punches with no real plan. Even Lee gets frustrated, knowing that kind of swinging won't help him win. Do-yeon keeps slipping every punch with ease, leaving MC hitting nothing but air. So MC gives up on striking again and goes back to tackling, but that isn't working anymore either. Do-yeon reads every move and punishes Kim hard for each one. Then he lands a heavy kick and a loud slap that rocks him. It's obvious the protagonist has no clean way out of this beating, and Do-yeon's crew starts cheering after seeing how well he's fighting. At the same time, Daniel asks Philip if Kim still has any chance left. After taking a brutal beating, MC gets back up and looks at himself. He can tell he's barely hanging on, and now the danger feels real. He's never felt this hopeless in a fight before. To him, Do-yeon feels like a wall he just can't get past. Tears fill his eyes as he starts to think this might be the one he loses. Do-yeon beats him in strength, skill, and mindset, and now even his tackles are getting red. No matter what the protagonist tries, he can't land even a small hit. At first he thought this would be easy because Do-yeon didn't know his style, but now that Do-yeon has figured it out, countering him takes almost no effort. The protagonist has no answer. All he can do is hope for a miracle, but reality hits hard. Then Do-yeon fires another straight punch. Kim raises his hands to block it, but the straight turns into an uppercut that snaps into his chin. MC never sees it coming, and Do-yeon follows with another brutal blow. Using that jab, Do-yeon closes the distance even more. Philip notices the feint right away. Do-yeon sold the jab, then switched to an uppercut. That alone tells him Do-yeon really knows how to fight. Daniel, though, thinks it's over already and feels like staying to watch is pointless. Then Do-yeon kicks Kim and sends him crashing into the wall. He rushes in right after and unleashes a non-stop barrage. He can't do much except keep his guard up and block what he can. Now he's trapped in a corner again, just like before against Hansel, and that memory doesn't help. As the punches keep coming, Kim wonders what he's supposed to do. Is this really how he's going to lose? Then he remembers the bullies who challenged him one-on-one just because they wanted to join Invincible, something the protagonist hadn't even known. He finally snaps and tells himself he doesn't want to be other people's toy anymore. He wants to live as his own person and build his own name. You can see in his eyes that he's sick of being pushed around. Fueled by that anger, MC breaks through Do-yeon's flurry and yells at him to leave him alone, to let him live in peace, then starts swinging wildly again. Seeing Kim explode like that, the crowd finds it pathetic. Do-yeon tells him those amateur punches will never land, then shows him what a real punch looks like and drives one in. He follows it with a brutal kick to Kim's leg. The pain is so bad he screams out. Even so, Do-yeon can tell he's still standing after all this, and that toughness actually impresses him. Still, Do-yeon doesn't stop. He keeps hammering the protagonist while he's pinned against the wall. With nowhere to go, MC just stays there and blocks, taking more and more damage. He's badly hurt now, and one of his feet has started to swell. After everything he's taken in this long fight, he is almost out of gas. If he doesn't find a way out soon, he's going to lose. Lee is getting worried watching this. She can tell the fight is going nowhere for Kim, so she tells Daesam it's time to use their backup plan. When Daesam hesitates, Lee insists they have to do it. In a flashback, she had told the protagonist that if wrestling and jiu-jitsu failed, they'd use one secret move. Lee is sure Do-yeon will fall for it. Even though Kim and Daesam still don't know the full plan, She told MC she'd signal him at the right moment, and that signal would be her shouting Doi-sam's name. Back in the present, Lee gives the signal. Doi-sam drops the disguise, pulls back her hood, and starts cheering for him. Then she goes further. She begins insulting Do-yeon, calling him trash and saying he's not even worth noticing. She tells the protagonist to win and beat that bully. Do-yeon turns and realizes the voice belongs to Baek Dae-sam, his childhood crush, maybe even his first love. Lee is counting on the fact that he still has feelings for her, and as far as she sees it, this kind of provocation is fair game in a real fight. Trash talk happens all the time in MMA, and Lee calls this the second's distraction strategy. Dae-sam keeps going, throwing even more insults at Do-yeon. Hearing that from her, Do-yeon almost wishes he were deaf. He can't handle those words coming out of Dae-sam's mouth. The crowd is stunned and confused, but one thing is clear, Do-yeon is deeply humiliated. Behind him, Kim stays still and watches, wondering if the provocation worked. Since Lee told him to keep going if it started working, MC asks Do-yeon if he's crying like a baby. Do-yeon turns around and he sees real tears on his face. Now he knows the taunting worked, but that also means he has to face an enraged Do-yeon. What happens next is unclear, except for one thing. Do-yeon has completely lost it. He opens with a punch packed with raw power, but Kim ducks. The blow slams straight into the concrete wall instead. Even after hitting it that hard, Do-yeon doesn't react to the pain at all. The protagonist realizes just how angry he must be. Do-yeon swings again and tells MC to shut up, but the MC dodges that one too and notices his movements are getting much bigger. That makes them easier to read and avoid. Before, Do-yeon stayed tight and efficient. Now his rage is opening him up. He's too emotional now, and that's making him sloppy. When fighters lose their cool, they forget the basics and leave openings behind. Kim just needs to find one, and with Do-yeon's punches getting wider and his guard rising, his body is more exposed than before. That's the opening he needs. He lines up the liver kick Lee taught him, then drives an instep liver kick into Do-yeon. It hurts him badly, but Kim isn't stopping there. He wants to end this fight now. The protagonist leaps onto Do-yeon from behind and locks in a rear naked choke, telling him to go to sleep as he tries to finish it. Then the story jumps back to elementary school, to classroom 3-4. A bully is picking on a little girl, mocking her for wearing her grandma's slippers to school. She tries to resist and begs him to stop. He only gets worse, snatching off the slippers and throwing them out the window, saying he's returning them to her grandma. When she pleads for them back, he tells her to quit begging, and she starts crying. Next, he grabs her by the hair and yanks it. This bully is revealed to be a younger Baek Dae-sam, who was 11 at the time. Nearby, 11-year-old Do-yeon watches it happen, but he doesn't step in. He turns away instead. Later, Dae-sam sits next to him with her head down, crying, and Do-yeon still ignores her. Later, those same bullies are in the hall showing off some gear one of them got from his mom. When Do-yeon walks by, they notice the sweat stain on his back and start mocking him, calling him a pig. The taunts get to him and Do-yeon turns around with a hard glare. One of the boys gets offended and snaps, asking what Do-yeon is staring at. Then he kicks Do-yeon in the back and demands to know if he's glaring at him. Do-yeon drops to the floor and the bully steps over him. The other kids nearby are too scared to do anything. The bully asks if Do-yeon wants to die for looking at him like that, then says he's making the whole class stink. In a quiet voice, Do-yeon tells him to stop. The bully pretends not to hear and uses it to embarrass him even more. Calling Do-yeon a pig wasn't enough, so he insults Do-yeon's mom too. While he keeps making pig noises, Dae-sam walks up behind him and tells him to cut it out. She says her grandma taught her that making fun of how people look is wrong, but Dae-sam doesn't really understand how bullies work. The boy acts like he's backing off and even gives a fake apology. Then he suddenly punches her in the head and says he was just joking. Still mad, he asks if the pig on the floor is her boyfriend. Later in class, Dae-sam sits crying with her head down again, while Do-yeon tries to ignore it. He thinks she stepped in for no reason and only got hurt because of it, but he still feels guilty. He remembers staying silent while she was attacked, even though she was the first person to stand up for him. When Dae-sam finally looks up, he sees her nose is running badly. Do-yeon quickly heads to the bathroom and brings back tissues for her. Dae-sam thanks him for the tissues, and Do-yeon can't help thinking she's kind of strange. Even so, the two click right away. Not long after, Dae-sam introduces herself and learns Do-yeon's full name. She says his name sounds nice and reaches out to be friends. Do-yeon accepts right away, and that's how he and Dae-sam became close. As time passed, Dae-sam kept getting bullied. Strangely, Do-yeon became a target too. Whenever that happened, Dae-sam would jump in and argue with the bullies, telling them to stop picking on him for his looks. To Do-yeon, she looked like a tiny brave dog barking at bigger animals, but it didn't really protect him. Instead, the bullies would just hit Dae-sam or toy with her. Because she was smaller and weaker than he was, Do-yeon felt even worse for her. Then one day, the class got a project. Pair up, watch a movie together, and later talk about what they learned. Of course, Do-yeon and Dae-sam end up together. Dae-sam invites him to her house, so they can watch it there. After school, Do-yeon goes to Dae-sam's home. She puts on an anime called Neighbor Egg Boy and says she loves it. While they watch, Dae-sam has the most fun. She laughs a lot and warns Do-yeon when a funny part is coming. But Do-yeon spends more time watching Dae-sam than the anime. After that, he starts going to her house often to watch anime. Do-yeon lived alone with his dad, and when his dad left for work, the house felt empty. So he'd go out, and Dae-sam would show him all her favorite anime and shows. Anything she liked, she wanted to share with him, and before long, they were basically best friends. Still, Dae-sam wanted more than that. He did enjoy the anime, but what really made those times special was being there with Dasum. From then on, they grew even closer, and Dasun started visiting her place almost every other day. After school, they do homework together and draw characters side by side. For a while, life felt really happy. If Dasum's academy ended late, Dasun would wait so he could walk her home. Then time passed, and they entered middle school. Other than the height gap getting bigger, not much changed, including the bullying. The bullies treated Doyeon even worse, still calling him a pig, and now forcing him to sound like one too. If they asked him something and he answered normally, that wasn't enough for them. They wanted pig noises instead, so they told him every answer had to come with a pig sound. Doyeon could put up with them targeting him, but he couldn't handle seeing Dasum bullied right in front of him while he did nothing. By middle school, what Dasum faced wasn't just bullying anymore. It had turned into harassment, all because the bullies thought her reactions were funny. Doyeon wanted to step in, but fear stopped him. He was too scared to defend her, or even himself. Watching Dasum suffer made him feel so helpless that he even thought about ending his life. But that day, he chose a different path, one driven by anger and a plan to make the bullies pay. He decided to turn himself into someone people would fear. If no one else would punish them, he would. From then on, Doyeon threw himself into training at the gym like everything depended on it. Over time, he burned off a lot of fat and changed from a heavy kid into a fit one. He built muscle too, and before long, he entered the National MMA Amateur Tournament. There, Doyeon stands in the ring for his debut match. It's match 3 of the tournament, and once the announcer starts it, Doyeon shows how hard he's trained over the years. He attacks with sharp jabs and high kicks, so fast and hard that his opponent can't keep up. The fight ends in just 15 seconds with a knockout. After that first event, Doyeon stays undefeated and keeps winning tournament after tournament. In the next competitions, he wins every match in the first round by knockout. Later, his trainer tells him he's doing well, but his grappling still needs work. The trainer explains to Kim that MMA means mixed martial arts, so a fighter can't rely on just one style. He says Doyeon needs to be well-rounded, or a strong grappler will crush him. But Doyeon sticks to his own approach. He figures that if he knocks people out before they can grab him, that's enough. To him, striking is the most important part of MMA. His trainer tells him to quit being stubborn or he'll regret it. He also warns Doyeon to stop throwing his fists around carelessly. His hands are weapons. Doyeon is confused, but part of him understands what the trainer means. That night, he leaves the gym and runs into Dasum. She looks like she's been waiting for him and asks if he wants to walk home with her. As they head off, Doyeon asks if she really waited for him. Dasum shrugs it off, saying she was passing by, knew when he'd finish, and decided to stay. After a bit, she asks how his training is going. It turns out Dasum used to train with him too, but she quit after 3 months. Doyeon says it was the same as always. Dasum tells him he really does work hard. Still, she says it's a little sad that he doesn't have time to watch anime with her anymore like they used to. Not wanting to let her down, Doyeon says they can watch one together soon. Dasum lights up and says they should do it on Saturday or even tomorrow. Doyeon lets Dasum choose, so they set it for tomorrow. She even picks Neighbor Egg Boy since season 2 just came out. The next morning, Doyeon waits outside Dasum's classroom. Anime like this isn't really his thing, but he still came to spend time with her. He peeks through the door and sees Dasum on the floor, beaten up and surrounded by bullies. They order her to put on an outfit for a film challenge, while calling her nasty names. That pushes Doyeon close to his breaking point. One bully mocks Dasum, asking why she isn't dancing now when she danced so well before. Doyeon watches through the door, remembering how he used to be too scared to help her. This time he has both the strength and the nerve. Dasum reminds them they promised this would be the last time. A moment later, Doyeon steps into the room and faces the bullies, without any sign of fear. The bully recognizes Doyeon and asks what he's doing there. Doyeon is standing on the clothes they wanted Dasum to wear. The bully growls at him to get off them. Doyeon doesn't answer or move, so the bully starts yelling for him to take his foot off. Still, Doyeon says nothing. He just stands there, clearly fed up. The bully mocks his expression and asks if Dasum is his girlfriend. When Doyeon stays quiet, he takes that as a yes. Then he starts asking gross questions, whether Doyeon kissed Dasum and whether they did anything more. Getting no reply, he keeps going and asks what it was like with Dasum. That finally crosses the line. Doyeon snaps and slaps him so hard the whole room seems to feel it. The other bullies just stare, shocked to see Doyeon explode like this. The bully can't believe someone he looked down on just hit him. He swings back but misses. Doyeon answers with an even harder punch, and the others quickly call his older brother. As soon as the brother arrives, he demands to know who beat him up. He also happens to be the top fighter in the middle school. Furious, he charges at Doyeon without knowing what he's walking into. Doyeon sees the brother and his guys rushing him all at once. 5 minutes later, all 3 are down, including the school's number 1, who never stood a chance. They end up unconscious and badly beaten. The rest of the bullies are frozen in shock. They can't believe what they just saw. Blood drips from Doyeon's fists, and the whole room goes quiet with fear. Even Dasum looks stunned and a little scared. After that, Doyeon becomes the number 1 at his middle school. Once he took that spot, the school gang kept trying to test him. They picked fights a few more times, but Doyeon beat them every time. After enough losses, they finally backed off. From then on, nobody dared lay a hand on him. After that, Doyeon went back to his old life, spending time with Dasum and watching anime. One day, Dasum was showing him season 2 of an anime. Then a group of boys came in. Their leader noticed they liked the same show and invited them to watch it on a big screen. Not long after, they joined the anime fan club too. The group welcomed them warmly, and Doan wished every day could stay like that. But then second year started. At school, a badly beaten boy came up to Doan, asked if he was Seo Doan, and said he needed a favor. Doan had no idea who he was. They had never met before. That boy was Moon Sok-ju, the future founder of a gang called the Vipers. He was only 15 when he first met Doan, and soon we learn what he wants. Sok-ju asks Doan to get revenge on a student from another school who beat him up. He was basically trying to borrow Doan's strength, and for Doan, the job was so easy he finished it in 5 seconds. Afterwards, Sok-ju praises Doan's power. But Doan doesn't think he did anything special, even while Sok-ju keeps hyping him up. Later, Sok-ju gives Doan a wallet he got from an older student at another school. It looks expensive, so Doan hesitates. Sok-ju insists it's real and says it's just a gift for a friend. Doan finally accepts it and thanks him. From that day on, the two get closer and their friendship keeps growing. Doan knows Sok-ju is a bully, but in his mind, he's not like the ones from his childhood. Sok-ju and his crew keep praising Doan for his fighting and often ask him to take on students from other schools. Since it never seemed like a big deal, Doan always agreed, and every time he won. After each fight, Sok-ju rewarded him with expensive gifts, even premium shoes, which Doan only took after Sok-ju called it a gift for a friend. Doan starts to realize Sok-ju is getting money from somewhere, probably because of the fights Doan wins for him. But he doesn't care. By then, Doan has started enjoying the fights for their own sake. He fights without fear now, and for him that's fun. During all that time, he never loses once. Then comes third year. One day, Sok-ju walks with Doan and mentions another fight, while one of his guys says it'll be fun. From then on, Doan spends more time with Sok-ju's crew than with the anime club or Dasam. Being with them feels more exciting, and it keeps him from feeling alone, so he sticks with Sok-ju and the others even more. When Doan and the group walk the halls, everyone avoids them. Doan doesn't care, but Dasam watches with growing worry, because she knows he's with the wrong people. One day, Dasam comes with members of the anime fan club to invite Doan to a watch party for Season 3. At that same moment, Sok-ju and his crew show up and remind Doan they're supposed to hang out with girls from the next school. Dasam doesn't know who they are, and that only makes her more worried. Sok-ju ignores them, grabs Doan, and leaves. Dasam can only watch him drift farther away. Later that night, Doan and the others are drinking and doing shots. One of the girls already drunk asks Doan to take her to the bathroom. She flirts with him on the way and even suggests stopping by her house, but Doan's mind is stuck on Dasam and how she's been acting lately. Tired of those thoughts, he pushes the girl off and heads straight to Dasam's house. He knocks on her door and waits. The moment she opens it, she asks what's wrong with him. Right away, she can tell he's drunk. Doan asks her to come outside so they can talk, but she refuses because her parents are home. She asks again if he's really drunk and reminds him he's still in middle school. Doan doesn't see the problem. Dasam hits him with the truth. He's changed, and now he's become just like the bullies who used to torment her. Then she tells him to go home and shuts the door. The next day, Dasam spends time calmly with her friends. Doan watches from behind, clearly upset, but he's not mad at Dasam or anyone else. He's mad at himself. He starts asking why he began fighting in the first place. He remembers how Dasam used to get bullied, forced to do things, and beaten when she refused. That was why Doan fought. He wanted to protect Dasam. But now he's standing with the same kind of people. Back then, Dasam reached out because she believed Doan was a good person. Now everything has flipped. In the present, she's cheering for Kim to beat Doan down and make him pay. Doan realizes fighting is the only thing he has left, so he cannot lose here. At the same time, MC keeps a tight choke on him from behind and refuses to let go. Doan steels himself. He can't afford to lose this fight. Using everything he has, he finally throws Kim off his back. Philip lights up, seeing Doan escape again. Doan resets his stance and gets ready to keep going. Tears fill his eyes, but he stands firm. Losing isn't an option when this is all he has left. Dasam's old words echo in his head, calling him a kind guy and asking him to watch anime with her. But in the present, she cheers for him to beat Doyle down and teach him a lesson. Doyle refuses to lose because fighting is all he has now. He even joined the Viper gang for that reason, and if he loses, none of it meant anything. But the protagonist feels the same way. He has no plan to back down, and unlike Doyle, he still looks sharp, making it obvious who's ahead now. Soon, Doyle swings again, but Kim quickly raises his guard and blocks it. MC notices Doyle's attacks are still too wide. He's too worked up. When Doyle throws another hit, he slips past it with ease. A memory flashes back. Lee tells the protagonist he just needs to get Doyle to the ground and asks if he understands. Back in the fight, Kim sees his chance and takes it. As Doyle comes in again, MC spots an opening and shoots for the groin tackle. The tackle drops Doyle hard. He locks onto his neck, and now Doyle is trapped with no clear escape. Another memory follows. Lee tells the protagonist he doesn't always need a jujitsu move after taking someone down. He can just pin Doyle and start hitting him. That way, Doyle gets no room to defend himself, and the pressure alone can break him. In the present, MC does exactly that, pinning him down and hammering his head. The crowd erupts. One guy is stunned that he pinned Doyle so cleanly, while another says Doyle must be in crazy pain right now. Sok-ju can't believe it. He never expected Doyle to get held down by a first year like Kim, and he keeps hoping Doyle will get back up fast. While keeping him down, the protagonist tells Doyle to give up and admit defeat so the beating can stop. Doyle groans through it, but he still won't quit. MC hits even harder, yet Doyle finds a small opening and tries to force his way out. He thinks about all the hard training he did wrestling with Lee, and he refuses to let Doyle escape that easily. But he's too late. Doyle finally breaks free from the neck hold. The crowd is shocked that Doyle escaped Kim's setup again. One of Invincible's guys says the fight might be back to square one, but Philip disagrees and tells him to look closer at both fighters. Doyle is clearly drained and barely has anything left. The protagonist, on the other hand, still looks fresh and the gap in stamina is obvious. That makes sense. When a fight stays on the ground, the person stuck underneath burns way more energy trying to escape, while the pressure also wears them down mentally. Back in the present, Daniel points out that MC prepared really well, especially since wrestling stamina is hard to build. Then another memory appears, with Lee telling Kim that once a fight goes to the ground, it usually turns into a long one. And in a long fight, stamina matters more than skill. Technique still counts, but without enough energy, you can't even throw a proper punch. Back in the moment, he thinks about how much he worked for this day. For weeks, maybe even months, he trained hard with Lee. Now the protagonist dips low again, making it look like he's about to shoot for another tackle. Seeing him rush in crouched, Doyle wonders if it's a real tackle or just a fake. Then he sees Kim spread his hands and assumes the tackle is real, so he starts thinking of a counter. A knee would be too risky with how tired he is, and if he goes down again, he may not get up. So Doyen chooses the safe defense and lowers his body. What he doesn't know is that MC set him up. This time, he was never going for the tackle. The moment he gets close, he cracks Doyen right on the chin. It was a feint from the start. Seeing it, Lee remembers how people who learn how dangerous ground fighting is start fearing tackles, which makes them easy to fool with tackle feints. That punch does serious damage to Doyen. Lee can tell Doyen is half conscious already, so she wants Kim to finish it now. The protagonist follows up with a flying triangle choke, and it looks brutal. It turns out Lee had told MC to train his grappling like his life depended on it. She knew it would matter someday, and she also told him to end fights for sure with a choke, so Kim does just that, slowly choking Doyen unconscious. As Doyen's vision fades, the last person he sees is Dasam. His mind races. Why did he start fighting in the first place? Then everything goes dark, and Philip calls the match over. Another memory appears. A younger Doyen crawls on the ground crying. A pair of slippers stops in front of him. It's Dasam. In that old moment, she gently asks if someone picked on him again. He says nothing, and Dasam understands right away. She tells him to forget it and not let it get to him. Then she brightens up, saying a new anime just came out, and asks if he wants to watch it with her. Her voice seems to echo on and on. Then the story returns to the present, where Dasam walks over to the defeated Doyen, rests a hand on his shoulder, and repeats those same words. She invites him to watch anime with her. At the same time, young Doyen looks at her through tears, full of hope, and softly agrees. After Seo Doyen was defeated, life at school changed a lot. Later, Doyen steps into the club room and introduces himself to the Losers Club, saying he wants to join. Everyone welcomes him right away, and out of all of them, Dasam looks the happiest to have him there. One of the guys Doyen beat before tells him he doesn't need to talk so formally. They're all friends, and they're the same age, so he should relax. That makes Doyen remember beating him badly, so he gives a sincere apology. Even though he got hurt back then, the guy lets it go and says it's no big deal. Another member jokes that Doyen looks more like an otaku than a thug, and Dasam quickly agrees, saying he really does have that vibe. Then the club leader suggests they all watch anime together, but suddenly remembers there's one more person to introduce. It's Kim. Scratching his head, he makes it obvious he doesn't really want to be there. He says he isn't planning to fully join, but after so many people asked, he'll be an honorary member and stop by sometimes. The leader tells him the club door is always open, so he can come whenever he wants. Then another member says the protagonist isn't just an honorary member, he's an honorary hero after beating Doyen like that. MC gets annoyed by all the praise and tells them to stop, not realizing they're just teasing him. Dasam jokes that Kim's life should be made into an anime, and he threatens to leave the club if they keep it up. That makes Dasam burst out laughing. She's clearly having fun, and Doyen feels happy too as he quietly watches her. Later that day, Doyen and he go to a vending machine, and Doyen buys him an apple drink. The protagonist takes it and thanks him, but he's confused by Doyen suddenly being nice, so he asks what this is about, while Doyen starts to apologize with a pun about the apple drink. Doyen apologizes for causing all this and picking a fight with MC for no reason. He makes it clear that he truly means it. Kim quickly tells him it's fine, saying people their age sometimes grow through fights. Even if that felt like way more than a normal fight, he adds that Dasam told him some things about Doyen. In a flashback, Dasam explains that Doyen was bullied when he was younger, and that's why he started martial arts. She also fills the protagonist in on more of Doyen's past. Back in the present, MC says he heard what Doyen went through, and admits he was bullied too. Maybe he still is. That's why he understands why Doyen pushed himself into that fight. Kim knows what it's like to want to run away and get stronger. He's felt that same desperation, so he gets why Doyen did it. After a short pause, Doyen admits that desperation probably made him act stupid. Still, he decides to move on, reaches out his hand and apologizes one more time. He shakes it, ending the grudge right there. Doyen then says the protagonist was right. He'd been thinking only about getting stronger, and then he lost. And this wasn't some small loss. Doyen had gone unbeaten for a long time, but losing cleared up a huge problem for him. It felt like a heavy weight came off his chest. Then Doyeon changes the subject and tells Kim he's the new #1 among the first years. That makes MC panic. He says not to call him that because he only won by luck, but Doyeon shuts that down. MC beat him with skill and stamina, so he's better. Doyeon also says he's done fighting. He wants no part of it anymore. As he turns away, he warns him not to become obsessed with strength, even if he gets stronger. He explains that chasing power too hard can make a person lose themselves, so he tells Kim to be careful. Doyeon leaves, and the protagonist stays there stunned, thinking over everything he just heard. MC has always told himself he trained just to protect himself, but then he remembers what he felt after beating Doyeon. While Doyeon lay on the ground, MC stood over him wanting even more strength, and that thought bothers him. Later, Doyeon goes to the Viper crew and tells them he's leaving. Seokju is confused and asks why this is coming out of nowhere. Doyeon says he wants to focus on school, but Seokju tells him he can do both. Then Doyeon drops the real shock. He's quitting fighting too. Seokju can barely believe it, since fighting used to be everything to him. Doyeon says it is what it is, and even tells them to hit him if they want. But Seokju's guys want worse than that. They talk about taking a finger or an eye, until Seokju tells them to calm down. As he smokes, Seokju remembers finding a drawing of Dasum on a receipt. He realizes Doyeon drew it, then thinks back to Doyeon's last fight, when he saw Dasum watching. Back in the present, Seokju says all of this looks suspicious, and asks if Doyeon is with Dasum, the girl he used to draw on receipts. He figures the school excuse is fake, and Doyeon really just wants to be with his girlfriend. Even so, Seokju decides not to dig any deeper. He turns away, tells Doyeon to go, and says he's fought enough already. Seokju adds that life always brings a choice between friends and love, and in his eyes, real men choose love. Then Seokju and his crew start to leave. Doyeon calls after him, saying he'll return the watch later, but Seokju tells him to keep it because it's fake. That leaves Doyeon wondering if he should just toss it. A few days later at the mall, Kim and Lee are in a fitting room area. Calling him a loser, Lee tells him to quit freezing up and tie her bra strap. He freaks out. What sounds like a dream to other guys feels like pure torture to him. Earlier that Saturday, the protagonist is at his computer. While checking Instagram, he notices that Dasum and Doyeon followed him. Now he wonders if he should follow them back. Looking through their pages, Kim sees they already went to the theater with the club to watch anime. He doesn't know Doyeon that well, but he's glad to see him smiling. Since their fight, Doyeon has also stopped fighting, and MC feels a little proud that he may have helped him change for the better. Then his body starts aching from all the grappling and rolling in that match, which makes him wonder if Doyeon is hurting too. Right after that, he notices Lee's Instagram. It hits him that even though they've lived together a long time, they still don't follow each other. Then again, they mostly talk about fighting and studying, so maybe that makes sense. Even so, Kim thinks maybe he should follow her just in case, but he can't decide and starts stressing out. He tells himself they've known each other for months, so it shouldn't be weird. Still, he imagines Lee calling him a pervert and roasting him just for sending a follow request. Even so, he tries to do it. He moves to click the button, but he just can't. He doesn't even know why he's this nervous. Then he remembers he still hasn't repaid Lee for everything she's done for him. She took someone who couldn't even face bullies and helped turn him into someone who could beat stronger, bigger fighters. Kim knows how much work Lee put into training him, even though he had no real talent, and he realizes he never properly thanked her. But saying that to her face feels impossible, so he wonders if he should send a DM instead. The protagonist starts pouring his heart out, and the message gets really long. Luckily, he notices that before he can finish, Lee suddenly walks into his room and asks what he's doing. Startled, MC instantly shuts off the monitor so she won't see the embarrassing message he wrote for her. Lee immediately gets suspicious and asks why he hid the screen so fast. She even accuses him of watching something dirty and calls him gross. Kim quickly denies it, then asks why she suddenly came into his room. Lee asks if he's free this weekend, and before he can answer, she tells him he's coming with her. Caught off guard, he asks where they're going. At the mall, Lee says she has a lot to buy today, so she brought the protagonist along to carry her stuff. Kim just frowns and accepts it. A little later, he decides being her porter isn't so bad since he had nothing else to do. Still, he asks why she suddenly went shopping and where she got the money. Lee excitedly says her mom gave her an allowance because her grades improved a lot. Grinning, she says even her brother started studying to inherit the building. But his grades still didn't go up, unlike hers. Since Lee was the only one who improved, she's the one who got the money. She also admits MC helped her a lot with studying. That answer reassures him. Kim remembers how hard Lee studied even while training him, but seeing her spend so freely now, he asks if she plans to blow it all. Annoyed, Lee turns and asks what's wrong with that. He says she'll have nothing left later if she spends everything now. Lee just says he can lend her money when that happens. That makes the protagonist wonder if she's planning to shake him down. After a long shopping trip, they're about to head back when Lee remembers she still needs a swimsuit. When Kim asks why, she says she promised Sarah they'd go to the beach, so now she's looking for a bikini. Once she finds one, Lee heads into the fitting room to try it on. Hoping the weight she gained won't be a problem, MC waits outside. He starts thinking about dinner because he's hungry. Then Lee calls him over and asks him to come inside for a second. He hesitates, knowing that would be totally inappropriate, but Lee keeps insisting it's no big deal. Finally, tired of waiting, she grabs him and drags him in. Then she tells him to stop just standing there and tie the back of her bikini. Kim instantly panics with no idea how to handle this. Still, he forces himself to help, but he's so nervous that he messes up and drops Lee's bikini. He blurts out that his hands are too sweaty, and Lee snaps at him for being so clumsy. The noise brings over a store worker, who asks through the fitting room door if everything is okay. Lee peeks out and says it's fine. Then she goes back in, hands the bikini to Kim again and tells him to tie it properly. This time the protagonist gets it right. Lee turns around and asks if she looks good. MC goes bright red and can barely speak. He stammers that she looks really pretty, while his heart feels ready to burst. Satisfied, Lee decides to buy it and walks out of the fitting room. Later, Lee keeps shopping for more clothes and he can't believe she still has energy after all that. So he starts looking around for himself. He spots a cap he likes and tries it on, but Lee notices and says it fits his loser vibe perfectly. After a long time, they finally leave the mall, with Kim carrying a pile of bags. The protagonist says he's never seen anyone shop like Lee. Then he reminds her that after today, she won't even have enough left for lunch. Lee just says he'll buy it for her, making MC realize she really does plan to mooch off him. Then Lee tells him to check the bag on the left. Inside he finds a cap, the exact one he had been looking at earlier. Lee tells him to try it on. She says she bought it while he was in the bathroom. Still teasing him for being a loser, Lee says it's a gift for helping her study. Kim is stunned. He just stands there blushing, shocked that Lee actually bought him something. He never expected a kind move like this from her, so he freezes, trying to process it. Lee breaks him out of it by asking why he's still standing there, and whether they're going home or not. The protagonist snaps back and quickly apologizes for spacing out. As he thinks it over, he realizes Lee bought him a gift, something he never thought would happen, and he's honestly thankful. Then it hits him that he still hasn't properly thanked her, and he wonders if he should say it now. So Kim calls her name and thanks her for everything, teaching him martial arts and helping him stand up to bullies. Lee doesn't answer. She just says she needs to go to the bathroom. MC stays behind to wait for her. Still confused, he keeps thinking about the gift Lee gave him. He starts wondering if she finally sees him as a friend. Then someone smacks him on the head from behind. Two guys crowd around, grab at his neck and tell him to act like they're friends so nobody gets suspicious. They look over his shopping bags and comment on all the nice stuff. Then they get straight to it and tell Kim to share some of it. Panicked and confused, he wonders if he's seriously getting robbed right now. One of them spots the tag still hanging from the protagonist's new cap and figures out he just bought it. The guy snatches the cap and says he'll go sell it, even though MC keeps begging him to give it back. Then one of them starts pulling a shopping bag from his hands, but he resists and says he won't hand it over. That only makes one thug angry enough to slap him hard. The other warns the protagonist to stay still if he doesn't want more pain. Then he notices a pair of shoes in the bags and realizes they're women's shoes, which makes MC beg him to return them too. The thug mocks him and tells him to wake up to the situation. Then he orders him to pull out his wallet so they can take his card and buy cigarettes. Even then, Kim keeps resisting and says the things they're taking belong to his friend. Just then, Lee walks up from behind and asks the protagonist what he's doing. One of the thugs sees her and immediately makes a gross comment about how pretty his girlfriend is. Lee reads the scene right away and realizes her porter failed at the one job she gave him. Then the thugs say they'll return the stuff if she kisses them. Annoyed, Lee tells MC to beat them up and teach them a lesson. But he just stands there, stunned by what she said. That makes Lee even madder. She asks if he's really scared of these guys and if all her training meant nothing. She points out that one of them is so skinny he looks like he'd fold from a single low kick, and says the other is about Kim's size, basically nothing. The insults make the thugs furious, and they start yelling at Lee and calling her crazy. Lee ignores them and keeps talking to the protagonist. She reminds him he's the guy who beat Seo Doyeon, then asks what he's so afraid of. That makes MC remember he really did beat Doyeon with his own strength. Lee keeps pushing him, asking if these punks really look tougher than that. The thugs have no clue what she's talking about. One of them decides he's done, demands Kim's wallet again, and says he'll hit Lee next. When he still doesn't answer, the thug grabs his shoulder. He wonders why he's still standing here, letting himself get robbed. Pathetic or not, he knows one thing. His teacher is the best. He takes off his sunglasses, turns around, and firmly tells them to give back the bags and the cap. Now the thugs realize the protagonist has found his nerve, and he's even raised his fists. One of them says they're from Bakwon High, but Kim shuts it down, saying he doesn't care about useless info. Then he demands the bags and cap one more time. Fed up, one thug rushes in and throws a punch. As MC watches the attack, he remembers Lee's lesson on street fights. When he once asked if he should use self-defense or something like that, Lee told him he didn't need anything fancy. Against an average person with no martial arts, one move matters most in a street fight: the low kick. If it's done right, it kills the other person's will to fight. She even said 4 low kicks can make a 2-meter guy shrink to about 130 centimeters. Kim had no idea what that meant back then, and Lee just told him he'd understand once he tried it. Now in the present, he sticks to what she taught him and follows Lee's advice. The moment the thug charges, the protagonist fires off the first low kick, and the guy instantly feels it. MC follows with a second, then a third, and then a 4th low kick without letting up. The thug doesn't literally shrink to 130 centimeters, but after 4 low kicks, he ends up even worse, whining like a baby. Just like Lee said, he's in so much pain, he can't even hold back his tears. The second thug charges in with a punch, but Kim dodges easily. Seeing an opening, he ends it with a liver shot. The thug drops to the ground and blacks out. He can hardly believe he won again. He quickly grabs everything and leaves with Lee, who is still annoyed that he failed at being her porter. Behind them, one thug struggles back up and swears he'll get revenge once he finds out what school Kim goes to. Then someone walks up behind him and asks if he wants that answer. The thug turns around, and the guy tells him the protagonist Jae-hyuk is a first year at Youngmin High. The thug asks who he is. It's Hansel, the same bully Kim beat before. On a bright day, the whole loser club is hanging out in the clubroom, watching an anime called My Favorite Girl. As it goes on, the club leader gets hyped, saying this should be a fun one, while another guy calls it a masterpiece. Then the leader asks MC if it's finally getting interesting. Smiling, MC says he's starting to get into it. Nearby, Do-hyun stays quiet, thinking to himself that the anime is pretty fun, but what he likes even more is watching Daesung while Daesung focuses on the show. Then the door suddenly opens behind them. The door opening makes everyone look over, and they freeze when Philip suddenly walks in. With a smug smile, Philip says he finally found what he was looking for. The club members quickly ask if he's the Sunbae from Invincible, but he tells them to just call him Philip Hyung. Kim asks why he came, while Do-hyun quietly wonders if Philip is here for him. Do-hyun cuts in and tells Philip to leave if this is about Do-hyun. Acting super protective, Philip clears it up right away. He didn't come for Do-hyun, he came for him. The protagonist is stunned hearing his own name, then awkwardly confirms that he's the one Philip wants. Philip brings Kim over to the window and tells him to look outside. MC is shocked to see students from Baekwon High. Philip explains they came here to catch him. They're the same guys he beat near the shopping mall, but he still doesn't get why they tracked him down. Then Philip points out a long-haired guy. The protagonist recognizes him at once as one of the mall guys he took down with Lee's low kicks. Philip says that long-haired kid is the little brother of Baekwon High's top bully, and they came to get payback. Stammering, MC says he only fought back to protect himself, then starts panicking about what to do. Philip can tell he still thinks reason matters here. He says him has two choices: get dragged off and beaten, or fight back. That makes the whole room go quiet. There are way too many guys waiting for Kim. Even Doyeon is left speechless. Then Philip tells the protagonist not to panic. He already handled part of it. In a flashback from 30 minutes earlier, the number one asks Byung-go who the protagonist is, and after hearing the name, orders his crew to grab anyone leaving the school. But his mood shifts fast when Philip shows up with the whole Invincible crew. The two groups square off, and Philip clearly has the stronger presence. Philip says he only came because of all the noise and asks what they're doing there. The Baekwon leader is Cha Byung-taek, head of a gang called Unrivaled. The only thing on his mind is that he might be older than Philip, as if that would save him. Philip asks why Cha brought so many people. Cha fires back that his little brother Byung-got got beaten in front of a shopping mall by a student from this school. He says his brother is limping now and his leg is wrecked. Then he makes it clear they came for one person only to get revenge. He tells Philip to stay out of it and calls him a rude prick. Philip, almost amused, asks who that student is. Cha says the name is Kim Jae-hyuk. That makes Philip realize exactly who he's talking about, and he gets more serious. He asks Cha if he understands that touching a student from their school means touching Invincible too. Then he asks if Cha really came here to fight Invincible, or maybe he came to fight Philip himself. At that, one of the Unrivaled guys leans in and quietly warns Cha that picking a fight with Invincible is too risky. He adds that as they are now, the odds favor Invincible. Cha hears that and starts thinking more carefully. So Philip says they shouldn't blow this up any further, and offers a way both sides can accept. His idea is simple. One of Cha's guys fights Kim Jae-hyuk one-on-one. It's better than a full gang fight since that would only hurt both Invincible and Unrivaled. Philip even says that if MC loses, Cha can take him and do what he wants. But if Cha's side loses, then this ends right there. He also lets Cha choose anyone he wants to face him. Cha likes the deal because it gives his side a strong chance to win. Meanwhile, Hansel peeks from behind a wall, thrilled because he thinks Kim is finished. He even tells himself some cheesy line about how a gentleman takes years to get revenge, but he's getting his much sooner. Back in the present, Philip finishes telling the protagonist how everything happened. MC just stands there, shocked, not sure if Philip saved him or completely sold him out. He still thinks this is unfair since he only fought back in self-defense. Later, behind the school, Lee is surprised to hear Kim has to fight someone from another school. While smoking, Lee says he caused this, so he should handle it. He quickly reminds her that she was the one who told him to fight those guys. Lee says if he does nothing, he'll just get beaten anyway. Besides, she thinks he can actually win the duel. The protagonist keeps acting scared, saying he doesn't even know who they're sending against him. That starts getting on Lee's nerves, so she reminds him he's gotten a lot stronger. She tells him to stop being scared and trust himself a little. That night, both sides gather at an open spot, ready for the duel. Kim can only hope they send someone weak. Cha asks where his fighter is and complains that he's late again. Then one of the guys behind him says their fighter just arrived. A huge muscular guy walks forward into view. Kim falls apart inside when he sees someone who looks 3 times stronger than him. The guy is Song Gyun-hoo, the top second year at Baekwon High. He's 18 and clearly tough. Cha is furious that Gyun-hoo showed up late, yelling that he told him to be there by 9. Gyun-hoo just laughs and says he was sleeping. That only makes Cha madder, and he demands to know how anyone could nap right before a fight. Gyun-hoo calmly says it's his bedtime. Cha is about to blow up, shouting that it's only 9 p.m. Before he can go off, one of his men holds him back so he doesn't beat up Kim Hyo first. Still acting clueless, Kim Hyo says sleeping early helps you grow faster. Cha tells him to stop messing around and beat MC already. Kim Hyo asks what MC even did, and Cha says he ruined his brother's leg. Kim Hyo looks at Boing-guao and remembers him whining about getting stabbed by low kicks somewhere. Now he gets it, but Boing-guao tells him to shut up. Cha orders Gnu Head again to finish this fast, saying invincible and unrivaled's pride is on the line. Gnu Head puts a hand on Cha's shoulder, promises to win, and asks if Cha remembers their deal. Cha just stares, having no clue. Then Gnu Head reminds him Cha said he'd introduce him to Juang, the goddess of sea young girls high. Annoyed, Cha tells him to win first, then they'll talk. While all this drags on, Kim and Lee watch from the back, getting annoyed that Gnu Head is taking forever. Finally, Gnu Head steps up, cracking his knuckles. He tells him there are no hard feelings, but he still has to lose. Then he gets a good look at him. His first thought is that the protagonist is tiny. He even asks if the protagonist is in elementary school. The protagonist nervously says he's in high school, and Gnu Head says he feels bad hitting a kid, but he'll still go through with it. He says he'll end it fast. Basically, he's acting like every bully right before getting humbled. That makes MC realize he has to win. If he loses, they'll all jump him. The problem is he has no clue how to beat this guy, especially since he had almost no time to prepare. Then we get a flashback. Kim asks Lee how to fight an opponent he's never seen before. Lee tells him he'll need to scout first if he wants to win, which confuses him. She explains that even real martial arts matches often use the first round to feel the other person out. That gives both fighters a chance to figure out what kind of opponent they're dealing with. Lee tells Kim to watch how his opponent reacts to each attack, then use that to plan a counter. The protagonist finally gets it. First, he has to read Gnu Head. But one thing worries him right away. Gnu Head is huge. MC also starts wondering if he knows martial arts too. If a guy that big has training, he knows he could be in serious trouble. Catching himself overthinking, the protagonist forces his mind back onto the fight. At last, he locks in. Gnu Head stands there with his fists clenched, and Kim wonders if that's really his stance. Then he notices it looks sloppy. Maybe Gnu Head never learned proper martial arts after all. Off to the side, Lee studies Gnu Head too. Sure, he was sent here because he has something dangerous. A moment later, Gnu Head starts walking toward MC. Kim wonders if that's really his plan. If Gnu Head is just going to walk in and swing, this might end fast. Then Gnu Head suddenly fires a punch from farther away than expected. He is stunned by how far that punch can reach. Still, all his training pays off. His reflexes kick in and he slips the blow. The people watching are shocked by the protagonist's reaction speed. MC exhales in relief. That strike came way closer than he expected, and Gnu Head's reach is no joke. He quickly backs away, knowing he needs space if he wants to avoid getting badly hurt. Gnu Head starts closing in again. The pressure builds on Kim. He can see openings, but if he guesses wrong, he's finished. So he starts thinking hard about how to win. Then he remembers Lee telling him to attack first. Lee had said to watch how the other guy reacts, then choose the next move. She trusted the protagonist to think during a fight, so Kim decides to start with a jab. The second it lands, Gun-Hoo knocks the hand aside with a parry. MC follows with a middle kick, then a low kick, but Gun-Hoo avoids both with ease. The crowd starts laughing at the way Gun-Hoo dodges. He sticks his butt out so much he almost looks like he's posing. Kim shuts it all out and refocuses. He goes in again, this time with a high kick. After that, he throws a 1-2 punch, but Gun-Hoo slips both attacks again. From the side, Philip notes that Gun-Hoo has sharp eyes. Lee notices something more important. Gun-Hoo isn't using martial arts at all. He's fighting on instinct alone. Meanwhile, Kim is getting rattled since none of his attacks are landing cleanly. To him, it's like trying to get through a giant shield. Chea then reveals Gun-Hoo's nickname, the Shield Bearer. Gun-Hoo's style is built on defense. He blocks or avoids everything, using quick reflexes and sharp eyesight to stay safe. It looks simple, but that style made him the top second year. And he doesn't only defend when the time is right, he pushes forward too. That pressure starts again as Gun-Hoo advances on Kim. The protagonist knows he has to think fast. Once Gun-Hoo starts marching in, most opponents get trapped, and that's exactly what happens here. MC ends up backed into a corner without even realizing when it happened. Once you're in range, Gun-Hoo brings out his spear and drives it in. Usually one clean hit is all he needs to finish a fight. So when Gun-Hoo throws that punch at Kim, Daniel starts to think it's already over. But he is still standing. He holds his ground and blocks Gun-Hoo's famous punch. Philip is clearly impressed by that defense. Kim caught the punch with both hands and used the barbed wire on his back to help absorb the impact. Kim flashes back to Lee, telling him to study how his opponent answers each attack before choosing the next one. Back in the present, MC thinks over all the probing attacks he's thrown so far. Gun-Hoo has stopped every one of them, like a wall. But he also spotted small gaps in that defense, tiny openings left behind after each block. Now he knows there is a way to win. Meanwhile, Gun-Hoo is still thinking about getting that girl's number, bragging that one hit is all he needs. He swings again, but Kim dodges like a pro and gives him no time to adjust. Lee is impressed that he is thinking this through. If he keeps stacking damage like this, she believes he'll win. After taking the kick, Gun-Hoo says it only tickled. From his side, Lee warns him not to laugh off low kicks, saying that's how someone ends up crippled. Gun-Hoo brushes it off and calls Lee weak, which only makes Lee madder. Then Gunho turns back to Kim and warns that same trick won't work twice. The protagonist knows Gunho can see and stop almost everything he throws, but giving up isn't an option. Afraid of what happens if he loses, MC sticks to the plan and throws another jab. Then comes the sneaky low kick, but this time Gunho dodges it. The invincible side starts laughing at Gunho's funny dodging style again. Even so, Gunho keeps avoiding Kim's sudden attacks. One of Invincible's higher-ups starts wondering if jab then low kick is all he has. He even asks if the protagonist is down to single shots because he's out of options. Next to him, Daniel thinks MC will get figured out if he keeps repeating himself. To him, the MC is cornering himself. Philip doesn't agree. He can tell him is setting something up. In a flashback, Lee tells Kim about something in martial arts called a setup. The protagonist jokes about whether she even knows how to spell it, and Lee snaps back, asking if he wants to die. The spelling doesn't matter. Then she explains, a setup means repeating the same pattern until your opponent gets used to it. Back in the fight, MC notices that whenever Gunho defends the jab and low kick, he pulls back his leg and sticks his butt out, leaving his face open. Because Kim has repeated that same pattern so much, Gunho now expects the low kick every time after the jab, so he keeps dodging the same way. And that gives him the opening for his real strike. That's exactly what Lee taught him. Once your opponent buys the pattern, switch to the finishing move. But this time, instead of going low, the protagonist follows the jab with a high kick, and it smashes clean into Gunho's face. The hit throws Gunho off balance, and he crashes to the floor as Kim resets his stance. A moment later, everyone realizes Gunho isn't just down, he's out cold from MC's kick. Both sides go dead silent, stunned by what they just saw. Seeing Gunho, a huge powerhouse, get dropped like that is too much for everyone there to process. Kangseo stares with his mouth open, and wonders if the fight really ended in one strike. Philip bursts out laughing, saying Gunho couldn't even take one solid head kick. But this wasn't just solid, it was perfect, thrown by someone less than half his size. Then Philip calls the match. Lee is thrilled to see Kim pull it off. He, though, can hardly believe what he just did in front of all those people. He never thought his plan would work this well. Soon some men from Unrivaled rush in and drag Gunho away, telling him to wake up, though moving his heavy body is a struggle. Cha admits defeat and tells Invincible he'll keep his word. Still, he warns them to remember this humiliation next time. They won't get off easy again. Philip happily waves Unrivaled off. Even as they leave, Unrivaled still can't believe Gunho lost to a kid half his size. Meanwhile, Kim takes a breath after winning yet another fight. Philip walks over and says he's impressed the protagonist won again. He adds that watching the protagonist fight is actually fun. Then Philip drops something big. After today, he's made up his mind. He wants Kim to join Invincible and asks if he'll accept. The protagonist asks Philip to say it again. With a shaky voice, he asks if Philip really wants him in Invincible, that gang of delinquent bullies. Philip says yes, that's exactly what he means. Kim still doesn't get why, since there are plenty of stronger guys around. Philip explains that he doesn't only want fighters in his group. He points to Daniel, who's great at studying and keeps top grades. Daniel is also Invincible's number 2. Then there are guys like Daciap, who join because they love fighting. Daciap is ranked number 5 in Invincible. Philip goes on. Some stay for money, some for girls, and some, like him, do it just because it's fun. To sell the idea, Philip reminds Kim that if he joins Invincible, nobody will dare mess with him anymore. In other words, the bullying would stop. To Philip, that's reason enough to join. He also says fighting seems fun for MC now too. Hearing all this, MC is caught off guard. Philip steps closer, pats him on the shoulder, and says he wants to see how far he can grow, and that they can do it together. He keeps pushing, saying if Kim is going to fight, he should do it for something bigger. The protagonist is left speechless. He wants to answer, but no words come out, and he quietly wonders if Philip is right. Lee, meanwhile, looks worried and doesn't like where this is going. Philip tells MC to take his time and think it over, but adds that he doesn't make offers like this to just anyone. After that, Philip leaves with the rest of Invincible. He just stands there stunned, watching them go and wondering why they would offer him something like that. Later that night, back at Kim's house, he gets ready to study with Lee despite everything that happened. Lee thinks he should have taken the day off. The protagonist reminds her that getting into Seoul University is too important to lose even one day over. Not wanting to argue, Lee goes along with it. MC suggests they work on English. After studying for a while, time slips by before he notices, and it's already 11:20. He ends the session there. Lee stretches and complains that she's bored and her shoulders hurt from studying. Then she turns to Kim and tells him to massage them. The protagonist is shocked and points out that he's the one who fought today, so his body should be hurting more. Lee coldly tells him that's his problem. So once again, MC gives in and walks over to massage her shoulders. While doing it, he asks if joining Invincible would be a bad idea. Lee agrees and asks what a loser like him would even do with those guys. She says Invincible is full of wannabe thugs, just a bunch of high school kids acting tough, and she's clearly sick of them. Still, Lee thinks Kim should find out what Invincible really wants, since they're probably going to keep bothering him. She says he needs to know who he's dealing with, and warns him to stay away from some of the trash in that group. He asks who he could even talk to. Lee reminds him that Dai once wanted to join Invincible, so he should ask him. Thinking that's a good idea, the protagonist goes to see Dai-won the next day. Outside the school football field, MC tells Dai-won he wants to know more about Invincible, but Dai-won says he doesn't know much. He only wanted in because Seokju told him to. Then Daewon decides they should just call Seokju and ask him directly. As soon as the call starts, Suku teases Doyeon about how bad things have been between them lately, but Doyeon says they're not finished yet. He asks what Suku knows about Invincible, but Suku doesn't know much either. All he says is that Invincible has a lot of business going on and he only told Doyeon to join so he could learn more. Then Suku remembers he knows a former member of Invincible and asks if Doyeon wants to be connected with him. Doyeon says yes, that would help a lot. Seokju quickly changes the subject to Doyeon's girl and offers advice, which annoys Doyeon enough to hang up. Later that night, Doyeon and Kim head out to meet the informant. He thanks Doyeon for making time, but Doyeon says it's fine. He's been curious about Invincible too. Then he asks why he suddenly cares so much. The protagonist explains that Invincible has been getting involved with him lately, and he doesn't know how dangerous they really are. Just then, their informant shows up. In a nervous voice, he asks if they're the ones looking into Invincible. When they say yes, he tells them they should talk somewhere else. Once they reach an alley, the informant asks if either of them smokes. Both say no. Then he asks MC why he wants to know about Invincible, and MC says they've been involving themselves in his life. Right away, the informant warns him not to get mixed up with them. He says that whole gang is trash, especially Philip. In fact, he calls Philip a devil. Kim is surprised by how scared he sounds and asks if he's really talking about Philip, then wants to know what's so bad about him. That's when the informant starts telling them what happened in the past. He takes them back a year to when Philip first approached him, Myung-suk. Philip asked if Myung-suk had good connections, then told him to sell something. One look was enough for Myung-suk to realize it was an adhesive hallucinogen. Confused, he asks why Philip would hand him something like that, and refuses on the spot. But Philip tells him selling it isn't a big deal. He reminds Myung-suk that he knows people with influence, and even his brother works at a club. Philip says Invincible's new empire needs money to grow, and that's why he's asking for the favor. Myung-suk apologizes again and turns Philip down. He says he can rough people up for money, but selling hallucinogens is too far for him. He even admits he's too scared to deal drugs. Still, he says he'll fight whenever needed. Trying to smooth things over, he offers to treat Philip to a PC bang, and asks if they're still good. Philip tells him there are no hard feelings. That night, Philip, Myung-suk, and the others party hard. They decide to drink as much as they want with no holding back. Soon, Myung-suk brags that Invincible will be huge within a year. He says he used to be a beast in middle school, but the others remind him they all could fight back then. One of them notices Philip isn't drinking and asks if the leader gets a pass. Philip says one drink is enough to knock him out, so he'd rather stay sober. Still, he's happy watching them enjoy themselves. The rest keep drinking and having fun without him. After a while, everyone is passed out in a drunken mess. Only Philip is still awake. Like he planned for this. He quietly stands up and walks over to the unconscious Myung-suk. Then he sticks a hallucinogen patch on Myung-suk's arm and leaves. The next morning, Myung-suk wakes up in total panic. His body feels out of control, and he has no clue what's happening. Then he spots the patch on his left arm and freaks out. Philip shows up and says things would have been easier if Myung-suk had just agreed to sell the adhesive hallucinogens. He tells Myung-suk one hit is enough to get someone hooked, then orders him to listen carefully. Philip gives him 1 week to sell everything he'll hand over. If he does, he'll get another dose. He even tells Myung-suk to accept what's already happened instead of wasting time feeling guilty. From that day on, Myung-suk keeps selling drugs for Philip. Addicted now, he has no choice if he wants more. Little by little, he falls apart. One day, Myung-suk uses the stash he was supposed to sell. When Philip finds out, he confronts him. Myung-suk starts begging right away. He apologizes, asks for more drugs, and swears he'll sell them properly this time. Philip doesn't buy it. He knows Myung-suk will just use them himself again. Since he's no longer useful, Philip kicks him out of Invincible and turns to leave. Myung-suk keeps begging, telling Philip not to abandon him and asking for more drugs. Philip answers by shoving him to the ground and calling him a pathetic worm. All Myung-suk can do is watch Philip walk away after using him for so long. As Philip moves through the empty city, a group of wannabe gangsters blocks his path. At the center is a built-up guy who asks if Philip is the one who ruined his brother's life. Holding a golf club, he says he's going to beat Philip senseless. Philip just laughs. He's clearly sure he can handle these crybabies by himself. The group rushes him at once, some from behind, some from the side, and the rest from the front. Philip slips past every attack with ease. He doesn't look tired, nervous, or stressed at all. Instead, he drops them one after another like it's a game, barely breaking a sweat. In seconds, Philip tears through the whole group while they flail around helplessly. A little later, he lets his jacket fall, and the same guys who charged him are now sprawled on the ground, covered in stab wounds. Back in the present, the ruined Myung-suk warns him once again to stay far away from Han Philip. He is left speechless. The next day at school, he heads straight for the sports storage room. He cracks the door open and steps into Invincible's hideout, ready to say what he came to say. Kim walks up to Philip, who asks if he's finally decided to join Invincible. Keeping a firm face, the protagonist says no. He's rejecting the offer. Philip says that's a shame, but if MC has decided, there's not much to do about it. Then he reminds him what refusing him really means. Philip isn't used to being told no. Using that pressure, he asks whether the protagonist is ready to become his enemy and live with the fallout. The threat rattles MC. He has no idea how to escape this without ending up dead. Even so, he forces himself to say it again. He won't join Invincible. What Kim doesn't get is that refusing a drug boss to his face is dangerous. Just as expected, Philip takes offense. He repeats that no one turns him down and then asks if he really wants to stand against him instead of beside him. Stammering, he says he doesn't want to be enemies. He just still won't join. Philip demands to know why. The protagonist hesitates, unsure if he should say it, but finally admits he's heard Invincible isn't a gang anyone should join. People told him the members are trash and that they do terrible things. That's why he wants no part of it. After saying that, Kim bows and says he'll be leaving. As MC turns away, Philip tries to stop him, insisting those stories are all lies, and Invincible doesn't do any of that. He also gets angry that rumors like that are spreading. But is he really telling the truth? Then Philip cuts himself off, when he notices he has already walked out. After that, Lee asks Philip why he wants the protagonist so badly. Philip says it should be obvious. Kim is talented. He hasn't seen anyone improve that fast besides him. Philip believes that if he gets MC under his control, the MC could be very useful. Lee isn't so sure and doubts he will change his mind that easily. But Philip is convinced the protagonist will come around sooner or later, so he tells Lee to wait and see. Of course, Invincible's leader isn't that stupid. Philip already has a backup plan in case MC never agrees to join. He says if he can't have him, then no one else will, so he'll destroy him. Meanwhile, in the clubroom, Dasam, Doyoon, and the protagonist are watching anime when Dasam remembers hearing that Invincible asked him to join. She asks if it's true, and the protagonist confirms it. That annoys her right away. She can't believe those creeps try to get their hands on the loser group's hero. Dasam tells MC not to let lowlife sway him, and says a real hero stays on the right path. Rubbing the back of his head, he says he just turned them down. Dasam is relieved to hear he didn't go down the wrong road. She grabs his hands and excitedly says she's a huge fan, but the protagonist awkwardly asks her to stop calling herself that. Doyoon sits there quietly, watching it all. Hearing Dasam call herself Kim's fan really gets under his skin. Still, he tells himself it isn't all bad since MC is a genuinely good guy. The two keep chatting while Doyoon watches in silence. That's when it really hits him. Dasam and he are actually close, and seeing them like this makes him jealous. He starts regretting the bad path he took when he used to have such a good connection with Dasam. They're still close now, but Doyoon wishes he could have stayed by her side back then too. What matters most though is that he's beside her now. Then Dasam brings up a Korean fighter in a WFC match and asks if they want to watch the fight. The protagonist is surprised she even follows MMA. Dasam explains that she got into it around the time Doyoon started learning martial arts, and now she always watches when a Korean fighter is on the card. Once they play the match, one fighter is already far ahead, but the one on the ground stays calm, trusts his jujitsu, locks in a triangle, and wins. His name is Park Do. After the fight, Dasam is shocked that the guy on the bottom still pulled off the win. Kim explains it was a setup. The fighter used a trick to turn things around. Dasam quickly notices it's the same move MC used to beat Doyoon. Embarrassed, MC asks her not to bring that up in front of him. You'd think that loss would be on Doyoon's mind, but it isn't. What really bothers him is how he got so good. He asks if he trains at a gym, but he reacts like he's never even heard the word. So Doyoon asks how he got that strong. Right away, Kim remembers Lee warning him not to tell anyone she was teaching him. Then Dasam blurts out that the protagonist has been learning from Lee. MC instantly freaks out, saying she was not supposed to reveal that. He even says he almost died the day he told Dasam who his teacher was. Dasam can only apologize, and MC knows it's too late now. So he turns to Doyoon and begs him to keep it secret, or Lee will kill him. Doyoon starts wondering if they mean the Lee from his class. That only makes it stranger to him. The protagonist never went to a gym, yet he got this strong from training with a high school girl. The next day, Doyoon is walking down the hall when he notices Lee heading the same way. Then it clicks. This is the girl Kim and Dasam were talking about. He knows MC asked him to stay quiet, but curiosity wins. Doyoon walks up and asks if she's the one who taught him how to fight. Confused, Lee just goes, "What?" He keeps going and asks how she made Kim so strong so fast. Lee stays cold as ever and tells him to get lost. Then she turns away, annoyed that the protagonist let this slip. Doyoon still doesn't stop. If she trained MC, then she must be strong too. So he asks her to spar. He feels like he has to test her himself. He even says he'll go easy on her, because he's a guy, and that's what sets her off. Lee turns around and accepts the challenge. Later, they face off on the mats while Dasam and Kim watch from the side. Lee lays out the rules. No time limit, and it ends only when someone passes out or gives up. She adds that Doyoon can fight any way he wants. Doyoon steadies himself, knowing better than to look down on her just because she's a girl. The spar starts, and Lee opens with a kick. Doyoon reads it and tries to catch her leg so he can counter. He does manage to grab the kick, but the counter goes completely wrong. While he's still holding her leg, Lee spins all the way around and smashes him in the face with her other foot. Before he can answer back, she jumps in and lands another kick right on his face. That hit looks brutal. Kim cheers for Lee from the sidelines, while Dasam worries about Doyoon. He can't believe Lee landed such a clean kick while her other leg was trapped. To him, she's amazing. Dasam doesn't feel the same at all. She's mad Lee opens so hard, and says it's unfair. Back on the mat, both of them reset their distance after Lee clearly wins the first exchange. Doyoon wipes the blood from his nose, shocked by that opening attack. He realizes he was almost knocked out right away, so he tells himself to focus and settles back into stance. Lee doesn't wait. She fires a straight punch and Doyeon sees at once that he can dodge it. She throws a few more punches, but he slips past all of them with ease. Dawson is glad to see Doyeon still has his speed, but while he's settling in, Lee suddenly changes levels and lands a low kick cleanly. Watching closely, Kim notices just how fast Lee really is. Dawson gets annoyed and tells the protagonist he's cheering way too hard for Lee. The protagonist shoots back that Lee is his friend, then says Dawson is doing the exact same thing for Doyeon. She argues that Doyeon is her childhood friend. Their bickering escalates fast. Dawson suddenly asks if he wants to bet on the winner, and MC agrees right away. Hearing them yell, Lee tells both of them to shut up. Doyeon stares at Lee and says she seems awfully confident in her speed. Then he says he trusts his speed too. Right after that, he fires a fast, sharp, straight punch at her. Against most people, that would hurt a lot. But this is Lee. She blocks it with barely any effort. Then she tells him his attacks are too basic. Doyeon answers with the same punch from the other hand, but Lee dodges that one too. She counters with an uppercut. Doyeon sees it coming and blocks, but Lee is already thinking ahead. Her other hand slams into his liver, and this time he has no answer. He notices it, but all he can do is take the shot. Kim gets excited, so Daesum asks what a liver shot is. He explains that it hits the liver and makes it hard to breathe for a moment. Daesum yells to Doyeon that it's nothing, and tells him to just hold his breath, which proves pretty clearly she's not the fighter here. He realizes she's kind of scary, and at that same moment Lee suddenly rushes in. She gets over him and locks in a reverse triangle choke. The protagonist recognizes the move, but he's surprised she pulled it off standing up since it's usually done on the ground. Even so, he's impressed. Doyeon realizes he's caught in the same choke Kim used on him before, but this time he refuses to lose, so he uses all his strength and slams Lee to the mat. Lee stays down while Doyeon stands over her, breathing hard as he recovers from the choke. Then he realizes she's mixing strikes with jiu-jitsu and really knows MMA. At the same time, Lee tries to lure him in by telling him to come take full mount and hit her. She asks why he's hesitating, but Doyeon keeps his distance. He's figured out she wants him to walk into another choke, so he tells her to stand up instead. Lee frowns, then springs back up and says she wanted to end this quickly. Next, she starts getting in Doyeon's head, saying he should have trained every part of MMA instead of focusing so much on grappling. Then she says she'll only use strikes to match his weak skills. Those insults fire Doyeon up. He knows she taught Kim, the guy who beat him, but he used to be undefeated too. He wants to prove he's still a strong opponent. But fights like this are usually won with brains, and right now Doyeon is letting his emotions take over. The moment he throws a straight punch, Lee slips it and counters instantly, landing clean. Then she keeps punching, forcing Doyeon to cover up and block. One hit nearly shuts his lights off for a second and stars flash in his vision. When he recovers, the beating just keeps coming. Now Doyeon realizes he can't lose this badly. Kim tells Daesum that Doyeon is done. She can't understand how Lee's punches are so strong that he can't fight back. MC tells her to watch Lee's lead foot closely. He explains that every time Lee punches, she leans in and throws her whole weight onto that planted foot, driving it into the ground. That's why every one of her punches hits so hard. Kim adds that when Lee misses, she puts so much force into it that her whole body swings with the punch. Daesum quickly blurts out Lee's trick to Doyeon. Annoyed, he asks why she'd give that away. Now fired up, Doyeon says he'll finish this and throws another straight punch, but Lee slips past it again. So he switches things up and goes for a spinning back blow. Lee isn't phased at all. She catches his arm with ease and fires back with a spinning counter of her own. Even the protagonist is stunned that Lee just answered a backspin blow with one herself. Figuring this has gone on long enough, Lee decides to end it. She stops throwing light shots and drives one heavy punch straight into Doyeon's face. Doyeon has nothing left. After hanging on this long, he finally drops to the floor. Kim is blown away and quickly calls the match. Lee wins the spar. That night, they all sit down to eat. Everyone looks happy except Lee, who's annoyed that it's pizza. Daesum explains she made a bet with MC during the fight. She picked Doyeon, MC picked Lee, and the loser had to buy pizza for the winner. But even though he won, he still ended up paying. Daesum apologizes and says she forgot her wallet, which only makes him madder since she made the bet with no money. After a bite, Lee admits the pizza is really good. Meanwhile, Doyeon keeps staring at Lee, still shocked by how strong she is. What bothers him most is that he couldn't land even one clean hit. He fought hard and used his head, but Lee was on a whole nother level. He can't understand how someone her age got this strong. Unable to hold back anymore, Doyeon asks Lee how she became so strong. He wonders if she trained at a gym. Lee says yes, she did, then asks why he wants to know. Doyeon presses on, asking if she followed some special training plan. That puts Lee off, since she still has no clue where he's going with this. So she shrugs and says she just trained normally. Kim jumps in and calls her a genius if she thinks all of this was easy. Lee disagrees. If that's enough to make someone a genius, then anyone who goes to the gym counts. Doyeon then asks how long she's been training, and Lee says she started when she was 7, so it's been 9 years. That answer leaves everyone stunned. None of them expected her to have trained for that long. With that out, Lee explains more. Her older brother started martial arts first and used to bully her, so she got fed up and joined the gym herself, deciding the best way to deal with it was to get stronger. Doyeon tells her that with skills like that, she could easily become a successful martial artist. Lee stays cold and tells him he's being way too nosy and asking far too many questions. Still, she answers him. Lee says there are plenty of people as good as her or better, Besides, she doesn't want her face getting messed up from fighting. She's saving her looks for the person she hopes to meet someday. Kim thinks that reason is pretty weird. Dasum, though, gets it right away. Lee treats her skin like priceless treasure. Then Doyeon asks the big question. Will Lee teach him martial arts too? Lee shuts that down instantly. The protagonist cuts in and reminds Doyeon that he said he was done with fighting. Head lowered, Doyeon says martial arts and street fighting aren't the same thing. After sparring with Lee, he started wanting to become even stronger than he is now. That, he says, is why he wants Lee to teach him. Dasum can tell he means it, so she decides to help. She tells Lee that MC already takes lessons from her in exchange for learning how to fight. Hearing that, Lee immediately blows up at MC for spilling their secret. She even moves like she's about to punch him, but he quickly apologizes for telling. Dasum brings the talk back on track and says she's really good at Korean. She's always near the top in mock exams. Doyeon takes note of that while the protagonist is totally caught off guard. Then Dasum makes an offer. She'll tutor Lee in Korean if Lee agrees to teach Doyeon martial arts. She even promises to help Lee stay at the top in Korean. It's a great deal, but no one knows if Lee will take it. Then again, Lee actually seems to be thinking it over. Before long, she agrees, though she tells Dasum to make sure she keeps every promise she just made. Doyeon is touched that Dasum would go this far for him. Dasum then turns to Doyeon and warns him not to go down a bad path. He should use this training only to get stronger and stay healthy. The next morning, Lee gathers everyone at their usual rooftop spot. She says martial arts lessons start today, though she doesn't get why Dasum came too. Dasum says she wants to use it as stamina training. She also says her own martial arts background will help. Lee lets her stay but warns her not to get in the way. Then Lee says today's lesson is kick catches. Right then, Dasum suggests giving their group a name, and Lee clearly hates the idea. Kim, though, thinks it's great, and Doyeon agrees. Outvoted 3-1, Lee lets Dasum choose the name. What Dasum comes up with is completely ridiculous. Lee and the Little Rascals. No surprise, Lee protests right away, but Dasum thinks it's fun. And just like that, Lee and the Little Rascals is born. MC thought these calm days would last longer, but trouble was already on its way. Elsewhere, Gunhoo lies on his bed when his brother comes in to check on him. Gunhoo tells him to leave him alone. He just wants to stay like this. Word about Gunhoo losing spread fast. What ruined him even more was getting knocked out in one hit by some scrawny kid. Gunhoo feels completely humiliated and worries girls won't like him anymore. His brother bluntly reminds him they didn't really like him before either. His brother is fed up seeing him like this. Gritting his teeth, he tells Gunhoo to just wait. Then he heads to Kim's school. He's there for one reason only, to get revenge for his brother. His name is Song Joon-woo. He's also 17, and he already dropped out of school. He walks into a classroom and asks which one of them is him. The students all turn in shock, wondering what's going on and if Joon-woo is from another school. Then Kim shows up and says he's the one Joon-woo is looking for. Seeing how skinny and nerdy the protagonist looks, Joon-woo starts doubting Gunhoo really lost to him. The protagonist, meanwhile, doesn't get why this guy is acting so cocky when he's about the same size, so MC asks who he is. Joon-woo answers with a grin and a hard kick to his face, saying he's Gunhoo's younger brother. At the same moment, Lee becomes alert as the situation turns ugly. Kim reels from the kick and shows he's clearly hurt, but Joon-woo tells him not to act, saying he held back on purpose. The protagonist has no clue what this weirdo's problem is. This guy came into another school, entered a class that isn't his, asked for the protagonist, and kicked him the second he found him. The protagonist still doesn't understand what's happening, but before things can get worse, a teacher finally steps in and asks what's going on, reminding both of them that class is about to start. Joon-woo leans in and tells Kim he'll see him after school. Then he politely bows and apologizes to the teacher for causing trouble. The sudden switch leaves MC even more confused about who this guy is. All the while, Lee watches the whole thing closely, not missing a single detail. Later, outside school, Daesum is shocked to hear what happened to him. Concerned, he asks if the protagonist got hurt, but the protagonist says he's okay. At the same time, Dong-yu thinks that kick was insanely close, which means Joon-woo must be really skilled. After hearing it, the loser group gets mad that someone messed with their hero. One of them says he won't let Joon-woo slide, and the leader says they've got MC's back. MC tells them to relax. There's no need to jump in. He adds that Joon-woo probably won't come back for him. Then he is instantly proven wrong when Joon-woo shows up behind him and asks for a fight. Startled, the protagonist spins around and blurts out in surprise. Joon-woo repeats himself, but the protagonist says he has no reason to fight. Kim turns to settle down his loser group, only to find they're already walking away. Joon-woo presses him again, saying he's been waiting for this. MC asks why he keeps pushing so hard and says he doesn't want to fight. That finally starts to get under Joon-woo's skin. Losing patience, Joon-woo throws another kick at him and says it's for the same reason as before. He's here to pay the protagonist back for humiliating his brother. MC asks who he's even talking about. As he starts piecing it together, Joon-woo spells it out. It's Gyun-woo, the guy MC beat earlier, the long-haired muscular one. That makes him remember. Even so, he says no again. He didn't want to fight Gyun-woo either. He only did it because he had no choice. Joon-woo explains that loss crushed Gyun-woo's pride so badly that he's been shut up in his room and won't even come out. To him, winning this fight is the only way to give his brother his pride back. He asks Kim if he gets it now, then says not to judge him by his size. Joon-woo may look small, but he trusts his skills. To prove it, Joon-woo plants his hands down and snaps a kick through the air. The force is enough to make the protagonist's hair move. Then Junwoo reveals he's a taekwondo specialist. He says beating MC will be easy, and even claims he's stronger than his brother. Kim starts wondering if that might actually be true. Then he notices people gathering around Junwoo. They're starting to treat this like a real fight, and even a teacher asks if that's what's going on. He knows that if too many people notice him, Invincible will be on him again. So he realizes he has to avoid fighting for a while and stay out of the spotlight. That leaves him with one option: run. And that's exactly what the protagonist does. He takes off right away. Watching him flee, Junwoo wonders if Kim really thinks this is over. The next day, MC finds Junwoo sitting in a seat waiting for him. He asks for a fight again, but MC shuts him down. Junwoo calmly says he won't give up that easily. At lunch, Junwoo even follows him into the cafeteria. He asks if he doesn't go to school and how he has so much free time. Junwoo says he already dropped out. He doesn't stop there. Junwoo follows the protagonist into the bathroom too, still demanding a fight. Even in the locker room, he's there asking again, while Kim keeps dodging him. Later, MC tells Lee about all this while she eats lunch sitting on top of him. Stuck under her, he can barely stay still. Lee says she's only doing it for his own good. Then she brings the talk back to Junwoo and says he should just accept. Since Junwoo is about the same size, she asks what he's so afraid of. The protagonist explains that he doesn't want Invincible noticing him. Lee suggests an easy fix: fight Junwoo somewhere private and end it. Kim sees that she has a point. Besides, it's clear Junwoo isn't going to leave him alone. The guy has followed him almost everywhere, so MC decides it's better to finally accept. Right then, he hits his limit and collapses, making Lee fall on top of him. Later that day, the protagonist heads to school. Just as expected, Junwoo approaches him again and asks for a fight. He says he won't stop until his brother's honor is restored. That's when Kim realizes this whole thing is about pride. So later, he goes to Junwoo and apologizes for embarrassing him. MC says he only won by luck, and that Junwoo is still stronger than him. He tells him not to feel bad for losing to someone like him. But then everything gets worse. A group of students walks by and starts mocking Junwoo for losing to him, saying he lost to a nobody and a little kid. They keep piling on, joking that he isn't number 2 anymore, more like number 100 or 999. That hits Junwoo hard. Junwoo snaps, grabs Kim by the collar, and says they need to fight right now. The protagonist sees how obsessed he is and understands there's no escaping this. If he keeps refusing, Junwoo will just keep chasing him. So MC finally agrees to the duel. The next day, they face off in a parking lot. Only Lee and Junwoo are there to watch. Lee for him, Junwoo for Junwoo. Before it starts, Junwoo tells his brother he'll win back his honor, but Junwoo says he doesn't need to take it that far. As soon as the match begins, Junwoo asks Kim what martial art he uses. With a confident grin, he answers his own question about himself, just like he said before. His base is taekwondo. Then he makes the first move and fires off a kick. The protagonist blocks it with both arms, but even then he can feel how strong Junwoo is. Messing also realizes Junwoo is fast. If he'd reacted even a little later, that kick could have done real damage. But Junwoo doesn't stop there. He follows with a enro kick, striking in the air with both feet one after the other. Junwoo proudly says that's his brother's specialty. Lee is clearly irritated by how loud he's being. Junwoo glances at Lee and immediately starts wondering who she is. Before even speaking to her, he decides she's exactly his type. He leans over and quietly asks who she is and whether she came to cheer for Kim. Lee instantly tells him to back off. Instead of backing down, Junwoo actually likes how cold she is. Then he wonders why each side only got one spectator. Since he's here for Junwoo and Lee is here for him, he asks if she's his girlfriend. That really sets Lee off. In a sharp voice, she tells him to mind his own business and asks if he doesn't value his life. Junwoo immediately apologizes, saying she's terrifying. But somehow that only makes him more interested. He decides this ice princess attitude is exactly what he likes. So he shoots his shot and asks for her number. This time Lee tells him to piss off. Junwoo notices and tells his brother to stop flirting and watch the fight. Junwoo raises the pressure and starts throwing even stronger kicks at the protagonist. The protagonist dodges one, but before he can react, another kick lands and hurts him badly. From the side, Junwoo starts cheering loudly for his brother again, which annoys Lee even more. Meanwhile, Junwoo keeps attacking at full force. He mixes up his kicks so well that MC can't predict what's coming next. Then Junwoo uses that enro kick combo again and lands it cleanly. At that point, Kim realizes he can't just keep eating hit after hit. Junwoo follows up with a whirlwind taekwondo kick. Whenever he tries to strike back, Junwoo retreats right away. He's getting completely shut down, and it looks like Junwoo really wasn't lying about being better than his brother. The protagonist notices the pattern. Every time he throws a punch, Junwoo backs out of range. At this rate, the protagonist won't be able to hurt him at all. Then the story cuts to MC training with Lee before the fight. She asks if his opponent really uses taekwondo, and once MC confirms it, Lee says taekwondo is a very strong style. But like any martial art, it has counters. She believes Kim has a chance if he can get in close. She explains that taekwondo has very fast in and out movement, which makes it hard to land a punch. He asks what he's supposed to do, and Lee tells him he needs to break his opponent's footing if he wants an opening. Her plan is simple: catch Junwoo off guard and keep hammering his legs with low kicks until his footing weakens. Back in the present, the protagonist decides to follow Lee's plan. He starts by throwing a jab to block Junwoo's sight, then snaps in a low kick. In the flashback, Lee reminds Kim that low kicks are fouls in taekwondo. That means Jungwoo probably isn't used to dealing with them. Back in the fight, MC lands another low kick. Jungwoo gets annoyed and asks if his whole plan is just spamming low kicks. The protagonist says nothing, but that's clearly a yes. Right now, it's all he's got. Then he throws another jab to block Jungwoo's sight and goes for one more low kick. This time Jungwoo reads it and hops away. Smirking, Jungwoo tells him that trick won't keep working. Right after that, he fires a straight kick at MC's head. The counter catches MC off guard, but he keeps going. He decides to stick with the low kicks anyway. But now the plan is failing, because Jungwoo dodges again and answers with another front kick, this time to the protagonist's collarbone. It hurts badly. Jungwoo keeps the pressure on with non-stop kicks. Kim avoids some, but the ones that land do real damage. Gunhoo gets fired up watching his brother go all out, but he's also impressed that MC still refuses to quit. Lee starts worrying that he is just standing there and eating hits. She wants him to focus. The protagonist realizes the low kicks aren't enough anymore and he has no clue what to try next. Then he remembers Lee mentioning another weak point in Taekwondo. She once knew a guy at her old gym who practiced it, and that's where she noticed a pattern. Taekwondo fighters love the backspin kick. It's strong, but the move is big and leaves their back open. In Taekwondo, if someone falls, the ref lets them get back up, so people throw that kick without much fear. MMA doesn't work like that. So Lee tells Kim to attack the moment Jungwoo turns around for a backspin kick. Back in the present, MC decides to use that second tip. Just like Lee predicted, Jungwoo moves in for a backspin kick. He sees it instantly and times his move just right. He rushes in, grabs Jungwoo from behind and tries to drag him down. Jungwoo fights hard to stay upright while Kim gives everything he has to force him to the floor. A few seconds later, the protagonist finally throws Jungwoo down and then everything gets weird. During the struggle, Jungwoo's clothes rip, revealing that Jungwoo is actually a girl. MC and Lee just stare in shock, frozen as they process what they just learned. He can't believe the person he was fighting was a girl. Still on the ground, she yells at him, asking why that should matter, then calls him a bastard too. Kim awkwardly covers his eyes and says he thought she was a guy because she kept calling her brother Hyung. Girls usually say appa, so that threw him off. More importantly, he begs her to put her clothes back on. She snaps that she's wearing leggings and asks what kind of pervert he is. Red-faced, the protagonist apologizes, but admits it's hard to keep fighting now that he knows she's a girl. She explodes again, asking what's wrong with being a girl, tells him to shut up, and says the fight isn't over. She still has to avenge her brother. When she says Hyung again, Kim points out that's exactly why he got confused, but she fires back that she'll call her brother whatever she wants. Nearby, Lee is still stunned. Now that she knows the truth, Lee realizes the girl's voice did sound pretty high. Her brother, standing beside Lee, looks confused and asks how they could ever mistake his sister for a guy when she was obviously a girl, but Ji was more upset about her ripped pants. She glares at Kim and asks what he's going to do about them. They were her favorite pair. Still embarrassed, MC apologizes again and promises to pay for them tomorrow. Then he suggests maybe they should stop fighting since things got awkward. Ji-woo shoots right back up and yells no. She tears off what's left of the pants and says it's better this way. They were just getting in the way. Then it starts raining, and Lee, not wanting to get soaked, tells him to finish this already. Round 2 begins, and Ji-woo stares at Kim and warns him not to hold back just because she's a girl. She says she can fight better than most guys, and she means it. Then she jumps up, spins hard, and throws a 540-degree taekwondo kick at the protagonist. He barely blocks it, but the force behind it is still insane. Ji-woo grins and says that's just the start, then speeds up even more. Every kick hits hard. Kim puts his arms up to block, but even then he's still taking damage. In a quick flashback, Lee tells MC Taekwondo has another weakness. Those kicks are powerful, but they burn a lot of stamina, so she tells him to endure them until his opponent runs out of gas. Back in the present, Kim does exactly that. He tells himself to hang on a little longer until a chance appears, so for now he backs off to make space. Ji-woo is caught off guard and gets annoyed. She calls him a bastard for running and asks if he's scared. He says of course she's scary. He asks her to imagine what it's like having those crazy fast kicks flying at his face. Then Kim suddenly stops. He knows he can't let her recover, so now it's his turn to attack. He throws jabs and crosses, and Ji-woo slips past all of them. But the real setup was the low kick, and that one lands clean. From her face, it definitely hurt. Without stopping, the protagonist lands another low kick, then another and another. From the side, Lee silently urges him to keep attacking the legs. If Ji-woo loses her legs, the heart of Taekwondo, she'll be stuck. Sure enough, her movement starts to slow. She throws out a desperate counter, but Kim ducks and pulls back in time. He's already done serious damage with those low kicks, and he can tell Ji-woo is hurting and almost out of energy. This is his opening, so he steps in with a jab, and it lands. Her footwork is breaking down from the damage, and she can't retreat fast enough. That's when Kim realizes her legs are basically done, and her stamina is almost gone. The fight is nearly finished. Seeing that, MC rushes in. As Ji-woo turns for a back kick, he catches her leg mid-spin and shoots for a double leg takedown. It crashed down, and Kim quickly locks in an armbar. In the process, though, he ends up grabbing more than he meant to. He warns her to tap before her arm breaks. Ji-woo refuses. She says she'll never give up. Kim keeps telling her to tap, but she won't do it. Then Ji-woo's brother steps in and tells him to stop, admitting his sister lost. Both Kim and Ji-woo are stunned, but after a pause, the protagonist finally lets her go. Ji-woo is still furious, but her brother says there's no reason to keep going. MC has clearly won. Hearing that, he can't help feeling thrilled. He actually did it. Jiwoo though is still mad, cursing and punching the ground until her brother gently tells her to stop. He tells her she fought well. She starts to say she only wanted to avenge him, but a sneeze cuts her off. Then another one hits. She's soaked from the rain, freezing, and still frustrated. That's when Kim steps in with a kind move, offering her his uniform and telling her to put it on before she gets sick. He admits it's a little dirty, but says it's better than nothing. That actually works because Jiwoo starts blushing. Later, Jiwoo is on her brother's back under the umbrella Kim had brought. He asks if she's okay and where she got hurt. Jiwoo says it's just her leg, so she'll be fine. After a short silence, her brother says the protagonist seems like a decent guy. Once the protagonist found out Jiwoo was a girl, he only used open hand attacks and didn't fully crank the armbar, probably because he didn't want to hurt her. When he finally locked it in, Kim even looked at him like he wanted the fight stopped. Her brother admits that losing to someone like MC doesn't feel so bad. He adds that MC's a good guy, so Jiwoo should let it go too. Jiwoo blinks, confused. He asks if she was really still fighting him just because he lost to him, then says he doesn't care about that anymore, so she shouldn't either. That only makes Jiwoo look annoyed. A memory hit Jiwoo. As a little kid, she was surrounded by other children mocking her, calling her a boy and saying she wasn't pretty. Then her brother showed up and marched right over, asking what they had just called his sister. Big brother mode fully on. He told them to quit making fun of her. Once the kids ran off, he grinned at Jiwoo and asked if he looked cool. He told her that if anyone teased her again, she should come to him. Patting her head, he told her to stop crying, and she sniffled out a quiet, "Okay." She calmed down, but then another memory came back. It was her brother after losing to Kim, complaining about it all day like a sore loser. Jiwoo told him that kind of weakness didn't fit him. He laughed and asked if he really looked that pathetic. She said yes, but got cut off by a sneeze. Looks like they both caught colds. By the next day, the weather had cleared up. At Yongmin High, Kim was hanging out with his friends. He thanked Daesung for the anime recommendation from last night and said he liked it. Daesung smiled and promised another one later. Then they all suddenly paused. Jiwoo and her brother had come back to the school. She said she came to return the protagonist's clothes, casually calling him a bastard while handing them over. She also mentioned they were dry cleaned. MC thanked her, then remembered he still owed her for the clothes ruined during their fight. Jiwoo brushed it off, saying that just happens in a fight, admitting his sister lost. Still, Kim insisted on buying her dinner and said Gunhuri should come too. The second food came up. Jiwoo was in. Gunhuri liked the idea too. He invited his friends along, but Lee instantly shut it down, and the other two passed. Then Gunhuri suddenly walked up to Lee with a flower, trying to charm her. He asked if she liked flowers, then joked that he couldn't tell which was the real flower, her or the one in his hand. The line was so bad, Lee just looked disgusted and turned away. Gunhuri kept going and asked if she liked movies, but Lee told him never to talk to her again and to get lost. Man, that rejection was brutal. So much for just getting a simple no. Later, they ended up at Burger King. Kim bought burgers but awkwardly asked if that was enough. He said he could pay for something nicer. Jiwoo said burgers were fine, and Gunhuri added that they were actually her favorite. Then the protagonist asked something more serious, why she dropped out of school. Since it came out of nowhere, he quickly explained. She kept showing up to challenge him and seemed to have a lot of free time, so he got curious. Gunhuri jumped in and said it wasn't a huge deal. He revealed that Jiwoo had quit school while trying to make it on YouTube. Embarrassed, she admitted it. She said she left school to focus on YouTube because things were going well at first, but then everything fell apart. Now she just works part-time and she doesn't really have any clear goal. Then she looked at Gunhuri and told him not to underestimate her. One day she'd hit 1 million subscribers. He grinned and said if she got that big, she could do collabs with pretty guests. Jiwoo called him out for always thinking about girls, then sneezed again. Kim could tell her cold was getting pretty bad. After they finished eating, they went outside. Jiwoo and Gunhuri thanked him, and MC was glad they enjoyed it. Jiwoo asked how he was getting home and said she and Gunhuri were taking the bus, but she started sneezing again mid-sentence. He suddenly told them to wait and ran off. Jiwoo asked where he was going, and Gunhuri guessed he probably rushed off to use the bathroom. A little later, Kim came back with medicine. He handed it to Jiwoo and said it was warm ginger tea and cold medicine, so it should help. He said it was probably his fault she got sick, so he wanted her to take it and get better soon. Then he admitted he didn't know when they'd meet again, but told her to stay healthy. He said the same to Gunhuri and started to leave. Gunhuri, impressed, praised Kim's manners. Then he started sneezing a ton too, and asked Jiwoo if he could have some medicine. Jiwoo stayed quiet. Looking at the bag, she thought that this brat really gave her a cold, and then brought her medicine for it. So yeah, Kim won her over again. The next day at Yongmin High, everyone was in class when the teacher walked in. He told them to sit down and announced a transfer student was joining them. Then he asked her to introduce herself. To everyone's surprise, it was Jiwoo. She introduced herself as a 17-year-old re-enrolled student, and it turned out she was in the same class as Kim. He was completely stunned, while Lee looked annoyed. Jiwoo, though, seemed happy about it. Even with a few ups and downs, their calm days went on. But another fight was coming soon. Ever since she enrolled, Jiwoo kept following Kim everywhere. At first, he tried to ignore it, but eventually he'd had enough. He asked why she kept trailing him around. Jiwoo instantly denied it and said she went to the school too, so she could walk wherever she wanted. Then she pointed at him and said since she didn't know the school well, he could at least show her around. Kim nervously adjusted his glasses and said she should probably ask the class president, but she said she didn't even know who that was, so that option was out. The protagonist sighed and finally agreed to give her a tour. He started showing her around the snack shop, cafeteria, art room, music room, and finally the sports field. There, he explained that first years usually used it during PE. Just then, a soccer ball rolled over and one of the players asked them to send it back. Jiwoo didn't throw it, she kicked it. The ball bent perfectly into the goal, leaving everyone shocked. Kim stared and told her she was amazing at soccer. Jiwoo just shrugged and said she was in the soccer club in elementary school. Then she went to the basketball court, made a shot, and said she was in the basketball club in middle school too. Like that wasn't enough. She ran to the track and started sprinting, saying she could do 100 meters in 14 seconds. MC was blown away. He asked if there was anything she couldn't do. She was seriously good at everything. Trying to understand her, he asked if doing all those sports meant she just loved sports or maybe got bored fast. Jiwoo shook her head and said it was the opposite. She was just really curious, so when something interested her, she went all in. That reminded her of something from a few days earlier, when Gunhoo asked if she was re-enrolling because of Kim. She instantly blushed and yelled, "What?" From her reaction alone, Gunhoo figured it out and asked if she liked Kim. She denied it, but he just laughed. He said that was nonsense. Everyone in their family falls in love way too easily. Him, their mom, their dad, all the same. Jiwoo quickly said it wasn't like that. She tried to explain, not very well, that she was only a little curious. That's all. She said she didn't know why, but she wanted to find out what kind of person he really was. Gunhoo told her he already knew she couldn't resist doing whatever she wanted, and going back to school wasn't a bad thing either. Then, still teasing, he said he hoped things went well with Kim. She insisted it wasn't like that, but her blushing gave her away. Back at school, class was still going on, and the protagonist thought that even if helping Lee mattered, he really needed to focus on his own grades too. He told himself he couldn't keep neglecting his own schoolwork. Then he felt someone poking him with a foot. It was Jiwoo. Leaning in, she whispered to ask what he was doing after school. Kim whispered back, asking if she was crazy for doing this in class, but still answered that he had club activities. From behind them, Lee noticed the whispering and wondered what they were doing instead of paying attention. Meanwhile, she had no clue what the teacher was even talking about. Later, they ended up in the club room. Kim was shocked that Jiwoo had followed him there too and asked why. She said that since she re-enrolled, she wanted to take things seriously this time. MC told her that still didn't mean she had to follow him everywhere. He admitted Jiwoo had already seemed strange when she kept chasing him to fight, but now this felt even stranger. Right then, the other club members came in and instantly recognized Jiwoo as the girl who was with the protagonist before. Jiwoo introduced herself and said she wanted to join the club. Dasum looked surprised, then welcomed her, and introduced herself too. Soon the last members showed up, apologizing for being late. Dasum quickly introduced Jiwoo, and they said they remembered seeing her before, but something about them felt off. They all seemed unusually gloomy, and Dasum asked what was up with their clothes. They looked like expensive brand name stuff, so she asked about it. Awkwardly, they answered, yeah and not really. Kim asked what that meant. That's when they admitted some shady upperclassmen had forced them to buy the clothes. Those seniors said they were giving them a special deal, selling the clothes for used item prices. One of the boys said it felt like they were picking easy targets like clueless first years. They were sure the clothes were fake. Obviously fake, but they couldn't refuse. When they tried, the seniors threatened to bully them. Dawson was stunned. Things had gotten that bad. Kim stood up with a hard look and asked who those seniors were. What MC didn't know yet was that the one behind it all was Park Dosyap, the fifth strongest member of the infamous Invincible gang. Later, they went outside and led Kim to Dosyap. He pointed at the blonde guy and asked if he was the one who forced them to buy the stuff. They said yes. At that moment, the protagonist realized he was in serious trouble if he confronted him, especially since he was with Invincible. The protagonist thought about how the gang had kept trying to recruit him, and he'd been avoiding them the whole time. Shaken, MC apologized. He said he really had wanted to help when he first heard about it, but he didn't know Invincible was involved. He admitted he'd been staying away from the gang for personal reasons and said there was nothing he could do. His friends told him it was fine, and that listening already helped. One said they'd just take it as getting pushed around again, and reporting them would only make it worse. Another said he just hoped the gang wouldn't come after them again. Kim could only say sorry one more time. Meanwhile, Dosyap and his friends talked about the wallets in their bag. Dosyap said he bought them for 2001 each from a guy he knew. One of them said if this kept up, they'd be rich soon, then asked if the wallets were all fake. Dosyap said they were. The guy then asked if Philip knew about this little side business. Dosyap said Philip didn't, and that this was just his own way to make extra cash. Then he told them to start selling, beginning with the first years. So they went around stopping students and claiming the wallets were real luxury brands. When some of the kids questioned them, Dosyap's crew got hostile, asking if they were being called scammers, and saying that if anyone touched a wallet, they had to buy it because they'd left fingerprints on it. If the students still refused, Dosyap's group used force, slapping the first years and insulting them until they finally paid. By the end, they'd made good money, and Dosyap bragged that making cash was easy. While they were walking, they spotted Kim's friends, the same boys they'd extorted earlier, eating lunch. Dosyap recognized them right away. One guy asked if they were going to sell to them again, and Dosyap laughed, saying repeat buyers were the easiest marks. After laughing it off, they walked over to the 3 first years and said they wanted a quick talk. They took them behind the school where no one would see. There, Dosyap asked if they'd used what they bought before. The boys nervously said they were just keeping it, and that made Dasyup and his crew crack up. Then Dasyup pulled out more wallets and claimed they were real, expensive, and definitely not fake. Smirking, he offered them a student discount 200,000 won each. Skinny Glasses hesitantly said they'd already bought something before, hoping to get out of it. Dasyup just told them to buy again and give it to their girlfriends. Fat Glasses awkwardly replied that they obviously didn't have girlfriends. Trying to stay polite, Skinny Glasses said they didn't want to buy anything and asked him to let it go. Dasyup paused, then answered in a threatening voice, "Oh really?" Without warning, he slapped Skinny Glasses hard across the face. With a twisted grin, Dasyup said he was politely asking them to buy the wallets too. Flustered, Skinny Glasses repeated that they'd already bought from him and had no money left. Dasyup said they could pay little by little over a few months, like it was some amazing deal. But Fat Glasses spoke up again and asked if the wallets were even real. He said it was starting to feel like they were being forced to buy fakes. That set Dasyup off and he punched Fat Glasses in the stomach, then kept beating him while calling him a pig. When he was done, he walked over to Skinny Glasses and asked if he still wouldn't buy one after seeing all that. Then Dasyup grabbed the boy's bag of chips, scooped up dirt, and dumped it inside. He even flicked cigarette ash into the bag. After that, he gave Skinny Glasses a choice: eat everything in the bag and leave, or buy the wallet and leave. Skinny Glasses begged him to stop, but Dasyup didn't care. He grabbed the boy's face, forced his mouth open, and poured the filthy mess straight in. Then he shut his mouth and told him to chew. When the boy refused, Dasyup grabbed his head and started punching his jaw, screaming at him to chew. In the end, the boy opened his mouth, blood filling it. But Dasyup still kept going, slamming his head to the ground and punching him while demanding to know if he still wouldn't buy. Skinny Glasses got beaten so badly he wet himself. That's when the only boy who hadn't been hit yet stepped in and begged Dasyup to stop. He promised to send the money, and he did. Once it came through, Dasyup mocked them for not buying sooner, then started laughing like a maniac. He tossed them the wallet, told them to use it well, and said he'd see them again soon. The wallet landed right in the puddle of pee. The other two hurried over to help Skinny Glasses up. Meanwhile, nearby, Kim was walking around and checking his phone. When he looked up, he saw his three friends and asked what they were doing there, but then he noticed how awful they looked and immediately asked what happened. After a pause, they told him everything. As soon as Kim heard it, rage hit him and he clenched his fist. That night, he sat outside his house thinking about what had happened to his friends. He was furious they got beaten like that, but he didn't know what to do. Part of him wanted to go after Dasyup right away, but Dasyup was invincible, so Kim held back. Taking on that gang scared him. What if things got even worse? In the end, he felt like a coward, too scared to do anything. Then Lee walked over and asked why he was sitting out there alone. Her timing felt perfect, so he quickly asked if she could come with him somewhere. He followed her to a hidden spot, where she pulled out a cigarette, lit it, and casually told him to keep watch. Kim was shocked. She still hadn't quit. Lee just scoffed and asked who wanted his opinion, then smirked and called him an annoying loser for acting superior. The protagonist gave a nervous laugh and said there was something he wanted to tell her, something that had been stuck in his head for a while. He explained that one of his club friends had been beaten really badly, and the guy who did it was from Invincible. Kim said he wanted to confront Dasyup, get the money back, and make him stop, but the truth was he was scared of what would happen. That gang frightened him, so maybe it was better not to go near Invincible at all. He asked Lee what she thought, but when he turned around, she was gone. Confused, he heard her voice behind him asking why he was talking to himself. Kim blinked and asked when she finished smoking. She just said, "Just now." Then she told him she agreed. It was better not to get involved with Invincible. She said they seemed like the kind of trash nobody should mess with. Going near them would only bring trouble. Then she asked if this wasn't exactly what he wanted. Nobody was bothering him anymore. She reminded him that he'd asked her to teach him how to fight, and that's exactly what she did. Even the bullies had stopped targeting him. He got what he wanted, so shouldn't he just stay quiet? Why was he trying to get involved now? Did he think he was some hero of justice? She told him straight, no matter how strong he thought he was, someone stronger would always exist. As a final warning, she said getting into something like this would only get him hurt. Kim had to admit Lee was right. He learned to fight so people would stop picking on him, and now nobody touched him. He had finally gotten what he wanted, so maybe he really should just keep his head down. He was thinking that on the way to school when he suddenly heard students whispering. He looked over and saw Dasyup in front of Fatty and the other guy who hadn't been beaten up. Dasyup was demanding the rest of the money and asking where the skinny kid with glasses was. The answer: he was absent. They were outside their club room. The commotion brought Dasyup and Doyen out, and when Dasyup saw Dasyup's group, she asked if they were the ones selling fake luxury goods to students. One of the guys told her to stay out of it, but Dasyup admitted it himself. Then with a smirk, Dasyup said the stuff was obviously fake. No student would be walking around with that many expensive items. Dasyup claimed they were real, and said he got them from a guy he knew in business. Then he stepped closer, told her she was pretty, and offered her $100 to spend the day with him. He added that most girls gave in for that much, and asked if she would too. His boys started laughing, but Doyen snapped. He grabbed Dasyup by the collar and yelled at him to take it back. Dasyup answered with a headbutt. Then he laughed. Right after that, he showed off with a few boxing moves and drove a punch into Doyen's stomach, blasting him back into the club room. The hit did real damage. Doyen was hurt so badly he couldn't stand. Dasyup cackled and mocked him, saying he acted tough, but was nothing but talk. On his way out, he warned everyone not to mess with Invincible if they knew what was good for them. Once Dasyup and his crew left, The students nearby started whispering that they were terrified. Kim felt the same. He was shaking. Later, MC headed to the gym storage room, the hidden base of Invincible. Carrying bags full of the stuff Dosiap sold, he walked in and asked for refunds for everything sold to the first years. Dosiap just laughed and said he wasn't in the mood. So Kim told him if he wouldn't pay back the money, they should fight. Dosiap looked surprised for a second, but he kept talking. If he lost, Dosiap could take his money and bully him however he wanted. But if the protagonist won, Dosiap had to stop bullying people. Dosiap burst out laughing. Then he gave Kim a nasty look and said he'd wanted to fight him anyway. He hated seeing trash like him hanging around, so he agreed. After hearing that, Philip called out to Dosiap and asked what MC meant about selling things to the first years. Dosiap turned and brushed it off, saying he was only making a little side cash from fake goods. That was enough for him to know the items really were fake. Philip raised an eyebrow and asked if Dosiap had really made money without telling him first. At that moment, the guy who was always reading quietly snapped his book shut. In English, he basically told Dosiap that Invincible only acts on Philip's word, yet he was out there selling to first years. Dosiap didn't look bothered at all. He laughed and told him to speak Korean, since he didn't understand English anyway. The book guy walked up, his tone turning cold. This time in Korean, he warned Dosiap not to do whatever he wanted. Dosiap just laughed again and said fine, but then he pushed back with the same menace. If the book guy didn't like it, they could fight too. Grinning, he asked if they should settle the rankings again. Just then, Philip stepped between them and casually hooked an arm around each of their necks. Smiling, he said, Invincible members shouldn't be fighting each other. While saying it, he quietly put pressure on Dosiap's elbow, enough to wipe the smile off his face for a moment. Philip kept grinning and said they were all on the same side, so they should get along. Kim just stood there thinking, what are these guys doing? Philip then looked at the protagonist and asked if he really came to challenge Dosiap, so the money would be returned. MC said yes, but Philip's face shifted as he asked whether MC understood what it meant to challenge Dosiap to a fight. According to Philip, that was basically the same as challenging Invincible. Then he asked if he was ready for that. Kim froze. He hadn't thought of that at all. In his head, he wondered how he was supposed to face Invincible alone, but Philip laughed and said he was joking. Did the protagonist really think they'd all jump him? He wasn't happy that Dosiap acted behind his back, but he had to admit MC's fights were fun to watch, so Philip told them to start. The others in the room began moving the furniture and other stuff aside to make space. When the floor was clear, Kim and Dosiap faced each other in the middle. Philip announced that the space was ready so they could fight there with everyone watching. He added that the two of them would settle the win and loss terms themselves. As they raised their fists and got ready, Philip wished them luck and said the better one should win. Outside, rain was pouring. Lee was already irritated. She wondered if Kim had an umbrella and thought about texting him, but then she realized she hadn't seen him since cleanup time and started wondering where he went. Just then, Jiwoo called out to her. Lee asked if she'd really said her name and wondered how Jiwoo even knew it. Jiwoo said they were in the same class, so of course she knew. When Lee asked what she wanted, Jiwoo said she was looking for Kim. Jiwoo usually called him kiddo, while Lee called him loser, so Lee paused and asked if she meant loser. Jiwoo looked confused too and asked why Lee called him that since it sounded rude. Lee brushed it off and told her not to worry. Then she suddenly called Jiwoo Fangs and asked if she had an umbrella. Annoyed, Jiwoo told her not to use that nickname because she hated it most. She also said no, she didn't have one. Lee cursed the rain for starting so hard out of nowhere. Drapu, holding her uniform over herself like an umbrella, asked if Lee wanted to share. Back in the gym storage room, Philip said about 3 minutes had passed since the fight started. He admitted he hadn't expected this. The book guy, though, said he did. It was obvious. They watched Kim and Dosiap trade blows. He was bleeding, breathing hard, but he still kept his guard up. Across from him, Dosiap laughed like a madman, mocking him and asking if that was all he had. He kept going, saying Kim acted like he could fight, but he was weak and didn't belong anywhere near Invincible. Inside, the protagonist was panicking. He couldn't even track Dosiap's punches and had no idea what was happening. Right then, Dosiap rushed in, shouting that MC was pathetic, and cracked him in the face. Before he could recover, Dosiap slipped to the side and landed another clean hit. The protagonist was still stunned by how fast he was. He had never fought anyone this quick. The blows kept coming from his blind spots. While Dosiap kept firing, Kim tried to block. Then he realized he had to attack too, so he started swinging, but hit nothing. Philip watched and said it was the first time he'd seen MC fighting like this. The book guy said fear was getting to him. He had realized nothing he tried was working. He started throwing kicks too, but they missed every time. And every miss was followed by another punch. He even went for takedowns, but those failed too. He was getting tossed around. In his head, Kim knew Dosiap clearly had a boxing background, and if none of his hits were landing, he had no idea how to win. The book guy said MMA, which was the protagonist's style, should normally beat straight boxing. Dosiap only used his hands, but then Philip said that only works when both fighters are close in skill. Here they weren't. Dosiap was way above MA. Philip explained that Dosiap was an elite boxer from special sports middle and high schools, but Dosiap didn't treat boxing like a sport, he treated it like a street fight. Philip added that once Dosiap bit a guy's nose for taunting him, broke his face, and even beat up the guy's coach. After that, he got transferred by force to their school. That's how they ended up with the menace named Park Dosiap. Back in the fight, Doziop had ripped off his shirt and was laughing like a complete lunatic, yelling about how fun this was. Kim just stood there thinking he was in serious trouble and wondering what he could even do now. Outside, the rain got even worse. Jilwoo said they had no choice now. They had to run for it. Then she stopped and asked if Lee was slow. Doziop came out of the school with the 2 first years, and Lee asked if any of them had umbrellas. Nobody did. Lee clicked her tongue and snapped, asking if they could at least carry umbrellas like normal people. That was enough to scare the 2 first years, and they started wondering if she was some kind of bully. Lee then asked Doziop where he was. Doziop just asked why, and Lee said she wanted him to bring her an umbrella. Doziop said he had no idea where he went. Lee grumbled, annoyed that the protagonist had vanished earlier. Then Jiwoo said her brother was on the way, which only made Lee more irritated. Still, knowing how her brother was, Lee just let out a sigh and accepted it. Even so, everyone kept wondering where MC had gone. What none of them knew was that he was currently getting destroyed by Doziop. Punches kept crashing into Kim's face from every angle, and his body was getting battered too. When the protagonist tried to hit back, Doziop slipped past it with ease, then cracked him across the jaw and made MC lose his footing. Right then, he remembered something Lee once told him. No matter who it is, one solid shot to the jaw can finish you. And that was exactly what happened. Kim dropped to one knee, drained and barely staying conscious, while Philip watched with a grin and asked if he was getting woozy. Book Guy said a clean jaw shot would make it hard for anyone to stay upright. The protagonist's vision swam, his head spun, and his ears rang. He couldn't even process what had happened. He'd fought plenty before, but this guy, Doziop, was on another level. Then Doziop grabbed him and yanked him up like he was nothing, yelling that the fight wasn't over. Then he blasted him in the face again and told him to last a little longer. Still laughing like a maniac, Doziop kept beating Kim without stopping. MC panicked, thinking he might really die if this kept up. In desperation, he raised his hands and begged Doziop to stop. Crying, he admitted he lost. In that moment, he truly believed Doziop would kill him if he didn't give up. But that monster just said no and kept punching, sending Kim crashing back down. Writhing in pain, the protagonist kept begging for him to stop, repeating that he already surrendered. Doziop didn't care. He shouted that once someone picked a fight with him, he never let them walk away, or people might think he was weak. As another punch landed, he yelled that he wouldn't stop until his opponent was half dead or pissing on the floor. He laughed like a demon, and Kim was horrified because at this rate, he really was going to die. So MC did the only sane thing he could. He got up and ran. Blood poured down his face and he screamed for help like a terrified kid. As he rushed for the exit, Doziop cackled behind him, but waiting in front of the door were Philip and Book Guy. Kim, dizzy and barely conscious, collapsed to the floor, gasping for air. He looked up at Philip and begged him to move. He said he was done and just wanted to leave. But instead, Philip smiled, locked the door, and asked if he wanted to join Invincible. His eyes went wide in disbelief, maybe even fear. Philip calmly added that if he refused, he might as well die there. At that moment, Doziop came up behind the protagonist, ready to throw another punch. Kim spun around in terror and threw his arms up to guard himself. Then suddenly the door behind Philip started shaking. No, it was getting slammed from the outside so hard it looked ready to break. Doziop stopped mid-swing, and even Philip looked confused as the door bent inward like it was being crushed by something insane. Everyone stared as the person who stepped in after wrecking the door was none other than Gunhoo. Everyone froze. One guy demanded to know who he was, while the rest just stared at the busted door. Philip, though, recognized him right away. He said this was the guy from earlier, the one who fought Kim, Gunhoo from Unrivaled. Gunhoo confirmed it, and Philip asked what was with destroying the door. Gunhoo casually apologized and said he heard MC was here, so he got worried. A little earlier, Gunhoo had arrived with umbrellas. He heard some first years telling Lee that Kim went to Invincible for a refund, but nobody had heard from him since. When they got to the storage room, they heard screaming inside, but the door was locked, so Gunhoo broke it open. After coming in, he walked over, picked him up, and said he was taking him since the fight was already over. Philip asked what he thought he was doing, saying this was Invincible's business. His face and tone turned cold as he asked if Unrivaled was trying to interfere. Gunhoo quickly said no and told Philip not to misunderstand. He came alone. This had nothing to do with Unrivaled. Then he looked Philip straight in the eye and asked if it wasn't messed up to keep beating someone who already gave up. The others exploded, shouting at Gunhoo, calling him a bastard, and asking if he even knew where he was or if he wanted to die. Gunhoo didn't budge. He told them if anyone had a problem, they could come find him at Baekwon High School. He'd face anyone, and with that, he started walking out. Book Guy quietly asked Philip if they should contact Unrivaled and find out what was going on, but Philip brushed it off and told him to drop it. Then he sat down, laughed, and said at least Kim's fight was entertaining. Later at the hospital, the protagonist got treated by a doctor while his friends waited. Once it was over, they all left together. Gunhoo told MC he got lucky. The doctor said nothing was seriously wrong, but Jiwoo wasn't buying that. She pointed at Kim's face, cursed the people who did this, and demanded to know who they were. Were they gangsters? She said she'd go beat them up herself if she had to. Trying to show what she meant, she accidentally kicked him in the stomach. She quickly said sorry and swore it was an accident, but that was the exact same place he'd been hit before. The protagonist forced a smile through the pain and thanked everyone, especially Gunhoo. Gunhoo told him not to worry as long as he was okay. Then he said he and his sister had to go before they missed the bus. Jae-do-woo said goodbye, told MC not to skip school, and said she'd see him tomorrow. Dean also checked on him and asked if he needed help getting home, but Kim said he was fine. Lee, though, wasn't letting it go. She asked why he kept acting so full of himself. He said nothing and just lowered his head, too ashamed to answer. Later that night, back at Kim's place, water ran in the bathroom while he stood under the shower. For the first time, he admitted something to himself. He had lost a fight. Before this, he'd thought he was just lucky. But losing wasn't what hurt most. It was the fear. That fear sank deep into him. He could still feel the blows and still remember thinking he was going to die. It was one of the scariest moments of his life. After his shower, Kim stepped out and almost jumped when he saw Lee sitting in his room. She told him to sit next to her. When he asked why, she told him to shut up and do it. Without another word, she took some ointment, put a little on her finger, and gently rubbed it on his swollen eye. Kim wondered what she was doing, and then she said he'd gotten beaten up pretty badly. She asked how anyone could rough up a weakling like him that much. The protagonist stayed quiet, his thoughts spinning. Was she actually worried about him? Lee kept going, asking why he ran off to fight without telling her. Muttering a curse, she said that as his teacher, the least he could do was let her know. Kim apologized and admitted he got too angry to stop himself. Lee still wasn't satisfied. She told him that even if he had prepared, he still might have lost. Instead, he rushed in, fueled by anger. She added that his mom was away on a business trip until the week after next, which was probably for the best since she didn't have to see him like this. Then Lee reminded him again that there were plenty of stronger people out there. She told him to quit acting cocky, called him a loser, and warned him that if he ever planned to fight again without telling her, he was dead. Then she called him an arrogant loser, one more time. As she stood up to leave, she added that seeing him get beaten like this hurt her pride as his teacher. Kim quietly said he understood, but from that night on, something in him changed. He didn't have the courage to fight anymore. Every night, he had nightmares about Dozio beating him down. He'd wake up suddenly, soaked in sweat, jerking upright like Dozio had just hit him again, and every time he told himself the same thing. He never wanted to fight again. Going after Dozio had been way beyond him. At school, Kim didn't even get mad anymore when his friends got extorted. Whenever Dozio spotted him, he would casually call his name and ask for 100. Dozio told Kim to send him 100,000 won for shoes. MC just obeyed. He was being extorted again. Once the other bullies noticed, they started pushing him too, one after another. They came asking for money like it was fun. He didn't have the will or courage to fight back anymore. Just thinking about another fight made his hands shake and his chest tighten. Everything had gone back to the old days, back to being bullied. Later, while tutoring Lee at home, Kim tried to clear his head. He told himself to stop thinking about reckless stuff and focus on the lesson. He had promised to help Lee get into Seoul University. Then the doorbell rang. Lee guessed it was her delivery and told him to get it. Kim asked why she was ordering food before the lesson was even over, but she said she was hungry and had ordered early, then told him to hurry. With a sigh, he went to the door, muttering that she was already planning dinner during tutoring. How was she supposed to get into Seoul University like this? But when he opened the door, he stopped. It wasn't a delivery person. It was Sarah. She laughed, said it had been a while, and asked if he'd missed her. Kim just stared, wondering why she was there. Sarah teased that she came because she missed him. Before he could react, she pulled him into a hug and asked how he'd been. Then she noticed his face, took off his glasses, and poked at his bruised eye. She asked what happened and whether Lee hit him. The protagonist told her to stop because it hurt, but Sarah only laughed and said it felt squishy. Just then, Lee came downstairs and Sarah rushed over to hug her. She said it had been months, but Lee told her it really hadn't been that long. Sarah asked if she'd been working out since her hips looked toned. Embarrassed, Lee said she'd had no time for that because she'd been studying non-stop. Then Sarah pointed at MC's eye and asked again if Lee had done that. Lee denied it and said MC had picked a fight with a delinquent and got wrecked. Sarah cracked up, while Lee, a little awkward, added that this wasn't some normal delinquent, it was a really dangerous one. Sarah looked at him with fake pity and opened her arms, saying she'd comfort him. Then she laughed, said she was kidding, and suddenly locked him in a chokehold. The protagonist struggled and begged her to stop because he couldn't breathe. Letting go, Sarah grinned and said Kim must be at least decent now, so the guy who beat him had to be seriously strong. Still trying to breathe, MC admitted he was. Sarah gave him a look and asked if that was why he'd been so depressed. Then she joked about giving him another chance to touch her boobs, only to laugh and say she was kidding again. Turning to Lee, she pointed out how wide his eyes got and joked that he was cured already. Lee laughed and called him a pervert. Red-faced, the protagonist begged her to stop. Just being around Sarah was exhausting. After a while, she told him that sometimes you win and sometimes you lose, so she didn't get why he was this crushed. Whoever beat him up, if Kim really wanted to win, she could teach him how to fight. He politely refused and said he was done with fighting. Sarah just shrugged and told him to ask if he changed his mind. Then she casually mentioned she'd be staying at his house for a few days. His mom had already said yes. MC was surprised his mom agreed, but having Sarah around did make him feel a little better. School, though, was still awful. Daziop kept demanding money, and because of their deal before the fight, Kim had to keep paying him. Daziop even offered to get him a cheap wallet if he needed one. He only said okay. He didn't even try to argue anymore. Even passing the club room felt heavy. He figured he'd only be a burden if he went in. As he dragged himself down the hall, someone called his name. He turned and saw the two freshmen. The tall one said they needed to tell him something important. That night, Kim walked through the streets with them. The tall one explained that Ilgu hadn't come to school since getting beaten up. He also wasn't answering his phone. Fatty said people nearby had seen him on the rooftop at night, and he was worried Ilgu might be thinking about doing something bad. The second Kim heard that, he panicked and said this was serious. They had to check on him right away. A little later, they reached Ilgu's house. Then Fatty looked up and pointed. Ilgu was on the rooftop. All of them shouted, asking what he was doing up there. Then they ran inside and charged up the stairs to make sure he was okay. When they got to the roof, they found Ilgoy doing pull-ups. He hadn't heard them before because he had earbuds in. Once he noticed them, he just looked confused and asked why they were there. The tall one grabbed him and said they'd come because they were worried he might be having dark thoughts. Ilgo blinked and asked what he meant. He said he was only working out. When they asked why he ignored their calls, Ilgu said he wanted to shut everything out for a while. He admitted he'd been depressed and stuck in his room for days, but eventually he got too frustrated, came up for air, found workout gear on the roof and started training. While hitting the bag, he kept thinking about Kim. Ilgu said he wanted to get strong like the protagonist, strong enough to stand up to the guy who bullied him. That's why he'd been training non-stop. Getting bullied didn't scare him now, it just made him angry. MC listened quietly, then pointed out that Ilgu's stance was all wrong and showed him how to place his legs properly. The other two laughed at Ilgu's awful form. Still, Ilgu was trying. He was fighting back the best way he could, and compared to that, Kim felt like the one who had run away. In that moment, he admitted to himself that giving up after one loss was pathetic. He remembered how scared he'd once been of Jo Sang-bum and of Hong Dae-bong, who had seemed huge to him even though he was skinny, and of Do-hyun, who had felt impossible to move. Back then, he was scared too, but when he got cornered, he didn't bow his head. He kept throwing punches again and again. After realizing that, Kim went home with a new resolve. He told Sarah he wanted her to teach him how to win. Hearing that, she smiled and laughed, happy to hear it. Sarah said that before she could help, she needed to know how the guy who beat him fought. She asked if Kim had a video of the fight, but he didn't, so she said they needed to learn his style first to build a plan. Then she asked if there was anyone he could talk to, someone who knew how Do-hyun fought. The protagonist said there might be. The next day, he went to Do-hyun at school. Do-hyun said he'd looked into Do-hyun like MC asked, and for more details he'd called Seokyu. Seokyu told him Do-hyun was supposedly the third best fighter in Invincible, but when it came to dirty fighting, he was number one. He beat people until they were nearly dead, then asked if Do-hyun was actually thinking of fighting him. If he was, he'd be done for. Do-hyun quickly said he wasn't the one planning to fight. Seokyu then said he still wanted to recruit him again someday, so Do-hyun shouldn't wreck himself over this, and should stay out of it. After that, Seokyu said there was one way to see how Do-hyun fought. He mentioned a YouTube channel called Real Fight Club, where regular people fought while a referee watched. Do-hyun was set to appear there in 2 days in a parking lot next to 00 School at 2 p.m. If Do-hyun was curious, he should go watch. Back in the present, Do-hyun gave Kim all of that and said he should go if he wanted to see Do-zae fight. Then worried, he asked whether he really had to fight him. The protagonist stayed quiet for a second. He thought about his friends being harassed every day. Then he said he had to fight because nothing would change unless he faced them. On the day of Do-zae's match, a huge crowd filled the parking lot. Lee and Sarah were there, and Kim showed up too, covered from head to toe. Sarah laughed and asked if this was where they filmed Real Fight Club. MC nodded. Sarah grinned and said she was glad she got to see this in person, while Lee just waited for the fight to finally start. The cameraman announced Gong Yorongmin, better known as the Murder Demon, a veteran semi-pro MMA fighter, and said the match would start when Do-seop got there, so he should be ready. Gong frowned and asked what was taking Do-seop so long. Right then, Do-seop arrived. He walked in laughing as he pulled off his hoodie, and the whole crowd locked onto him. They called him the dopamine addict. Sarah asked him how Do-seop fought in their match. He said he only boxed and even claimed he used to be an elite boxer. That caught Sarah off guard a little. If Do-seop was really a boxer, she said, then he should be weak on the ground. Lee cut in and said that if boxing was all he had, the answer was simple: take him down. Then she asked the protagonist how he still lost. The protagonist admitted he couldn't get a single takedown. His kicks missed too. Then the match started, and Do-seop rushed in the second gong through a punch. Lee pointed out that Do-seop's reflexes and tight movement looked like a boxer's. He was slipping attacks with barely any effort. Then Gong made the smart call and shot for a tackle. Against a boxer, taking it to the ground should have worked, but Do-seop shut it down with a sharp uppercut to the face. Even Lee looked surprised. Do-seop had stopped a tackle with an uppercut. Sarah said it was hard to do, but yeah, that kind of counter could work at least once. Gong kept pressing. He threw a high kick, and Do-seop slipped past it with a sidestep. Then Gong went low, but Do-seop lifted his leg and checked it cleanly. Sarah noticed right away that the block looked like kickboxing or Muay Thai. Lee turned to MC and asked if Do-seop was really just a boxer, because he was clearly using kickboxing too. MC insisted that in their fight, Do-seop only used his hands, nothing else. Meanwhile, Do-seop kept battering Gong with punches. Watching him move, Sarah said his low weaving did look like real boxing. In boxing, nobody attacks below the waist, so fighters can dip that low, but in MMA, that can get you wrecked. Gong tried another tackle, but Do-seop answered with a sprawl, pulling his legs back and dropping his weight to defend. That broke Gong's grip on the legs and made the takedown much harder. Sarah said that was straight-up takedown defense. If Do-seop could sprawl like that, he clearly knew MMA too. She added that he could stop high kicks and even catch them, which meant he had answers for pretty much every MMA attack. Lee stared in confusion and muttered, wondering what Dosyap's deal was. Gong was falling apart, cursing because nothing he tried was working. Sarah said that's exactly when frustration kicks in, and once that happens, Dosyap gets his opening. A moment later, he smashed Gong in the face and knocked him out cold. Dosyap burst out laughing and called the fight boring. Kim quietly said his own match felt the same. He barely remembered it because he got hit so much, but his tackles and kicks failed too. Once he switched to trading punches, he got destroyed. Sarah said she was starting to understand. Then two guys nearby began talking, and one recognized Dosyap as a member of Invincible. He said he remembered Dosyap only using boxing before. The other guy replied that he'd heard Dosyap was losing street fights whenever people took him down, so the guys in Invincible taught him kick defense and takedown defense. Both of them laughed, saying Dosyap was trying way too hard. Sarah quietly listened to all of it. Later that day, Sarah told Kim she was sure now. After watching the match and hearing those guys talk, she had it figured out. Dosyap started as a boxer, but he had learned kick defense and takedown defense too. If that was true, then she already had the perfect plan. With a confident laugh, she said Dosyap was finished. He asked if she meant it, and Sarah gave him a firm yes. She promised to win him the rematch and told him to trust her. Then she suddenly hugged him, which left him totally confused. When he asked why, she said it was to cheer him up, then grinned and said it was time to get ready for the rematch. Sarah told Kim getting stronger was simpler than he thought. All he needed was the guts to face a punch without backing down. That's it. If he could do that, she said, he could win. Holding her fist right in front of his face, she told him not to be scared. The protagonist repeated that in his head, don't be scared. But inside he was freaking out. Before he could sink into that fear, she suddenly flicked his face. Kim blinked and asked why she did that, but Sarah just laughed and told him to wake up and put some life back in those weak eyes. Rubbing his face, MC complained that she hit his good eye. Her grin only got wider. In 2 weeks, she said she'd make him a man who could beat Dosyap. He instantly turned red, and Sarah was quick to tease him. With a smirk, she asked why he was blushing and what he was thinking about. Lee, watching from the side, called him a pervert. Flustered, Kim waved his hands and stammered that it wasn't like that. He was only red because she hit his face. Sarah just smiled and told him to put the gloves on. Training time. A month later, at Harium Park, students had gathered all over the place. Some were smoking, and others were just hanging around talking. Philip walked up to Dosyap and asked if Kim had really asked for the rematch himself. Dosyap, still smoking, laughed and said, yeah. The protagonist came to him that morning and challenged him. The fight would be right here at Harium Park at 5 p.m., and MC even said, if you're scared, you don't have to come. But this time, I won't lose. Dosyap said it surprised him at first, but he accepted. He told Philip he usually never does rematches, but Kim had nerve, so he'd allow it. Most people he beats can't even look at him after. They fold completely. So I guess I didn't crush him hard enough, he said. Now the kid thinks he can stand up to me. Smirking, Dosyap said the protagonist was about to learn the hard way. Get cocky and your skull gets cracked. Philip raised a brow and asked if Dosyap was the one who spread word about the fight. There were way too many people here. Dosyap shrugged and said he only told Daniel. Philip looked over at Daniel, who was calmly reading, then turned back and said, yeah. Daniel couldn't keep his mouth shut. Daniel argued that he only told a few friends. Dosyap got annoyed, but Philip cut in and said even some major crews had shown up, like the Jonghak High School Bully Alliance. Their top guy told his people to watch closely because Invincible was the gang they'd be taking down next. The Barkwon High School Bully Alliance, unrivaled, was here too. Their number one guy casually told Gunhu to find a good place to eat because after this, they'd go feast. Then there was the Seryung High School Bully Alliance, the Assassin League, mocking the whole scene. Philip looked at Daniel and asked how he had spread it this far. Daniel shrugged and said he didn't tell that many people, but when Philip asked for a number, Daniel casually said around 20. Dosyap instantly called him insane. 20 was not a small number. Philip said the crowd wasn't here just for a fight. They wanted to see whether Invincible was still strong. Dosyap wasn't just some random thug, he was the face of their offense. Then Philip casually mentioned that some special guests had come too. Confused, Dosyap asked who. Philip pointed behind him and said they were already here. Two guys walked in, one was tall and calm, the other was bald, built like a tank, and immediately looked around for girls. The tall one was Taro, Invincible's number 3, 18 years old and a dropout from this very school. The bald one asked if there were any girls around, then realized there weren't. His name was Choi Huang, also 18 and number 4 in Invincible, though nobody looking at him would have guessed he was only 18. Philip smiled and said it was good to see them. It had been a long time since Invincible's top 5 had gathered like this. Looking at Taro, he said they barely saw him after he dropped out. Taro proudly answered that he was the one making the money, now still handling all their business calls, basically running Invincible's business side. Philip looked at Huang and joked that he was too busy chasing girls to show up. Huang proved him right, still looking around for someone cute. That was basically his whole reputation in Invincible. Taro said he came despite being busy because he wanted to see Dosyap's big showcase. Then he smirked and asked if this was really Dosyap's opponent's funeral. Dosyap got pissed, told him to shut up and asked if he wanted to die too. All at once the crowd turned towards someone coming their way. A murmur spread, was that Dosyap's opponent? As Kim got closer, people figured it had to be him. But once they saw him clearly, everyone looked confused. He was way smaller than they expected. Philip, though, looked impressed. Even with this huge crowd, MC still came alone. That took nerve, but then MC, who'd been walking calmly, suddenly burst forward straight at Dasyop. In one move, he jumped and threw a wild kick. Dasyop blocked it. Caught by surprise, Dasyop was still trying to figure out what Kim was doing. From the side, Hwang started yelling that his move was a cheap sneak attack. He called him a coward. Taro, on the other hand, loved it. He clapped and said things were starting off hot. The protagonist didn't stop. He dropped low like he was about to throw a low kick. Dasyop saw it and got ready to counter with a clean kick check, but Kim changed it mid-move. Instead of going low, he turned and kicked Dasyop right in the face with a Brazilian kick. The hit landed clean and Dasyop just froze, stunned. That wasn't luck. Sarah had already told MC the plan, be unpredictable, and it worked. Every gang there was shocked. Everyone stared with their mouths open. The only ones who didn't react were the Assassin League guys, still smiling like nothing happened. Philip too was grinning, clearly enjoying this turn. Then Dasyop started laughing. Not in a nice way, he cracked his neck and growled, "You kicked my face? Fine, I'll kill you today." Kim didn't back off. He stayed quiet, but in his head, he'd already decided he wasn't losing either. In a quick flashback, Sarah asked him if he'd watched how Dasyop fought. She said Dasyop attacked with boxing, but he defended kicks by catching them or using a check, and he stopped takedowns with a sprawl. So even if he fought like a boxer, his defense came from all kinds of styles. Then Sarah remembered what those two gossiping guys had said. Dasyop had learned to block basic kicks, low, middle, high, even T-kicks. She told Kim that in a one-on-one fight, blocking even a few standard kicks was enough to counter and end it fast. Then she asked what would happen if he used strange kicks instead. Since Dasyop hadn't trained in real mixed martial arts, he likely wouldn't know how to deal with attacks that changed path mid-air. Back in the present, that's exactly what the protagonist used, a Brazilian kick that caught Dasyop off guard. Not long after, Kim's friends showed up and asked if they were late. The three first-years started praying hard, just hoping MC could hang on. Dasyop was still furious, but he rushed him again and fired what looked like a jab at the face, then dropped low instead. It was a jab feint into a single-leg takedown. Dasyop read it right away. He got ready to sprawl and shut it down, but then Kim spun and smashed him in the face with a spinning back elbow. Sarah had warned the protagonist that Dasyop usually stopped takedowns with sprawls or counterpunches. His reactions were too fast, which meant repeated takedowns would just waste MC's energy. In the end, she told him he had to fight strike for strike. That really shook Kim. He asked what she meant. If it turned into straight boxing, Dasyop was way above him. Sarah agreed. She even said Dasyop was probably better than both her and Lee in pure boxing. That made Lee snap, saying she was still better. Sarah told him not to stress. He'd still use strikes, but it wouldn't be a boxing match. He needed attacks boxers don't use, like the spinning back elbow he'd already landed on Dasyop. Since those moves weren't part of normal boxing, Dasyop would have a harder time stopping them. When the crowd saw Kim fake the takedown and land that backspin elbow, they were stunned. Watching closely, Philip said the protagonist had clearly planned this out. That move wasn't random. Gunhu got fired up and yelled for MC to keep going, saying he was doing great. Back in the fight, Kim followed with a headbutt right to Dasyop's chin. Sarah had already told him that even if headbutts were illegal in boxing, they still counted as striking and winning was what mattered. So if he had the chance, he should use it. Dasyop started to look dazed and he remembered Sarah saying that if he ever got an opening like this, he had to finish it fast. So the protagonist went all in and started throwing non-stop strikes. Dasyop kept his guard up and blocked what he could. One of the gang leaders said Dasyop still hadn't recovered. Daniel asked if that meant he might actually lose, and Philip just said maybe. When Daniel asked if he didn't care, Philip laughed and said he only cared about being on the winning side. Back in the fight with Kim pressing hard, Dasyop finally threw a punch. MC stepped back and dodged it, wondering if Dasyop had already recovered. Seeing how angry Dasyop looked, he decided what to do next. Then the scene cut back to training, where Sarah said they were bringing in a special teacher for another unusual move. Kim was confused at first, but then Junwoo walked in. Sarah said Lee told her Junwoo knew Taekwondo, so they brought her in to teach the protagonist a few kicks. Junwoo stepped up and said they'd start right away. She was ready to teach him real kicks. Back in the present, Kim suddenly went calm. After adjusting his stance and footwork, he jumped high into the air and threw a Taekwondo 540 kicks. It landed clean on Dasyop's face again, and MC's friends stared in shock. But then Dasyop recovered fast and fired a punch back. Kim barely blocked it in time, and even he looked shaken. If he'd been a second slower, it would have been bad. He quickly backed off, realizing staying too close was dangerous. Meanwhile, Dasyop only got angrier as the fight went on. He cursed at him, then unzipped his jacket and threw it aside. He stood there with no guard. One of the gang leaders noticed and wondered what he was planning. The red-haired gang leader just laughed, while Gunhu's leader explained that Dasyop was probably baiting Kim to attack. The two faced off. The protagonist had no idea what Dasyop was thinking, but he knew he couldn't freeze up. If Dasyop wouldn't move first, then he would. MC rushed in with the Taekwondo spinning kick he'd learned from Song Ji-woo. Dasyop didn't dodge at all, he just took it, even though it clearly hurt. Daniel asked if that meant Dasyop had given up. Philip told him to watch closely. Then Dasyop loaded up a punch and threw it. The hit was so strong it sent Kim flying back to the ground. Philip said Doziop had taken the kick on purpose to land that counter at the perfect time. He looked hurt, but without wasting a second, he got back up, raised his guard and told himself he was fine. This was only the start. Facing him again, Kim noticed Doziop was still using that no-guard stance, like he was daring him to come in, but the protagonist wasn't going to get scared. He decided to close in with a double jab, then follow with a backspin strike. It connected with Doziop's face, but the guy just smiled. Daniel was confused. Was Doziop letting himself get hit again? If this kept up, shouldn't he pass out? Philip shook his head and said no. You only go down easy from hits you don't see coming. Kim didn't waste the opening and threw a taekwondo stomp. As his leg came toward Doziop's face, Doziop casually moved and the stomp hit his shoulder instead. He was still smiling. Philip finally got it. Doziop had been waiting for a counter this whole time. Right then, Doziop caught Kim's leg and slammed him with a huge punch, sending MC flying. He hit the ground again and his friends gasped. They called out in panic, telling him to stay with them. Philip said this was a trade flesh for bone kind of fight. Crazy, but if it kept going, one of them would drop. Doziop cackled like a lunatic while Kim lay there. The protagonist knew one more counter like that and he'd black out for real. He forced himself up and warned himself to be careful. He had to stop getting countered. Then he rushed back in with a spinning taekwondo kick. Doziop blocked it, but MC didn't stop. He fired a backspin elbow right after. Doziop shut that down too, punching straight into Kim's elbow. Hwanesh was stunned. He blocked an elbow with his fist. Laughing, Doziop grinned that he could read every attack now. Then he drove a punch into his ribs and warned him not to use the same move twice. He could see it all now. Then he smashed the protagonist in the face again. While getting rocked, the protagonist remembered what Sarah had said. Doziop's eyes were insanely sharp. If MC wanted to win, he had to finish this before Doziop fully read his patterns. As the punches kept coming, he wondered if Doziop had already figured him out. Right then, another heavy shot slammed into his face, then a right hook, then a left. Doziop laughed and said this was getting fun. Kim realized he was falling into Doziop's pace. He told himself to focus. This fight had only just started, and he still had choices. So he jumped and threw a taekwondo 540 kick, but Doziop caught it in midair with a brutal punch to the leg. From the side, Taro blurted out that Doziop had stopped the kick with a check hook. Meanwhile, Doziop laughed again and reminded Kim he'd warned him not to repeat attacks. Then he drove a fist into the protagonist's stomach and followed with a non-stop barrage. As he kept hammering him, Doziop mocked MC, asking if he'd really prepared for this, if he'd done everything he wanted. Then with a crazy grin, he said it was time for Kim to die. He kept punching and laughing. One of the gang leaders muttered that the whole fight had turned. This was over. The red-haired gang leader just adjusted his sunglasses and snickered. Dazed, he asked himself what he could even do now. Was there really no way out? Was he going to lose again? Doziop sneered that he wasn't ending it yet. He'd keep beating the protagonist until he pissed himself or was half dead. The protagonist tried to block with his arms up, but the damage kept piling on. Doziop kept trash-talking, saying no miracle was coming for a loser like him. That line dragged up an old memory. Skinny Boy once said bullying someone like MC was pointless because losers were just born that way. Then another flashback hit, his first bully beating him while calling him a little piece of shit. This is what happens when prey challenges a lion. As Doziop kept attacking, Kim's mind spiraled. Was this really his fate? Was he still just some pathetic loser? For someone like him, was this all there was? Then a clearer memory came back. Lee once asked him, if he wanted to beat Doziop, what did he think he needed? Kim answered, probably the plan she and Sarah made, and to use it right in the fight. Lee told him no. Something mattered more than strategy. When he asked what, she said belief in himself. He didn't get it at first, so she explained Doziop wasn't like the others. He was on another level, so the protagonist would need to trust not just his skills but himself. Then she asked if he truly believed he could beat Doziop. She said no one enters a fight expecting to lose. What matters is believing you're strong, believing you can win, believing your hard work means something. Then she reminded him of what Sarah once said, being strong isn't special. You just need the courage to face the punch coming at you. That courage alone can win a fight. So Lee told him that if he could believe in himself and face that punch, she'd teach him a move he could use. Back in the present, Doziop was still beating him down. But this time Kim clenched his teeth and told himself he'd believe in himself and use what Lee taught him. So when the next punch came at his face, MC didn't flinch. Instead, he stepped in and took it head on. Then he burst forward with a move that doesn't exist in boxing. The Wing Superman punch. It landed clean and hard, blasting blood from Doziop's nose. Kim saw his chance and let his hands go, driving a flurry into Doziop's body. He remembered Lee's advice, aim for the chin. If you hit it with real force, size won't matter. They'll go down. Kim shouted that it was over, then threw a brutal shot straight at the chin. Doziop's head snapped back, his body gave out, and he crashed to the floor completely out. Doziop said no miracle was coming to save Kim. But what he didn't know was the real miracle had already been building in the background. Everyone just froze, staring in shock. Kim's friends exploded with cheers and disbelief, and even Lee smiled. In that moment, he had won. After the fight, Doziop dropped out of school. That loss was just too humiliating for him. Since the semester started, Kim had been in a lot of fights. He won some and lost some. But he started wondering if all of it had made him at least a little stronger. If so, he owed a lot of that to Lee, who trained him like crazy. He was thankful to Sarah too for helping him prepare this time and to his friends for cheering him on, even to the people he fought. Weirdly, they helped make him stronger. Like a vaccine, the bullying hurt, sure, but it also made him tougher. In a strange way, he figured he should be grateful. He sighed and looked up. Meanwhile, Jo Sang-bom, Kim's first bully, had barely been coming to school since his fight with the protagonist. The protagonist had no clue where he was or what he was doing. As for Hongdae Bong, he ran into a blocked path and asked why people were in the way. When he told them to move, one guy asked why he couldn't go around and called him an asshole. Another added, "Can't you see we're talking?" But the guy wasn't backing down. He asked what they were even talking about, called them punks and told them to move. That's when they started mocking him. And yep, it was Dae Bong, the same one I used to call Skinny Boy, even though he was fat back then. Now he'd actually gotten super skinny. As for Ansel, he was pretty much the same. He walked up to the red-haired gang leader, handed over cash, and asked if that was enough to deal with one guy. Same shady stuff as always. And Do-seop, he and MC ended up becoming close friends. MC also started seeing Gunhoo and Jiwoo way more often. And Do-seop, people said he'd been hitting the gym and even cut his hair. There were also rumors he'd started boxing again. Then time passed, and final exams for the first semester arrived. The test was brutal. Later that night at Kim's house, he sat with Lee and asked if she'd checked her scores. He wanted to see her report right away, which made her curse in annoyance. He apologized and said he just wanted to see how much she improved. She called him annoying but handed it over anyway. After looking, he could tell her grades were still bad but better than before. She had a long way to go, so he told her she'd maybe reach middle school level now and needed to work way harder. Irritated, she asked to see his scores. He asked why and she said she needed to know how good her tutor really was. When she saw them, she was completely stunned. Kim had done insanely well. He was crazy smart. Almost everything was a perfect score, and even in English he got a 98. He said he studied here and there while training. She stared at him and told him to give her half his brain. He shrugged and said even if he could, he wouldn't. Then he said they should get back to tutoring. Time passed and later that night they stepped outside for some air. Lee rubbed her head and said too much studying was giving her a headache. She lit a cigarette and told Kim to keep watch. Then she looked at him and asked if he remembered what she told him before. He asked what she meant. Lee reminded him she'd said that if he had the courage to face the punch, he could win. Do-seop's punches were strong. One bad hit could have knocked him out, but the protagonist had the nerve to take it and he did well. The protagonist remembered that moment clearly. He stood his ground and fired back because he had the guts. Lee added that Do-seop was one of the toughest opponents MC had fought so far, so beating him meant he was pretty strong now too. The protagonist lit up and asked if she really meant that. She nodded and said that to her it was still a rookie fight, but if even she admitted that much, he should feel a little proud. Then she checked her phone and said Sarah was blowing up the group chat. That reminded Kim that Sarah had met his other friends on the day he fought Do-seop. She looked at them and asked if they were the famous Lee and the Small Fry gang, then cheerfully introduced herself. Lee quickly told her not to say that out loud. Jiwoo looked confused by the nickname, then asked MC if he was in the gang too. When he hesitated, she said she wanted to join, and Lee immediately asked who gave her permission. Before that could go anywhere, Sarah said she was joining too and called herself an honorary member. Jiwoo loved the idea and even asked him if she could keep coming over to his place. Back in the present, Lee let out a sigh and said Sarah had been blowing up the group chat ever since then. In the chat, Sarah asked what everyone was doing for summer break. Dasim said she'd catch up on anime, and Jiwoo said she'd be hanging out at Kim's place. Then Lee told them they should be studying, since they were all trying to get into college. Funny enough, Lee was the worst student out of all of them. Still, she turned to the protagonist and said they should go back inside and keep studying. MC said that was the right attitude. Then Lee suddenly told him that since she helped make him stronger, he had to take responsibility for her too. That totally caught Kim off guard. He blushed and started wondering what she even meant by responsibility, before snapping himself out of it, embarrassed by where his mind was going. Lee saw him standing there spaced out and told him to hurry up and come inside. Even though studying was brutal, he was still enjoying how peaceful the moment felt. Deep down, he wished this calm could stay forever. And just like that, after a hard first semester, summer break